Chris always thought that every person has at least one talent, and it just hasn't come time for him to find his own yet. He thought he would find it soon, but it never happened. When he went into the dungeon, he was told that there was no place for an F-rank piece of shit like him to be here. If he had no talent, he should at least have understood what he was and known his place. Because he had a low rank and was considered untalented, his girlfriend decided to leave him. Chris may have had no talent, but he didn't need it in a world that didn't give losers like him a chance. Besides, he now has something better than talent. These are his 990,000 past lives, all watching over him. One of them can wield a shield. Another one is a master of fencing. Another one sings beautifully and has a great talent for music. Even Chris's physique in one of his past lives was completely different. He had much more physical strength. Romano, the immortal emperor, watches over him. Hasashin, the master of shadows, is watching him. Danzing, one of those who could not escape, watches over him. Reaper, a blood-soaked killer, is watching him. Perhaps now, after 990,000 attempts, the time has finally come to win. If it was them, his past lives, then they would be able to defeat these damn bastards, because unlike Chris, these lives had exceptional abilities. He is the lowly F-rank hunter Chris Neumann, who has awakened for the 990,000th time. His adventure begins right now. It so happened that during the clearing of the dungeon, everyone died except him, an F-rank hunter. He didn't see the exit. The entrance to the dungeon suddenly closed, and it was unclear what these high-ranking monsters were doing here, because this dungeon was a rank lower than them. But Chris didn't want to die here senselessly. If only he had that incredible power, then there would be at least some chance. Seeing Chris's thirst for life, his past life went beyond its limitations and intervened in the situation on its own. Seaton Miller, the sword's last patron, came down to him. It's just like in that dream where his past lives spoke to him. One of these lives is now inside his body. Then someone calls Chris, telling him to get up. He wakes up, it was a dream again. This clown just ran away while they were clearing the dungeon and then went to sleep. Jim didn't want to say it, but they didn't have that much money to give to little creatures like him. Since he woke up, he should quickly get lost and not look for another team anymore. Chris asks what he means by they don't have much money. Jim says now he gets it. Chris isn't F-ranked, he's F-retarded. He was wounded in the dungeon and then drank all their potions. Then a rock hit him on the head and he passed out. Because of him, they spent a lot more time, and those potions he drank weren't cheap. If he had even a drop of conscience, he would understand why he didn't get anything. It's unclear what he was doing while they were clearing the dungeon. Chris said it was because they told him to provoke all the monsters. Maybe he didn't do everything right, but not paying him is illegal. Apparently he lost the rest of his brain after that blow. Some people said that even though he was an F-rank, he could do anything, and asked to let him show them what he was capable of. Maybe Chris knows whose words those were before this someone joined their team. It was he who said that he would be bait and provoke the monsters, but he failed even with this task. And after they saved him from death, he decided to express his gratitude with such words. If he was still not satisfied with something, let him go and inform the association. I wonder who she will believe. Jim tells Chris to get lost if he's figured it out. That's why Amanda said that it was not worth taking an F-rank hunter. Jim listened to his chatter for a whole 30 minutes. Even Amanda's brother did not prepare such a long speech for his interview with the association. Chris had no choice but to thank them for the work they had done. This is a world where raids, dungeons, and monsters appeared, and people whose abilities awakened became hunters who cleared dungeons. Based on their level of ability and achievement, they were assigned ranks. Chris was an F-rank hunter, and in a world where rank was everything, treating low-rank hunters like trash was inevitable, but he was used to it. Because even someone like him had a ray of light. Some things were easy to bear because the person he loved most, his girlfriend Jane, was next to him. Chris was very happy to see her when they met again, because it had been a long time since they last saw each other. Jane was so busy that they couldn't even go on dates. She said that being busy was better than being unemployed. The problem was that out of the two of them, she was the only one busy. That day marked exactly a year since they had been together, and Jane reminded him of it, of course. Chris could not forget about it. He had prepared some things for this day, but Jane didn't care. She said she had a meeting with someone else, so she would get straight to the point. She decided to break up with Chris. Jane was in a hurry and didn't say much more, only that she had to go. Chris tried to stop her, but Jane wasn't going to listen to him. She said that a year ago they were both F-rank, but now she's a C. Stop trying to act like a hunter when you're completely talentless. Chris needs to know his place. He's too pathetic and Jane can't stay with him anymore. She doesn't want anything to do with an F-rank hunter like him. Then she asked me not to call her anymore and left. Everyone called him talentless, F-rank trash, retarded. Chris thought that if he worked hard, he would eventually see the fruits of his labor. But no matter what he did, in the end, everyone saw him as a good-for-nothing loser. This morning his friend Sam texted him asking if he had any plans for today, because he wanted to go out for a drink with Chris. But Chris was going to meet Jane, so Sam texted him saying it was really sad to be alone, but Chris didn't care. In the evening, he sat on a bench. Sam came. Chris wrote to him that today he was meeting his girlfriend. But now he is meeting him. Apparently something went wrong. Chris already said that he had a lot on his plate today. The high-ranking hunters scolded him again, and then his girlfriend left him. So he wanted Sam to cheer him up. Chris said he just wanted to see a familiar face. He couldn't get the looks of people looking at him out of his head. That's why Sam told him to work harder. Everything is good only for those who try their best. Chris asked not to scold someone who was already extremely desperate. Sam, of course, knew that Chris had just been dumped. But sitting in front of the Han River and pouring soju down your throat was hardly a good way to perk up. Chris asked if Sam knew what it was like to be so poor that you couldn't even buy a snack. Since he really wanted to see Sam, he promised to buy him something at the convenience store. He heard that the river was very cold, so if Chris decided to drown himself, he shouldn't even think about it, Chris said. He didn't have the strength to do it anyway. However, Sam was sure that he felt worthless compared to a full-time worker at the Hunters Association, so let him relax and cry because he was a part-time F-rank hunter. Chris said, "Stop rubbing salt in the wound." Even though Sam is his friend and said it as a joke, he is right. Even though Chris has no talent, he tried to achieve something through his efforts and hard work. Perhaps his efforts were pointless, and he should just give up. Then someone called out to him. It was a strange man. He said that it seemed like Chris was only an F-rank hunter. But he could see a lot of potential just by looking at his face. Such words were rare in his world where only rank determined who was worthy of respect. Chris asked how he knew he was an F-rank. The man said it didn't matter and asked if Chris believed in past lives. He felt the energy of many incredible people inside him. These are not just past lives. Each of them has the status of the strongest. If Chris is hungry for power, he shouldn't have any problems. The man said that even now he can see his past lives nearby. Chris wondered when these fanatics had become so obsessed. If he doesn't believe him, he will soon understand everything himself. That was all he could say. Sam suddenly sat down next to Chris and asked what he was doing. He saw that some man was talking to Chris. Chris said he didn't know who it was, and in turn asked if Sam believed in past lives. He, of course, didn't. Chris learned about the existence of past lives. His 990,000 past lives began to watch over him. The 478th past life, Karsago, the Shield of Justice, watches over him. The 7,853rd life, Rodriguez, the Immortal Magician, watches over him. The 4,613th life, Romanoi, the Immortal Emperor. The 331,314th life, Serena, the Living Song. The 785th life, Hope, the Greatest Idol. The 32nd life, Izuka, the Heavenly Fighter. The 332,082nd past life, Rokati, the Daughter of the Seas. Chris asked Sam if he heard strange voices. He says that he only heard the whining of an overgrown child. Chris then asked if he had learned anything about any troops that needed porters. Then Sam realized that he was serious and really wanted to do this hard work. Chris said he needed to pay the rent, and the shelter was going through hard times. Sam knew of a C-rank unit that needed porters, but the people there weren't very friendly, so he had to be careful. Chris said he just needed them to pay. It was nice to have a friend working in the dungeon administration. Soon they came to Chris's house. Sam said, "They have arrived. Chris can come in now." Well, they had already arrived, and everything had started so well he suggested having another drink, thinking that he could handle one more. But Chris wanted to go to work as a porter the next day. Sam had already spent too much of his time on him. He was going to call him later and tell him what time it all started, so Chris should have been in touch if he was so grateful. Then he should have succeeded and treated Sam to something. Chris may only have one friend, but he is the best one, most likely. In the squad he will be called F-Retard, who cannot even take care of himself. That's how the higher-ranking hunters constantly talk to him. But he was confident that he would give it his all and do everything 100 times better than anyone else. When he entered the apartment, a blinding light suddenly appeared from somewhere. Chris saw the sky, although he could have sworn he had just walked into his own home. Behind him appeared the warrior who had been waiting for Chris, and they finally met. This warrior knew his name from somewhere. Chris asked where he had ended up. The warrior said that his name was Karsago. He was the Shield of Justice, protecting the northern part of the kingdom. He's also Chris's past life. and he's here to help him understand that everything he's been through is just the beginning. That man said that he felt the past lives of incredible people inside him, which means that what he said is not nonsense, and the person in front of him is his past self with the status of the strongest. Whether he believed it or not, now that Karsago had turned his attention to him, he would soon feel it himself. Even if his body was torn to pieces 1,000 times by Karsago's spear, he would still place his will into it. Then Chris, for some reason, doubted that he was really his past life. It was too strange. He did not understand what was happening, and asked to listen to him. Karsago said that even in the face of his death, Chris continues to evade. If he intends to drag their honor through the mud, Karsago will wash his ears in his blood. He threw a spear at Chris. He's so pathetic, making that face just from one hit. Chris asked why he was doing that. Karsago said that such pain is like an old friend for this body. It looks like Chris is being plagued by unnecessary thoughts again. Karsago thrust his spear into him again. He said there was no need to be afraid of death. Then Chris discovered that he was safe. He didn't understand how that was possible after so much suffering. It turned out that here he could not die without Karsago's permission, even if he wanted to. He thought that this meant that he would be tortured for eternity. The door has been here since Chris got here. He wanted to escape through this door. Karsago realized that Chris was running away again. It seemed that due to the lack of strength to defend himself, he did not even have the courage to face death. It seemed pathetic that he tried to run away after losing his love and honor and getting the chance to become stronger. But if he wanted to leave, Karsago would not stop him. Someone like Chris could not become his vessel. Karsago did not hide his contempt. Then Chris said that Karsago knew nothing about him. He may not have any talent or skills, but there is hope that one day, after much suffering, everything can change. But for those without strength, suffering is just suffering. No matter how bad Chris is, he will not back down. Karsago shouldn't say that about him so easily if he doesn't know what it's like to be powerless. He knows nothing about Chris and doesn't dare talk to him like that. Finally, Karsago saw the fire in his eyes. Karsago was his past life, and he had to pass on his will to him. After that, no one would be able to take anything away from Chris, and he would climb to the very top. Hope, Romanoi, Serena, Hannah, Happiness, Pantheon, Helicanius, and Therius, Huang conveyed their congratulations to him. They were ready to help Chris. However, without trials and tribulations, he could not achieve results. If he wanted to gain the strength to face his destiny, he had to raise his shield and fight Karsago. Chris still didn't fully trust him, and wasn't even sure that Karsago was his past life. He didn't care how much Chris trusted him, he just had to know that he was their reincarnation. He could only use any move once to nullify Karsago's attack. Karsago went on the attack. Chris couldn't even see his spear. Karsago told him to get up and fight. He couldn't let his mind get clouded after just 2 attacks. Chris began to lose his mind. He had been hanging on the brink of death for so long, it seemed like he would succeed for the 50th time, but the spear had already pierced him 100 times. How unfortunate. After 2,500 piercings, he still couldn't use the shield properly. For a weakling like him, one more time would be too much. Karsago was ready to kill him, but Chris was not going to give up. When he first defended himself, he felt fear. He was still not used to the disgusting feeling of being pierced. But what he got used to was the possibility of dying. Another blow flew past. Looks like he blocked it. Karsago's work was finished. Chris had done a good job. Karsago had used the basic 24 spear techniques and the ability to understand the enemy's attacks. There was no need to explain them. His body should have remembered everything after waking up from this dream. And many things should have changed. Chris's phone rang in the morning. It was Sam, asking how my hangover was and saying there was a schedule. He wasn't sure Chris would be okay and he could handle it, Sam warned him. It was a C-rank dungeon. Chris said he could handle it. He needed the money anyway. He asked if he could go there right now. Sam sent him the address, and also sent him some information. He needed to look it up before going. Chris promised not to be late. He had a strange dream in which he was continually pierced with a spear by his past life, Karsago. There were no wounds on him, but he could still feel them, to be honest. It was so real that it couldn't even be called a dream. It's a good thing the dungeon is only a 10-minute walk away. It was time to go. The shield that Chris had received when he registered as a hunter stood on the floor by the wall. It seemed like this shield hadn't always been there. Chris hadn't seen it for a long time. It seems he arrived at the dungeon first. Then Jane appeared and asked why he was there. She decided that Chris was stalking her. Jane had already found herself a boyfriend. He asked if she knew Chris. Jane said he was just very annoying and not to pay attention to him. Tom asked Chris why he brought such a heavy shield if he was going to carry mana crystals. Hasashin, the master of shadows, seeing the anger in Chris, conveyed his congratulations. An impenetrable darkness began to grow inside him. Chris apologized and said that it would be his first time being a porter. This door looked like an entrance to a dungeon. Tom ordered to line up and went first. He opened the doors. Something was wrong. It was just like in the dream when Chris was about to be pierced, although this feeling was weaker, but he clearly felt the desire to kill. Suddenly, a huge blade appeared from somewhere. It pierced Chris, but Karsago, the shield of justice, was with him. He protected him. As long as Karsago protected him, nothing could harm him. The hunters saw that the porter was hurt. There was a direct blow. They decided that most likely Chris was dead. Meanwhile, evil spirits began to attack from above. Tom ordered everyone to form up in front, as another attack could occur. It was unclear why they were attacked as soon as they entered. This does not usually happen. Skeleton Knights attacked. One of the hunters rushed to attack. They had to attack now, with everything they had. It was strange, because Skeleton Knights were only supposed to be in B-rank dungeons, and they killed half the team. Perhaps the dungeon administration had made a mistake. Jane had heard that this sometimes happened. Most likely, it was an elite dungeon. Its rank could even be higher than B. The porter was able to somehow dodge the attack, but with their strength they could not go further. Tom was right. They should give up and go back. They could be punished for this, but it was better than dying. Chris was saved by a mysterious voice, but there was no guarantee that it would happen again. The door turned out to be locked. They had no choice if it was a dungeon with a door that locked after entering. They had no choice but to clear it out. Jane was scared. Tom told her not to worry and promised to protect her. He was sure that they were able to clear this dungeon. They just had to stick together. Suddenly, Jane heard some sound. Something was wrong. A skeleton knight has appeared. He snuck up behind one of the hunters. Before anyone could notice, the skeleton attacked him. As a result, the hunter died. It looks like it was a skeleton sergeant. Jane decided that they were doomed and would all die a meaningless death here. The skeleton knights were advancing. It was dangerous, but Chris could defend himself. The skeleton's movements were simple, and he was able to calculate them. Karsago's training paid off. He just had to fight back and aim straight for the bullseye. It soon became apparent that the skeleton had weakened. We had to attack at that very moment. Chris smashed the skeleton into pieces. The skeleton knights continued to advance, but Chris was able to fight them. He rushed into the attack. It seems he succeeded. He defeated all the skeleton knights. Jane couldn't believe he was the same F-rank Chris. Everyone else died. They were the only ones who survived. Jane asked how Chris was able to defeat C-rank monsters. He said that instead of thinking about him, she should just be glad that she was alive. Jane seemed to feel sorry that she had spoken so harshly then, because he loved her and could not leave her in such a situation. Together, they had to cope. Chris promised he wouldn't leave her. It was clear that Jane was not sincere. Even in such a situation, she could only think about herself. Chris wasn't sure if this door led to the exit. He opened it. Jane needed his shield to protect herself. She wanted to use Chris to get out of here alive. Behind the door was a bridge that led across the river to another exit. Jane suggested that Chris cross the bridge first. She said that something could attack them from behind or jump out from below. So if he went ahead, she would keep an eye on him. Chris agreed because his past lives protected him. He walked across the bridge. Chris crossed over and said it was okay, Jane could come here. She thought she didn't have to worry until they got out of here. She would just stick close to Chris. He was the type who would do anything for her if he just flattered her a little. Jane was going to think about the rest when she got out of here alive. It was only when she walked across the bridge that a monster emerged from the water. But only its eye was visible for now. Jane almost crossed over to the other side. Then a huge mouth with sharp teeth opened up in front of her. A monster like a huge shark grabbed Jane by the neck. Chris wanted to save her, but it was too late. The monster jumped back into the water and ate Jane. Someone said Chris would never get out of here alive if he was so sensitive. Karsago and Sidon Miller both believed that being mentally tough was the only way. Chris is still too innocent. There will be some difficulties with this. That's great. It'll be a lot of fun to ruin it. But now Sidon has to go. Chris couldn't figure out where he was. The doors were closed. The skeleton knights have appeared again. All that was left was to fight and see who would win. Chris rushed to the attack. He covered himself with a shield. The skeleton used his sword. However, he only cut a couple of hairs from Chris's head and did not harm him in any way. Chris's collision with the skeleton resulted in an explosion. Chris was thrown back. It's unclear how it all came to this. Everyone died except him, an F-rank hunter. He doesn't see a way out. The entrance to the dungeon has suddenly closed. Now in his body is Sidon Miller, the last patron of the sword. Chris's eyes light up blue. The pitiful undead dare not point a sword at this body that is possessed by 990,000 lives. It is an unheard of audacity for the skeleton knights to attack the last patron of the sword. Chris doesn't understand what's going on. Side and Miller says they will meet again. He came out of Chris's body. He is told that he should not have gone first. Side encounters that it was a critical situation. Karsago is the only one he needs now. He has to train. He will never be able to grow if they are always helping him. The microphone is working. Hope wants their reincarnation to hear her singing. She asks if this Chris Newman has any chance at all. Better to just give in and sing. Karsago must go already, otherwise the number of past lives will increase to 1,000,000. This reincarnation must be given a chance. He has quite a strong fighting spirit, especially for a child. But Sidon disagrees with Karsago's opinion about him. These idiots ignore Hope. They can chat forever. But she doesn't care. She will solve everything peacefully with the power of music. However, Karsago noticed what she was about to do. It won't work. This time it's his turn. Chris finds himself in the very place where he first met Karsago. He didn't expect that he was already here. Chris asks what's happening to him. He is asking the wrong questions. Instead, it would be better to ask what he should do. Then Chris asks about it. Karsago says he must become stronger than anyone in this world. But he's only an F rank, even though he did get stronger after their training. So let him look carefully. Karsago seemed to cut through the sky. He says Chris will be able to stand on top. This is the core of monsters. People in his world use it as fuel. But you can do this with it too. The body of the monster is formed around the core. It looks like it's a troll and it's now standing in front of Chris. Karsago tells him to raise his shield. The fight with the troll will be his second training. Now he should try to survive. Karsago notices that he is at a disadvantage. He is one step behind. The troll attacks. Chris covers himself with a shield. The troll struck 5 times. 25, 50. Attacking with a shield requires a huge swing. It will be difficult for Chris to even hurt the troll. He is in a hopeless situation. This troll is much stronger than him, and he changes the trajectory of his attacks very quickly. If Chris doesn't kill him with one blow, then he's dead. He attacks. The troll prepares to counter the blow. However, Chris's punch hits the target. He tore off half of the troll's body. He did it. Not bad. Karsago's impressed. Chris asks why he is helping him. He says that in time he will understand everything himself. Chris regains consciousness in the dungeon. Surprisingly, even after those beatings, his body was intact and unharmed. There is a mana crystal of that skeleton lying on the ground. Chris will receive quite a large sum for it. He's already confused about what's going on, but first he needs to get out of here alive. It looks like the boss room door. Chris opens it. He notices that it is surprisingly clean inside. Then, deep in the room, eyes flash. The ceiling vault begins to crumble from the steps of a huge monster. The boss came out, his steps shaking the ground. He's right in front of Chris, not exactly giant, but taller than him. The administration definitely screwed up when it came to raiding this dungeon. Chris isn't sure he can defeat this monster. Karsago feels that he doubts. No more fear, he must never doubt his strength again. Karsago's defense is activated at full power. Chris attacks. Fighting the boss up close is useless. You need to use the skills he received from Karsago. So, you have to keep your distance so that he opens up. It turns out he has a huge attack radius. The boss deals a crushing blow to the shield. As a result, Chris is thrown back. It's not fair that this boss is so strong. Chris's mana is running low. He can only take a couple of hits. Every attack is deadly, but he manages to dodge. He manages to cut off the skeleton's hand. Since he wasn't taking damage, it wasn't beneficial for Chris to drag out the fight. This monster could at least pretend that he was in pain. The boss attacks again. Oddly enough, he becomes faster. However, if you compare his attacks to Karsago's spear, it's still bearable. Chris is about to run him through. He delivers the decisive blow. The skeleton falls. Now it's all over. It's been 3 days since the gates to the dungeon opened, and given that there's no news of a cleanup, it's safe to assume that all of the hunters in the squad have perished. If this is really the case, then the monsters may come out, so we need to prepare everything necessary to besiege the dungeon. A rapid response team is sent. As soon as they arrive, we need to tell them to go inside. Someone comes out of the gate here. Looks like someone just cleared the dungeon. This is Chris. They ask him where the other hunters are. Chris says they're all dead. He's Paul Jones from the dungeon administration, and he asks Chris to show his hunter's ID. After a while, Paul bursts into the manager's room. He asks what happened. He just recently sent a squad to clear the dungeons, and they have already returned. Paul believes that a hunter has appeared and has been able to awaken again. F-rank hunter Chris Newman is the only one to return alive from the B-rank elite dungeon. He can barely stand on his feet, and Paul claims that he has awakened for the second time. They need to conduct research to confirm this. But the manager counters that even among S-rank hunters, only a few were able to awaken for the second time. So let Paul just go back to work. He tries to object. The manager asks if he can take responsibility for his words. Instead of making useless efforts, let him just do as he is told. Rather than trust this damn manager, Paul would rather do it himself. It looks like Chris survived. He is very tired and wants to rest. Hasashin greets him again. Chris realizes that he is also one of his past lives. Hasashin says it doesn't matter. What's more important is that Chris could have died. He already knows about it. Hasashin finds this reincarnation very funny. Although he looks weak, he has no shortage of courage. Now it's clear why Karsago became interested in him. It seems that it was not in vain that he came here instead of Sidon Miller. His name is Hasashin. He chose the shortest route to meet Chris. The other lives wanted to see him first too. But when he faces the coming dangers, Hasashin will prove that he is much more useful to Chris than the others. Enough talking, it's time to start the lesson. Hasashin will aim for his heart. If Chris can avoid his attack even once, the lesson will be over. He is already very curious about how many times Chris will die. That's where they'll end up. The stronger he gets, the more vile actions he'll be caught committing. Chris joins the hunting association. He says he would like to sell these mana crystals and assess the value of his shield. Looks like he cleared a B-rank dungeon. It'll be a little over 20 million won. The employee informs that the appraisal fee is 1 million won. There is no free appraiser at the moment. Maybe Chris wants to wait. He notes to himself that 1 million won is certainly a bit expensive. You must show your hunting license. Chris is asked to sit down and wait a bit. He will be informed when everything is ready. Jane doesn't answer for a long time. Echo Guild Director Henry Lee orders to check what happened to the dungeon where Jane Harper went. The subordinate says he will send a message to the dungeon administration. He soon learns that all the hunters who entered the dungeon died, but there is one survivor. Chris is still waiting when Paul approaches him. Chris seems to remember him. He's Paul Jones, they've met before. Paul has something important to tell Chris, and suggests going somewhere else. With this, they will complete their investigation. Paul gives Chris a C-rank hunter license. He thinks Chris is much stronger, but that's all he can do. A C-rank hunter license is enough for now. Chris thanks Paul for his concern. Henry hates losing what is his most, and he asks if there is definitely a survivor. The subordinate is sure of this. Then Henry orders this hunter to be brought to him. Sam congratulates Chris on his promotion. He is quite famous in the dungeon administration. Everyone is talking about the F-rank porter, the only survivor of the elite C-rank dungeon. Chris doesn't think there's anything special about it. It turns out that there was another similar case. In general, this happens rarely and only with awakened hunters. The most famous of them is the SS-rank hunter, Hank Neal. Nowadays, when the name Asura is mentioned, people think of the country's supreme guild. However, it was founded by Hank, the only survivor from the dungeon who was recognized as an awakened hunter. He is the first and only SS-rank hunter in their country who helped the guild gain fame. It seems that the Asura guild is now called Diamond Layer. That's true. There are rumors that Hank is an extremely unpleasant person, but it seems that he is well taken care of there, since he doesn't leave the guild. Sam asks if Chris has been contacted by the dungeon administration. They were supposed to make him a special job offer. Chris says he received nothing of the sort. Their bastard manager has no manners. Usually someone like Chris always gets the message from them. He shouldn't let the administration treat him like this. After Hank survived, he was promoted straight to A rank. Chris has been through a lot already, starting with being an orphan. He suggests not mentioning it. Chris puts Sam in a taxi. He says that now everything will be fine. Chris needs to rest too. When he walks down the street, Hasashin's purple aura spreads around him. With his help, Chris noticed that some people had been following him for a long time. He tells them to stop hiding and show themselves. Chris noticed them. He doesn't seem like a normal guy. If this is Chris Newman, he should go with them. Chris asks why. They tell him that if he doesn't want it the good way, then it will be the bad way. One of them takes out a sword from the spatial storage. Chris notes that there is no need to take out a weapon. At least he's sensible. Hasashin says in it that today they made a huge mistake. It would have been better if Chris had just gone with them silently. He was attacked from behind. The hunter is sure that he wounded him, but the knife did not receive any recoil. Even though Chris is an F rank, he seems to know a few moves. He reacts quickly and is not going to give up. He is F rank, but he knows how to use aura. Chris stabs his attacker, realizing that he used his astral connection with Hasashin to sense the intentions of these people. He says he'll borrow his knife for a while. Chris is an unusual guy, but the hunter is confident that he would surpass him in a real fight. He won't give him a chance to strike back. Chris dodges. It turns out that he is fast and only hits pain points. The hunter underestimated him. Chris tells him to tell who sent him, and then he will spare his life. He won't tell, so Chris can kill him. He says he asked out of politeness. It would be a little awkward if there were any clues left. Hasashin's darkness removes all evidence around. Chris thought so, it's easy. He doesn't even remember how he got home. But since it arrived intact, that means everything is fine. He is very tired again. All he can do is rest. The next morning, Sam calls him. Chris asks if he got home okay. Sam says he found him a group. He had to come right now, and he really wanted some hot ramen after his shower. Chris goes out and catches a taxi. He gets into it, and the car starts moving. Suddenly, a flash of fire appears from somewhere and approaches the windshield. Chris jumps out of the car. There is a monster standing in the middle of the road. This is an orc sorcerer who wields fire magic, and he is not alone here. This orc brought other monsters with him. They attack people. At this rate, Chris will be late for the meeting. We need to deal with the orc leader quickly. However, other people keep coming across along the way. There is no end to these small fry. Finally, Chris attacks the orc sorcerer. He manages to defeat him. If Chris continues like this, he will definitely be late. He was noticed by a girl hunter, and somehow she realized that he was not a member of any guild. She says his abilities are too good to waste. They don't have much time, so she'll get straight to the point. The girl offers to join their guild and gives Chris her business card. Let him think about it and contact her. This is the Ace Guild. They are quite famous. People run out of the shopping center calling for help. This means that monsters appeared there too, although there is a mandatory clause that hunters are required to intervene if a gate opens. No matter how strong Chris is, fighting all those orcs face to face is too risky. There is no guarantee that he will be able to defeat them. But if he can, he'll be promoted to A rank, just like Hank Neal. There are flashes of fire everywhere in the shopping center. For some reason, there is no one in sight around. The fact that there is not a single orc here, or even a single dead person, is alarming. It looks like someone got rid of all the corpses. Here comes someone. This man, apparently a hunter, says that we need to get out of here quickly. It's too dangerous here. This sudden opening of the gate is different from what usually happens in the world. Most likely someone is involved in it. Some people appear here. They were looking for Chris. The hunter believes that these are his allies. Chris says it doesn't look like it. He asks who sent them. He doesn't need to know this. He's going to die anyway. The hunter says that this is a special squad of the Echo Guild. Since this man and Chris know them, it means they can't be left alive. Hunters attack. Chris uses aura. This brat is not that simple. You can't relax. He dodges the blows. It's clear that these guys have killed before. Chris covers himself with a shield. He blocked the shot. We need to attack him all together. Chris hits one of the attackers with his shield. Then he hits the other one with his sword. Another one hesitates to attack, seeing that Chris has taken out everyone who attacked him. Chris asks if the hunter is going to attack. Then he finally rushes into the attack. Chris stabs him with a sword. The rest decide that he is a monster. Chris's identity has been exposed, and now the guild will be unable to protect him. He notices a smoke grenade. Another one attacks, using a grenade in the hopes that he won't be seen. However, Chris sees him, and this hunter is also defeated. He does not understand how Chris managed to do this. He's just used to this kind of thing. He single-handedly dealt with the special forces. He might be an A-rank hunter. Chris says it doesn't matter. Then the hunter asks him to at least say his name. Chris introduces himself and says that it's time for him to go. The hunter asks him to wait. The dungeon clearing team should have arrived by now. Even though he looks pathetic now, he is the head of the guild department, and he will personally make sure that Chris gets an award, so let him stop by and see them sometime. He says he'll think about it. The head of the department gives his name. His name is Kim Lane. Although Chris said he would think about it, Kim insisted that he would definitely be awarded, so there was no reason to refuse. He calls Kim Lane. He says that he recognized him by his voice. Chris is right in front of the building now. Kim will come down now and meet him. After learning that Chris had not eaten yet, Kim bought him food and asks if Chris wants anything else. He says that's enough. Kim takes out a special type of spatial bag. It's strange why the Bronze Guild gives such a valuable thing to an ordinary hunter. Kim says they noticed Chris's abilities, but he carries his weapons with him. It looks like Kim has something to offer him. And Chris is smart, so Kim will get straight to the point. He asks for help from them, or rather, their guild. Chris says he's just a C-rank hunter. It's not a problem. He's already shown them what he's capable of. That's why Kim asks for help from the Lace Guild. Here Chris hears someone's voice. Someone tells him to fulfill the request. This voice is different from any Chris has heard before. He turns around but sees no one. Then he says he is ready to listen to Kim. He explains that they will soon have an unofficial war with the Echo Guild. This is a battle between special forces of both guilds. However, unlike an official war where there are judges, in an unofficial war there are none, so you can kill your opponents. Reaper advises accepting this offer. However, Chris refuses. The spatial bag is certainly good, but they will have to put their lives on the line. It seems they are completely desperate, since they are asking for help from a C-rank hunter. Then Kim asks, how about their special forces helping Chris whenever needed? They want to give such powers to a loser like him. Chris asks if Kim is sure he can be trusted. He says that the guildmaster has already given his consent. If this is indeed the case, then Chris happily accepts the offer. However, it turns out that due to the long waiting list, it will be difficult for him to get into a C-rank dungeon. So he asks if it is possible to get into a dungeon of a higher rank. The staff member explains that according to the rules, he must be an A-rank hunter or part of a professional group to enter a high-ranking dungeon. Then Chris meets with the representative of the Ace Guild. She says she was waiting for him to contact them. Chris gets straight to the point, asking if Sally has a schedule of professional group raids. She thought he wanted to join the guild, but first he must try. Their group is planning a raid on a B-rank dungeon. They are leaving tomorrow. Chris is ready to go. The next day, a car comes for him. It turns out that things are different for professional groups. Chris probably wants to join them already. Perhaps Sally is being rude. They had just arrived and Chris was already tired. Apparently, these people are members of the professional group Ace, and among them is Chester Green, an A-rank hunter who uses magic. It turns out that Sally is his sister. She says it's the guy she told him about, Chris Newman. Chester and Sally seem to get along well. Chester thinks Chris has decided to join their team, although he hasn't said a word about joining yet. Sally says he will soon. Crazy Guild. Chris is asked to come over for a minute. They heard that this was his first B-rank dungeon, and it was difficult to attack in such dungeons using normal weapons. Although they lend Chris the sword, it is better than what he used before. Chris asks why they are doing this for him. They receive the order, and now they are a team. Chris says he will try. Once everyone is ready, they will go through the final briefing. Their formation will look like this: Chris in the rear, long-range attackers and healers in front, then the first line of attackers. If anything happens, they must follow orders. Otherwise, Chester will get very angry. So Chris is Sally's personal bodyguard. Chester opens the gate to the dungeon. It's time to go. They enter the dungeon. We need to start with cleaning. Fire monsters appear. These seem to be monsters of the spiritual realm. Chester puts his skill to use. For some reason, he always uses useless magic chant. He says it looks cool. Chester took out a C-rank monster with one hit. Looks like they angered those monsters. Then they should get together too. They attack monsters together. Now it's Chester's turn to attack alone again. This is what a professional band is. It's incredible. Chris didn't think they were that good. It's a small dungeon. Everything will be fine if they just move forward. So that's their tactic. That's cool. This dungeon is definitely small, but defeating the boss will be much more difficult. But it doesn't matter, because they can handle it. It's surprisingly quiet here. Care must be taken. Here something attacks one of the hunters. These are disembodied monsters. Chester orders everyone to line up. There are 12 monsters here. Even though they are B rank, there are too many of them. We need to hold on a little longer. Chester attacks. Thanks to him, the number of monsters decreased. It seems the other hunters are tired, and that's not surprising. Without Chris, they would have a hard time. Danzig would take him to strengthen his resolve. Chris charges in. He must not destroy the formation, but there is no time to think about it now. Chester will help him. As expected, his skills are those of an A-rank hunter. Chris asks you to cover him. He will take care of the remaining monsters. It seems like it's all over, but there's still a boss ahead. Something is coming. Chris takes cover from the blow. He blocked it. It looks like it's an aura shield. It will be difficult to continue using your left hand. Danzig's essence is strengthened. Physical capabilities and recovery are greatly increased. Chris feels a certain power. He can't miss this chance. Chester asks Sally how much longer she can cover for Chris. Sally says 5 minutes max. That's enough. This monster is too strong. We'll have to stop mining its mana crystals and strike at the core. Chris found it. Chester notes that his power is similar to that of an awakened hunter. Finally, it's all over. There are wounded. Chester will call the healer. Chris will most likely be forced to join the guild, so it's better for him to leave now. He says he'll go first since he's no longer needed here. Chester would like to say they'll see each other again. Chris asks to make sure he gets paid. He received 50 million won, which was much more than he expected. He is overcome by great fatigue again. Now that he has fallen asleep, the sword's final patron awaits him. This weapon looks good. Chris must take the sword. He is magnificent, and he has a keen eye for a beginner. He is one of his past lives, Sidon Miller, the patron of the sword. Chris notices that he looks familiar. Sidon asks if he can use the sword's aura. He remembers when he was in his body. Sidon says Chris should remember this feeling. He sees that the patron of the sword seemed to use the aura of the shield. Karsago trained him better than Sidon expected. This sword doesn't feel like a shield. This aura will be harder for Chris to control. It seems there is nothing to be done. Sidon will help him a little. He must remember the flow of his magic. Chris shouldn't resist. We should accept him. This is a magical resonance. In reality, he would have already died. The aura was completely different, but Chris didn't care. He asked to do it again. Sidon agrees to repeat. Now he realized that the other past lives were right. Chris really is good. And it seems that in the future, He will even be able to become a master of using the sword's aura. Now Sidon will show him what he is capable of. It moves at lightning speed. At the end, he brings the blade of the sword closer to Chris. Maybe he can do it again. If Chris could handle Karsago's training, he'll be able to handle this one even more. Chris says he'll try. The result was really good. He turned out to be more capable than Sidon expected. On this note, they will end their first training session. Chris asks if they can meet again. Sidon says they can if he's ready. Maybe this time everything will work out. This swordplay needs to be remembered once again. Chris takes the sword out of the spatial storage. The unofficial guild war is coming soon. He needs to continue training. That's the only way he can become even stronger. The day of the unofficial war is coming. Chris asks what their powers are. Including Kim, they have 2 B rank and 4 C rank hunters. Based on the scouts' reports, their fighters don't stand a chance against the Echo Guild. As Kim said earlier, they can't do it without their help. They are in a difficult situation, and all they can do is trust Chris completely. He would like to borrow some change of clothes. He just came from training. It feels like they were ambushed. It all looks like some kind of performance. Chris is not very happy about it. Once they enter this place, an unofficial war will begin. Then maybe Chris should test his strength. First, he must get rid of those who are waiting in ambush. Chris takes out Salinas Miller's weapon. He dealt with 2 enemies at once with 1 blow. It looks like he will save their guild. The Echo Guild members see that they have taken a mercenary, but they think that it will not help them. Kim tells him to help Chris. It looks like guild leader Echo is joining the fight as well. Once they get rid of the commander, the rest will be easy. Chris will fight at full strength. He engages in battle with the guild commander Echo. As he thought, a mercenary who used aura at this level was different from ordinary soldiers. He pushes the commander aside. Without this bastard, the Lays Guild is nothing. We must continue to fight and kill them all. One of the Echo Guild members throws fire at Chris. He manages to hide behind a shield. Guild Commander Echo attacks again. He wants Chris to give up. The members of the Lays Guild had already been dealt with. The outcome of the battle was predetermined. They did not have a single chance against the fighters of the Echo Guild. If Chris surrenders, the commander will spare his life. He's right, Chris is tired of all this. He was tired of running away all the time. The commander gave him a chance, and this is what he does. We need to kill him. The Echo Guild members are ready to attack Chris. They throw fire at him and there is an explosion. However, Chris remained in the same place, and it does not appear that the fire has harmed him much. He rushes into the attack again. However, he soon finds that his mana is running low. Chris calls out to Karsago, Hasashin, and Sidon Miller. The Echo Guild members think he's gone crazy, but that's not surprising since all of his comrades have fallen. For some reason, no one answers. No one will help him. This place was chosen for a reason. Chris calls for help from anyone. His bloodlust awakened Reaper, and Chris's killing intent was revealed. His cries are heard even in hell. Reaper calls on him to raise his sword. Kill them all and let the blood-soaked killer hear their parting cry. It seems Chris's mana has been restored. It will be enough to continue fighting. The sweet smell of blood excites Reaper. The awakened instinct makes Chris a killer thirsty for blood. Reaper will show him their weak points. Chris must exterminate them. The weak spots must be the ones that glow red. Either way, this battle will be easy. Chris attacks again. There were only 2 left, and with Reaper's strength he would make short work of them. Guild leader Echo can't believe Chris killed all his men. He tells the survivors to hurry and attack Chris. Of course they are strong, but he can see their weaknesses. Chris stabs one of the attackers with his sword. He wants to break it into pieces. It was hardly worth grabbing the aura sword with bare hands. Meanwhile, the guild commander Echo rushes into the attack. Chris hits him with his shield. The commander crashes into a tree. It's incredible, he was taken out with 1 blow. Of course, Chris is an A-rank hunter, otherwise he wouldn't have been able to defeat him so easily. The last member of the Echo Guild squad realizes that he must leave if he does not want to die. So he decided to run away and leave his guild. Reaper sees that one of them is still alive. He wants Chris to kill them all. In an unofficial war between guilds, the battle lasts until one side is destroyed. Reaper tells Chris to kill everyone. But Chris sees that this hunter has already lost the will to fight, and there is no point in killing him. But Reaper wants Chris to kill him, to cut his throat. And this isn't the first time Chris has done this, so there's no point in pretending to be innocent. He didn't want to do it from the beginning, so the war is over. Kim asks if Echo's guild had a chance of winning. Chris says there were, but he took them away. At least 6 people from the Lays Guild remained alive. Chris smashed them all. Kim, of course, had his guesses, but he couldn't even imagine that he was so strong. There is no need to regret that he killed them, because there are people who are alive thanks to him. Now that the guild war is over, Kim asked to transfer the payment to Chris so he can check. Chris decides he will never do something so dangerous again, Then he sees that he has received 150 million. Henry Lee is soon informed that Manager Stone cannot be reached. Henry asks if there is a connection with just him or with someone else. It is impossible to contact any of them. They may not have sent the best people, but they couldn't all have disappeared. Henry orders that he immediately get the name of the mercenary hired by the Lays Guild. If the subordinates do not want to disappoint their patron, they need to take good care of this mercenary. From one guild war, Chris received 150 million. True, he had to risk his life to get this amount. However, if it is for an orphanage, then Chris is capable of even more for them. He comes to the shelter. The children should like his gift. He enters the director's office and says that he came to visit her. However, instead of the director, he meets his old friend, Lisa Chain. She says that the director has not been feeling well lately, so Lisa is helping her. She must be getting worse again, Lisa says. At least she's not getting any younger. Then the director, an elderly woman, comes in and says that she is very healthy. Lisa should work as a support hunter. The director is back to his old ways. At her age, she should take care of her own health, not the health of the young, with which there are no problems yet. The director says not to teach her how to live. She asks if Chris is okay. He says everything is fine. She better take care of herself. Chris asks how Lisa is doing. She is an A-rank hunter and seems like she should be busy raiding. Lisa says it's okay. She's doing what she likes. Chris understands that helping at the shelter and going on raids must be very difficult. He hopes Lisa isn't overworking herself. The director grumbles again. There is no need to bring anything. There is no need for so much stuff. Chris says he just brought gifts for the kids, snacks and stuff. He's gone overboard again. All of this, of course, costs more than Chris can afford. He assures that everything is fine. The director and Lisa are surprised at how much money he used to buy all this. Chris says he was promoted to C rank and given a generous payment. The director is very proud of him. She remembers him as a child. Lisa hopes he's not doing anything dangerous. Chris says that they don't have to worry. He doesn't do anything like that. They don't need to know what's really going on. Now he wants to give gifts to the children. Chris was once such a baby, and now he is a real man. When he lived at the orphanage, they held a party to celebrate him getting an F rank, although it was hardly considered a big deal. They say that as you get older, you start to poke your nose into other people's business. And perhaps it's true. The director wants to know more about Chris. Lisa asks if he is sure that everything is okay. He says that he is sure, and there is no need to worry about the shelter's debts. He will take care of it. Here the children come running. Not long ago, Chris was one of them, and now he wants to make their lives at least a little better. Of course, they were waiting for Chris, and they want to get the gifts faster. Chris jokingly says that they seem to be more excited about the toys than about him. The children insist that this is not true. They are very happy to see him and love him very much. The director calls them to eat the pizza that Chris brought. The kids don't keep you waiting. Chris jokes that he lost to pizza. He admits his defeat, and now he and Lisa can go eat with the children. They thank Chris for the food. It's very tasty. The children are afraid that they won't get everything. Chris reassures them that he can buy more if they don't have enough. Suddenly he hears Hasashin's voice, warning him that someone is following him. A fire breaks out outside the window. Chris shouts for everyone to hide under the table right now. He manages to get his shield. There is an explosion. This is a B-rank shield. The situation is not the best. Chris rises to his feet. Karsago's righteous shield protects him. Sidon Miller's brave blade became one with him. Lisa is ready to help him. Chris tells her to help the kids and the principal. She is of course a high-ranking hunter, but she also has very good healing skills. Chris is the only one who can protect everyone. He uses an aura, which means everything written in the report is true, and he is at least B rank. At first, Nick thought the intelligence corps had gone crazy, but it looks like he was wrong. Those bastards sent 20 men to capture a C-rank hunter. Even though Nick doesn't know how strong Chris is, he's picked the wrong opponent anyway. Their boss wants his head. Chris says to stop talking nonsense and attacking. He will fight them all. A worthless person like him doesn't understand who he's dealing with. One of them uses acceleration, the other one uses fireball. The third one uses dissection. Chris must stand firm to protect the children, the principal and Lisa. He activates the power of the sword. A blinding flash hits the floor and creates an explosion. One of the attackers was defeated. The rest are confused. Then Nick tells them to aim at the woman and the children. He meant Lisa. Chris is afraid that he won't be able to save them in time. However, he manages to deflect the blow. Now he won't be able to use his shield. This is their chance. They need to attack again. But now Chris uses swordsmanship. He killed several people. There are 11 left and Chris doesn't think he can beat them. He calls Reaper. The bloodthirsty entity was awakened. Some of the lust for murder was released. The attackers are entangled in black and red tentacles. Chris is exhausted. We need to finish him off. They are attacking. Things are bad. Chris falls. Lisa rushes towards him. He can't die. She's trying to heal him. However, for some reason her healing magic doesn't work. Chris feels weak. This is bad. He must fight and protect those dear to him. He must not do anything he will regret. He will be given strength. Another past life speaks to him. Chris opens the doors. The smell of blood hits your nose. Someone is sitting on a mountain of corpses. Chris is just in time. His name is Danzig. He couldn't protect everyone and ended up losing everything. He doesn't want Chris to suffer the same fate. If he can endure the pain that Danzig experienced, it will give him the strength to protect those he cares about. Chris says he doesn't care what it is. He can handle it. The main thing is that he can save them all. Then Danzig will show him its past. Chris must endure the hell he went through. After passing through the passage between dimensions, Chris finds himself in a field of flowers. He finds that he cannot speak. Danzig's voice explains that in this place Chris can only observe. Apparently it is Danzig. His daughter runs up to him. She ran with all her might to see him. Danzig pats her on the head. The girl says he will ruin her hair. Danzig's wife appears. Irina said that she doesn't like it when her dad ruins her hair. Danzig asks why Anna is always on her side. She says, probably because she is her mother. Chris realizes that this is the Danzig family. They must be safe, as must the children from the orphanage, the director and Lisa. Danzig's subordinate appears and addresses him. Danzig asks what happened. They are preparing to invade, and it looks like their target is their kingdom. From this moment on, hell begins. Soon, Danzig discovers his wife and daughter murdered. He wishes it was just a dream. Chris is afraid that he won't be able to protect the shelter. You need to pull yourself together. Danzig will never forgive these bastards. The one who hit him says that he won't succeed. Danzig asks what he did to deserve all this, why this is happening. It was an order. Don't give it much importance. Danzig says he will kill him no matter what it costs him. The warrior will wait with impatience. He hit Danzig again. Now Chris must understand that Danzig's power has been transferred to him. The hatred he feels right now will make him stronger. Now Chris must go and show their strength. A pillar of light hits the floor. This looks like high-level magic. Somehow, Chris remained intact. He is surrounded by light. Incredible strength emanates from him. He became different. Danzig's determination, as someone who has lost everything, will not allow him to give up as long as Chris has someone to protect. The Sword of Courage, righteous Sidon Miller, protects his sword from breaking. Chris should be dead. He's a monster. The bloodthirsty essence of Reaper has awakened. Some of the thirst for murder has been released. If they want Chris to be a monster, then so be it. Let them not even think that they will survive. For a corpse, he talks too much. It's time to finally kill him. They activate the thunder. Now only ashes will remind us of Chris. However, he is still alive. He endured high-level magic with such a weak body. He is much stronger than intelligence reported. Chris attacks. Nick orders the magicians to kill him quickly. Chris attacks him. They collide in a blow. Nick begins to overpower Chris. He falls. Chris has to protect them. This can't break him. He attacks again. Nick wonders where he gets such power from. Chris stabs him. It's unlikely that their patron will leave him alone just because he killed them. Chris says they picked the wrong opponent. There are still 2 left. They surrender and beg for mercy. But if Chris spares them, it doesn't change the fact that they tried to kill him. He kills them. It's all over. Chris opens his eyes. Looks like he's in hospital. Next to him are Lisa and Kim Lane. Kim apologizes for not getting there in time. Chris saved his guild after all. He asks Lisa to bring him some water. Kim will leave guards here. Most of the Lace Guild is currently guarding this hospital, so Chris won't be attacked. He asks to tell about everything that happened while he was unconscious. First, the police questioned Lisa. She testified about the attack by hunters, but unfortunately, no evidence was found. It was difficult to keep them safe because they were busy protecting his family from the shelter. Chris asks how the principal and the children are now. Kim says they're in the guild office. Somehow, the Echo Guild got information about Chris. It seems there is a rat among the members of the Lace Guild. Chris wants someone to protect his family. Kim says he will assign security to them. Chris will also join the war with the Echo Guild. Kim promises to provide him and the shelter with everything they need. Chris has no doubt that they will do it. He asks if they can spot the rat. Of course, they will find her and teach her a good lesson. Chris trusts them, and now he wants to rest and asks Kim to leave. In the corridor, he is informed that the spy has been found. Kim orders that he be brought to him. He arrives at the warehouse. The spy is inside. They locked him in. Kim enters. The spy says he made a mistake and asks to forgive him just this once. Kim asks why he did it if he is so afraid of death. Since no one will help him, they will enjoy it together, slowly and surely. Meanwhile, Chris finds himself in the room of his past life. He and Hasashin hadn't seen each other for a long time, and it seemed Chris hadn't been sitting idle. He says he needs Hasashin's power. Perhaps he should teach Chris the technique of camouflage, just as he did the technique of killing. He will teach him a technique that will allow him to hide both his body and his presence in pitch darkness. Chris can't believe that this is possible. Even some S-rank hunters aren't capable of this. There is no need to compare Hasashin with these scum. After all, he is special. He'll get straight to the point. The technique he wants to teach Chris is based on magic. In simple terms, it's the same as hiding behind a curtain. This ability consumes a lot of mana, like any other high-ranking technique. Now Chris will find himself in complete darkness. In order to hide himself, he must become one with the darkness. This is a prerequisite if he wants to learn this technique. However, being in complete darkness could cause him to lose his mind. Hasashin asks if Chris is sure he wants to learn. He says that he has already decided. We can start. Hasashin wishes him luck. Chris sees absolutely nothing. If you stay in pitch darkness for too long, you can go crazy. Chris doesn't know how much time has passed or when it will end. It feels like his soul is leaving him. He is losing his mind. Chris asks to be let out and doesn't understand why he is here. He can't wait to get out of here. Hasashin probably wants him to go crazy. This must be the end. Chris is a weakling. He is weaker than a piece of paper. He must give up his soul. Even though he needs strength to protect his family, he is weaker than a baby. That's what he's all about. This is not true. Stop playing with him. Chris looked too helpless, so Hasashin decided to help him. He apologizes if Chris was hurt and he congratulates him. He learned one of Hasashin's hidden techniques that will make others tremble in fear. Although his control over darkness is not perfect, almost no one in this world can defeat him. Chris wakes up. Not even a day had passed, but it seemed as if he had been there for a whole year. Kim comes to Chris, and he asks what brought him here. Kim says they took care of the spy. So fast, not even a day passed. Chris asks what the Echo Guild is doing at the moment. Kim says they are preparing for a second attack. We need to urgently call together the hunters of the Lays Guild. Chris has no intention of sitting idle. He wants to attack the Echo Guild headquarters. Kim says that even for him, attacking the headquarters is crazy. Chris just wants to take care of their soldiers. If it were yesterday, he wouldn't be able to handle it. But today is a different day. He asks to take care of his family. After some time, Chris comes to the Echo Guild office. The merciless darkness of Hasashin is now with him. While he is one with this darkness, he is hidden in the shadows. As long as this darkness is with Chris, he is like a ghost. Today is the last day of the Echo Guild. One of the security guards in the office notices that the sky is very dark. It looks ominous. The other says, "Stop thinking about nonsense. Let him concentrate on security." The first guard thinks he heard something. The second says the magical barrier is not there for show. It's always talking nonsense. If someone had broken in, the alarm system would have gone off. But the guard didn't have time to finish speaking. Another finds himself killed and asks who is there. He doesn't see anything, but they attacked from somewhere. Chris attacks him too. So this is what it's like to hide your body behind a curtain of darkness. This means that even with the slightest shadow, he can hide his presence. This is magic. Everything should go better than he expected. Kim said that the night guards around the perimeter of the building are part of their special powers. If so, then Chris can kill them without hesitation, because they dared to attack his family. Chris finds other guards. They talk about a mercenary from the Lace Guild who killed all the Special Forces hunters. Most likely they were just weaklings. If Chris is going to take them all down, he needs to put himself in a winning position. Hasashin's training makes it much more advantageous for him to fight in the dark. He finds an electrical panel. From now on, it's his show. The power is out. One of the guards thinks it might be an intruder. The other says no one would dare to invade the Great Echo Guild. However, he is uneasy and will go and take a look. Here, Chris attacks him. Then another one. They definitely said that the office was on the 4th floor. Chris will kill them all. Meanwhile, Henry Lee sits in his office with the guild members and the manager. Fixing the electricity will take longer. Henry asks how long it will take. They need to at least turn on the backup generator. The manager will try again to contact the person who came down to fix the electricity. In any case, it's strange. The lights are on in the neighboring buildings, and it's also suspiciously quiet on the lower floors. Henry tells everyone to arm themselves and line up. They might be attacked. That's exactly what happens at that very moment. It's clear that the attacker is using a stealth technique. Henry tells them to turn on the lights if they don't want more people to die. One of the hunters lights the light using a magic skill. Now it is clear that several more people have been killed. Henry orders a report on the situation. 2 C-rank hunters were incapacitated, and due to the cloaking technique, they are unable to determine the location of the intruder. Henry didn't even notice that someone had invaded them. But it was unclear why someone with such skills would be here. It didn't make sense. Apparently, this noisy man is the head of the Special Forces. Because of the light magic, Chris cannot see him. If so, he would first take care of the annoying hunter mage. He attacks the mages they must stand behind. Henry orders the light drones to be launched. We can't leave him room to hide. We have to turn on the light. However, it is useless. There are 3 left. Henry asks why he is doing this. He seems to be an A-rank hunter. Henry tells them to shut up and concentrate or they will all die. This is a monster, most likely S-rank. Only Henry remained. He says to stop hiding and show yourself. Henry tries to defend himself. So he really thought he could hurt Chris's family and survive. He tried to take away the most precious thing from him, so let him be ready to experience the same. Chris asks if he has anything to say before heading off to join his comrades. Now Henry realizes it was Chris. It is expected that he knows it. After all, it was he who killed Jane. Henry could not forget the one who was in the same dungeon as her, and the only one who remained alive. Chris didn't kill Jane. However, on the day she broke up with him, it was Henry who was in the car with her. Chris's feelings for her have long since passed, and he asks why Henry attacked the orphanage. Jane was a C rank. There's no way someone like Chris was the only survivor. Henry has no idea where he got his S rank skill from, but even with it, he'll finish Chris off. He says he's here to avenge his family, which means he killed so many people just because of some shelter. Henry prepares to attack. It was most likely because of Chris that the orphanage was attacked, and the unofficial guild war was the catalyst. The righteous shield of Karsago protects him. As long as Chris is under his protection, nothing can harm him. With him is the sword of courage of Sidon Miller. As long as his courage is unwavering, the sword will not break. The sweet aroma excites Reaper. The awakened instincts turned Chris into a killer specializing in carnage. While Chris is their target, his inaction puts his family at risk. If so, he has no choice but to kill the bastard in front of him. Chris uses aura, but he was only recently promoted to C rank. Jane was the same. She kept talking about these ranks. That was enough for him. Right now, Henry was fighting a C rank hunter whom he looked down on like a small bug. Henry has already realized that Chris is not so simple, but he underestimates him. Henry activates Flame Fever. Let Chris watch carefully. This is an A-rank hunter skill. Chris says it's a pathetic sight. Even though Henry is an A-rank hunter, he will dispel his ability in one fell swoop. It's impossible. It was a fatal blow. Since Chris had been on the brink of life and death about 100,000 times in his past lives, this was still bearable. Since this guy is so shocked, it has been much longer than he thought. He should hurry up and finish him off. I would like to play with him longer, but time is running out. Besides, Chris has a lot of grudges against Henry. He strikes. Henry falls to his knees. Chris should know who their guild's sponsor is. However, he doesn't care. So they have a sponsor. If Chris continues, his family will be in danger. Henry says they will definitely find him, and he will get what he deserves. So he must become stronger. Since his past lives have shared their power with him, now it is his turn. Reaper will show him where it is. Let him hurry and bring what is rightfully his. Chris asks where he should look. Reaper is all impatient. He wants to take a look at what is rightfully his. Perhaps this light comes from what he is looking for. Maybe he helped Chris deal with the Echo Guild just for that reason. He pulls out the drawer and finds a box. It contains a dagger and a necklace. First, you need to get out of here using Hasashin's power. He sets about his plan. The shadow will wipe all traces from the face of the earth. A fire starts in the building. Since the building can be assumed to no longer exist, there will be no evidence that Chris did it. His family will be safe for a while. A special police squad arrives at the scene. They will ask the witnesses some questions that will help them in their investigation. The senior officer asks the woman to tell them everything she saw. The woman says that she suddenly heard a loud explosion and went outside to see what was going on. And then she saw that the explosion happened in that company. The officer asks if she noticed anything else unusual. The woman says she is not sure. She did not notice anything else. Here the officer is informed that there was absolutely no one inside the building, not even any bodies left. There was an explosion, and there was no one in the building. Not even bodies, no doubt. This is too suspicious. The officer says he was told that, fortunately, there was no one in the building, and asks for caution. As Chris suspected, there were no clues left, so he could relax. But if he went straight ahead, his burnt clothes might raise suspicions. Chris calls Kim. He says that the news reported that there was a huge fire in the Echo Guild. Chris offers to tell him about all the details later. He asks him to come to the place that he recently mentioned. Suddenly something happens to his body. It seemed like something serious had happened, since Alex came to him right away. The Echo Guild was destroyed. They were attacked, and they lost all their soldiers due to the fire. They had been putting a lot of money into their guild, and John had been told that their number of soldiers had increased. Things had not been going well for them lately, but they had been deliberately hiding it. It was as if John's money wasn't enough for them. And yet they were the ones who said that their last battle was against the Lace Guild. That's true. The only problem is that this guild didn't have enough strength to defeat the Echo Guild. but the mercenary that was on their side changed the entire outcome of the battle. Perhaps this is his doing. Considering that he is strong enough to defeat Henry Lee, the question is whether it will be a problem for him to defeat the Echo Guild itself. John believes that the Osung Company is definitely involved. Apart from them, there are no other possible sponsors capable of doing this. John tells me to contact the Silver Rank Guild and tell them to deal with the Lace Guild and that damn mercenary. Meanwhile, Chris finds himself in another room from his past life. It must be Reaper. He asks if Chris brought all his things safely. Chris doesn't even know how long he's been holding something in his hands. Apparently, Reaper is talking about this. There was only a necklace in the box, although Chris was sure there was a dagger there too. This necklace is the last thing the woman Reaper once loved had. Here, her voice says that they haven't seen each other for so long, and he cries like a child. She had dreamed for so long of finding Reaper, her one and only. Her name is forgotten, her body is rotted, but her soul still found him. She was able to find his reincarnation, and will definitely repay Chris for giving her this moment. They express their gratitude for relieving Reaper of excruciating pain, and sympathy for Chris's past lives has increased. Chris is in the hospital again. There are tears in his eyes, perhaps due to his growing sympathy for Reaper. When Chris enters the room of a past life, he receives its power. As he moves through the rooms, he gains the ability to increase his sympathy for his past lives. As coordination is adjusted, strength increases. Even the emotions they experience can reach him. You need to stop crying before anyone notices. The box Chris gave to Reaper is on the nightstand. There is no necklace. Perhaps the dagger is a gift from Reaper. It would be great if the Echo Guild executive director kept it separate. You need to go to an appraiser. Kim enters the room and asks if Chris is feeling better. His family was relaxing in the office of the Lace Guild. Kim thought he would be interested in it. Chris thanks him for his help and asks what happened to the Echo Guild. Kim says it was a hard blow, and they say people started leaving her even though it was only a day. The police launched an investigation, but no evidence was found. Chris asks to let him know if anything becomes clear. And he would also like to find a home for himself and his family. A safe place. Otherwise, he is worried. Kim promises to talk to the Lace Guild. Chris asks if there is any unofficial information about the Echo Guild. Kim told everything he knew. Chris was told that someone was behind the attack on the Echo Guild office. Sure, someone was standing, but it wasn't the end. The guild had suffered a heavy blow, which would undoubtedly be followed by revenge, but Kim would do everything possible to track their movements. Chris comes to the appraiser. He would like him to appreciate this thing. The appraiser takes the dagger. This is a very unusual thing, he is surprised. This is a sealed weapon, literally. Some important abilities are sealed. The appraiser had only heard of a sealed weapon once, but this was the first time he had seen one. Chris asks for more details. Sealed weapons come in different types, and it is assumed that the true power of the dagger will be released step by step when certain conditions are met. Chris asks if this means the weapon is not activated now. Not really. Even now there are options to absorb power and improve the user's physical condition. Chris heard that absorbing power increases efficiency. This dagger would make a very good weapon. According to the information, his name is Butcher. The appraiser doesn't know how much it takes to remove the seal from him. It's unknown if Chris will be able to do it at all. If the last seal is removed, then he will be able to receive a minimum S-level appraisal. It feels like he is considered a failure again. There is also a recovery function. If Chris shouts the word recovery, the dagger will return to the user who shouted the spell. The evaluation is finished. Chris can look at the result. The dagger is valued at 1,000,001. Perhaps the other weapons need to be valued, although they are unlikely to be better than this dagger. The appraiser offers to arrange an installment plan. Chris gives him a map. If the seals are not removed, the dagger is at least S rank, as expected from the past life. Perhaps they will use Chris to settle old scores. His phone rings. This is Kim. He reports that he has found a suitable house. Today he wanted to come and look at it. Chris could join, he agreed. Then Kim would send a car for him. Soon Chris arrives at the house. He is met in the lobby, and the broker asks him how he likes the house. In front of the broker, you have to try to look as disinterested as possible, Chris says. Not bad. And asks when we can move in. The broker says, it's a new house, but now it will be difficult because it's not ready yet. Maybe Chris could have given a little more. He says he doesn't care how much the house costs, he just wants it ready as soon as possible. And the broker assures Chris that he can move in within a week. As expected, money solves everything. He is grateful to his past lives. Hope knew that this reincarnation would definitely be able to win. Her face was shining as if money was light. It would be great to pump up even more muscle with that money. His biceps are amazing. Strongman asks Carsago and Hope for their opinion. Carsago is disappointed. They will be allowed only in case of force majeure. From now on, Chris's training is prohibited for them. They made him look like a fool for a couple of bucks, and with this approach, their plans will go to hell. Chris meets a child from an orphanage. He asks if everything is okay. The child says that the hunter uncles bought him sweets. Lisa appears and asks where Chris has been. He would like to discuss something with her. He came from the house where their family would live. Lisa says he can't just buy a house just because he wants to buy one now. Chris had a good income while he was a mercenary in the Lace Guild, and the most important thing he wants to spend this money on is protecting his family. Lisa is grateful to him with all her heart. She thinks that the children will really like this house. However, she is worried. She feels like Chris got involved in something very dangerous. Maybe that's why he overdid it with the house. Chris says he's fine. He was thinking about hiring a bodyguard and installing a drone security system in the new house. The Lace Guild said they'll send a hunter, so it'll be fine. Chris just wants to be happy with his family. It's very awkward to say this, but he has to go. He only came in to say that he signed the contract for the house. Lisa asks him not to leave. She wanted him to stay the night with them. She just feels relieved when Chris is here. He says he will stay here today. Then Lisa suggests eating ramen together. Chris says that he is very tired today and will go to bed first. Lisa knows that he wants to take care of all the shelters because this was the only place that took him in without a family. That's why he does so much for them. But she doesn't want Chris to lose himself with all that blood on his hands. He had never seen Lisa like this before. For some reason, he's talking to himself now, or maybe he just needed to eat ramen. The sergeant's wicked laugh warns of danger. Someone is aiming for Chris's heart. He dodges the blow. This blade appeared here in the blink of an eye. It's a good thing his room is closest to the exit. There are only 3 people. If they are not eliminated quickly, the family will be in danger. One of these people is a mercenary. The other is a magician. The speed of the spell is high. Chris will not have time to pull out the sword. First, he will push it with the shield. The blade flies at Chris again. He dodges and strikes with his shield. The attacker crashes into the wall. It's unclear where Chris gets such strength from. He attacks. Chris is sure that there were 3 people. He feels the spirit of death that has enveloped what is most dear to him. The spirit of the one who could not protect what is dear to him. The third person wants to kill Lisa. He's about to stab her with a knife. Then Chris's power awakens. A blade appears and blocks the blow of the blade with which the attacker wanted to hit Lisa. Chris attacks. Seton Miller's brave sword is with him. The sword will not break until his righteous courage is broken. Luckily, Lisa was not hurt. They didn't even wake up from such noise. They could have been fed something. Besides, it is unclear what the people from the Lace Guild are doing. We need to contact Kim. Chris calls him. The answering machine says that the subscriber is temporarily unavailable. If he doesn't answer the phone, you can contact the special police department. Kim writes to Chris that an attempt was made on someone from the Lace Guild and asks him to hurry to the guild. Before the police special forces arrive, Chris will secure this place. He comes to the Lace Guild building. Kim says that the guild leader has died. If even Chris, who was not a member of the guild, was confused, then most likely Kim, who had always loved her, would be completely heartbroken. Chris doesn't even know what he should say. Although this may come as a surprise, Kim would like Chris to listen carefully to what he is about to tell him. He had already thought about the person who would become the next guild leader. Kim asks if Chris remembers the day of the unofficial guild war. Watching him risk his life for the guild, Kim thought that not only was he a strong man, he would never abuse his trust. All the guild members agreed with this statement, so Kim asks Chris to become the leader of their guild. The Black Mafia, the leader of the criminal organization, is interested in this proposal and recommends accepting it. Chris says he's an outsider. However, if he became the guild leader, he would be able to receive help from the hunters under his command, and even better, ensure the safety of his family. Perhaps he really wouldn't have any problems. Kim says they have no other candidates for the position. The other leaders have passed away. Now he is the main decision-maker in the guild, and he wants to put Chris in charge. He accepts his offer. Chris asks to first prepare all the documents concerning the guild. Black Mafia, the leader of the criminal organization, is satisfied, possessing a ruthless grip. He sees through the falsehood of the guild. The financial situation is quite good. This is the only pride of the guild. However, the number of permanent members is small, and the size of the executive body does not seem large. Kim says that this guild was originally founded by the previous leader in order to gain all the benefits of the magic crystals, so the hunting corps was created not long ago. The calculation coefficient that the leaders adhere to increases depending on the level of the guild. Every time its members attack a dungeon and sell magic stones, they receive an additional tax. The risk of being absorbed by another guild must also be taken into account. We need to change the political course. Now Lace is moving to an aggressive strategy. Judging by this raid, Chris thinks that the people behind the Echo Guild are furious. They immediately sent assassins. There is no guarantee that what happened today will never happen again. Kim completely agrees. And there is something that needs to be done first. They need to absorb Echo. Chris can no longer sit back and just watch in silence. Kim is not sure if this is possible. Chris thinks it can be done through an unofficial guild war. According to the rules, 9 representatives from each guild compete against each other one-on-one, and if one of the competitors wins or does not announce a replacement for another participant during the battle, then he can continue to fight with the next enemies on the battlefield. He will win only when he defeats all his opponents. That's right, they and Kim will beat all 9. If Kim defeats at least 2, then Chris will deal with the remaining 7 himself. And before the guild battle begins, we need to discuss the composition of the Echo Guild. First, Chris will mention that he is C rank. He may want the Echo Guild to take the upcoming battle lightly, but there is no reason to declare a guild war. Chris asks if he thinks the Echo Guild's attack was successful this time. Kim says their leader was killed and their hunter corps was heavily damaged. This may be a success for the Echo Guild, but only half a success. However, Chris called the special police department before they destroyed the evidence. Kim seems to understand what Chris is talking about. He suggests filing a lawsuit based on this evidence first. Among the corpses recovered by the special police department, there must be at least one belonging to a member of the executive body of the Echo Guild. It would be reasonable to file a claim for damages for a tidy sum. Perhaps due to the huge compensation, Echo will never accept their conditions. In that case, they will declare a guild war under the condition of absorption and merger. There is justification and obvious evidence, so the main bureau will also allow the guild war. Kim asks when it would be appropriate to start taking action. Chris says immediately. The shelter will soon move to a new home. Kim bought some gifts on the way here. The children are amazed at how many of them there are. Kim asks where Chris is. The boy says he's in his room. Kim reports that the Echo Guild has refused to pay compensation for the damage caused. This is a predictable result because they asked for an incredibly huge amount. Now they must proceed further according to their plan. This is simply unthinkable. And what's more, it has reached the special police department. Guildmaster Echo's manager repairs a broken mug. He says there is one more piece of not very pleasant news. It could hardly be worse than this. The manager reports that the Lace Guild has declared war on them. There is no way that the main office will approve the request. The evidence was clear, so they had no choice. These vile bastards sucked money out of them so hard. But there was no use. The Lays suffered huge damage. It is unknown whether they have enough strength to wage a guild war. It seems they still believe in the mercenary who fought in the last unofficial war. But since mercenaries can't participate in the guild war, he probably joined them temporarily as a regular member. I wonder how great it is if so much is invested into it. The manager isn't sure, but there are rumors that he is an A rank, considering that Lace won. This information doesn't seem unreliable. If that's the case, there's nothing to worry about, since they don't have any financial problems preventing them from using A-rank hunters as mercenaries. The boss asks if the list has been received. The manager says that one person is B rank, the rest are C rank. There seems to be no need to mobilize the last remaining A-rank hunter. Then we need to send him to conduct raids. There is no point in wasting the remaining forces because of such nonsense. In this case, the manager will instruct to mobilize only 5 C-rank hunters. Victory is already in their pocket. No matter how outdated the Echo Guild is, it hardly makes sense for the Lace Guild to declare war on them. And he's talking about the same thing. Even their guild leader is only C rank, it's really crazy. But until recently he was F rank. He was really lucky that he was able to raise it. But this is complete nonsense. Every time there is always some impudent guy who has increased his rank only thanks to luck. Not only did he move up to rank C from F, but he also managed to take the place of the guild leader. This is Julia Stern, an S-rank hunter and the second daughter of the head of the jail corporation. She finds the rumors about Chris interesting, but she is not interested in him. It's just that because everyone is constantly talking about him, she is curious to see him. But Kevin seems to have a heightened interest in him. Julia says she has no interest in bronze-tier guilds like Echo or Lace, but honestly, it's unusual to move up in rank and become a guild leader. I think Kevin said that this person was originally an F rank. That's right. He became a C-rank hunter with a single bonus to revival. Maybe Julia wants to know more. As Kevin had expected, Chris had caught her interest from the very beginning. He heard that during the attack on the B-rank dungeon, the entire group was wiped out by him. The information from the dungeon administration is almost completely reliable. So, an F-ranker attacked a B-ranker's dungeon alone. However, the hunting department said his injuries were so severe that they did not classify him as a second awakening. Julia asks what Kevin thinks about this. He says that Chris is most likely a second awakening. He might be a suitable talent for their new guild. Being reawakened is quite a rare occurrence. They can't conclude based on the information they currently know. The head of the second department who determined Chris's rank made a lot of noise, so the hunter department will not start acting anytime soon. But it's possible that Chris is not a second awakening, and their predictions will be wrong. So this guild war is a chance to find out if Chris is a second awakening. As soon as the check is completed, they must immediately begin to act. While Chris's existence is still unknown to many, they are not the only ones keeping a close eye on him at the moment. Julia asks to find a way to contact him before the guild war ends. It's been 10 days since the guild war was declared, and since Chris's past lives were last revealed. Winning a guild war with such power would be very dangerous. No matter how much he trains with the magical technique taught to him by Sidon Miller, his past lives do not appear in his dreams. It turns out that when it's convenient for them, they appear both in dreams and in reality. But when Chris needs it, they suddenly shut up. He asks for at least someone to finally show up. He remembers how he was bullied at school. His classmates said that he doesn't have parents anyway, so no one will know. It seems he came from an orphanage or something like that. Perhaps he looks too gloomy. The reason Chris craves the power of his past lives so much is to avoid repeating the same thing again, and to protect those who stood by his side day after day and gave him the strength to endure all the hardships. So he was really happy when the awakening was confirmed. Even though it was only an F rank, he thought that he would finally be able to repay his family for their care and be able to protect his loved ones. Chris believed that if he tried his best, if he continued to work hard as he had done so far, then even a person like him could achieve significant growth. However, it is unlikely that he will be able to protect everyone without his past lives. He was told that he was a loser. He didn't even have any skills. A moron like him shouldn't expect a reward. He should start living a normal life and not even think about finding a group again. He was trash, a real low ranker, and if he had any conscience, he wouldn't dare take his share. He should know his place. Perhaps Chris will once again become a loser who has no skills or talent and will be completely ignored in this society. If that's how it's going to be, it doesn't mean he can just sit quietly and wait for it to happen. Chris knocked down 2 tree trunks with a blow of his sword. If the opportunities he had were so limited, he would not be able to cope with everything he acquired. If he can't progress just because his past life doesn't appear, then that probably proves that he's as low-ranking as he was before. Chris can't go back to that time again. He is returning home. Lisa wakes up and discovers that she has fallen asleep on the couch. Every day Chris comes home later and later. There was no progress today either. In essence, he is taking a step back. Chris doesn't know what to do, because he's participating in a guild war. It would be great to meet at least some past life. I wish they'd at least take him to some room. After falling asleep, Chris finds himself underwater. He didn't expect this. He doesn't know the reason, but if this continues, he will die. He has to get out of here. 5 minutes pass. It's really insanely deep here. Suddenly, Chris realizes he can breathe. This may be a room from a past life, but for some reason there is still no one here. After all, usually at this moment a past life appears. But one thing is for sure, if he can breathe underwater, then he is really inside a dream. He doesn't have time to just dream. Someone has to show up already. Suddenly, a light comes on below and Chris's body moves towards it on its own. This warmth does not seem unfamiliar to him. On the contrary, he feels a sense of longing. Chris wakes up. It is not clear what it was. For some reason this time the body moved at its own discretion. Suddenly someone pushes Chris in the back. It's Lisa. She says Chris just graduated and already sleeps until noon. But it's Sunday and he doesn't have a day job, so she should be lenient. Lisa tells Chris to stop whining and get up quickly. Maybe something amazing will happen today. Chris says she usually never wakes him up in the morning. Let him follow her, and everything will become clear to him. As Chris took his first steps following Lisa, holding her hand, memories began to pop up in his head one after another. The corridors of the orphanage, which were stuffy in the summer because of the small windows, and he had not heard about daytime work for so long that he had completely forgotten these words. Lisa was usually very calm, but at that moment she looked very excited. She says that Chris must enter this room with his eyes closed. He asks if this is necessary. Lisa closes his eyes and leads him into the room. There they prepared a surprise for Chris. He is congratulated on achieving F rank. This was a precious memory that he had to guard throughout his entire life and that he must never forget. This is a piece of his past, although they say that good memories are the first to be erased from memory. But it is still unclear how Chris could live, having forgotten a moment of his life. His awakening happened at an earlier age than usual, Chris says. He hasn't even been issued a hunter's license yet, so don't focus on it. Anyway, today is a wonderful day. It is definitely one of his happiest memories. But for some reason he is very anxious. Chris is underwater again. This time he sees someone. It's a monster shark. Maybe this is a nightmare where Chris gets eaten. This monster seems to be looking at him. If things go on like this, he'll definitely eat him up. Chris disappears again. Now he is lying on the floor. He feels itching and terrible pain all over his body. These are the terrible people who threatened them. And even Lisa's back, who, in order to protect her family, blocked all approaches to them with her body. Chris remembers that day clearly, as if it happened just yesterday. If they borrowed money, they must pay it back. But sometimes you meet people who completely forget about their obligations. The director of the shelter asks to give them a little more time. If he continues to insist on his position, it is unknown what will happen to the children. Lisa shields the director from the blow. She says she will pay off the debt at any cost. She is a hunter and a C-rank healer, so she makes good money. It's really hard to have a conversation with these people. Chris says he is an F-rank hunter. They will try to pay off the debt as soon as possible. They just have to wait a little longer. Chris is talking ridiculous nonsense. He is a low-ranking brat who can't even be an errand boy. He should know how many mouths there are in his shelter. Let him first understand the problem properly. The gangster orders to search everything. Maybe they have money hidden somewhere. Thank God, everything turned out well, and both the children and the director are safe and sound. The only problem is that the shelter is now a terrible mess. But together they will gradually be able to restore order here. First of all, Lisa must heal Chris's wounds. She asks him to turn his face towards her. However, Chris still hides it in his lap. He feels absolutely useless. When he awakened, he thought for the first time that he could finally protect the people dear to him. And although it was only an F rank, he believed that if he tried his best, he would definitely be able to grow significantly. But at the moment when uninvited guests came to them, he could do nothing. It seems that a low-ranking brat like him is incapable of anything. Perhaps the helplessness he felt that day was still driving him forward. Believing that a person like him had no right to have happy memories, and kept pushing himself to the edge of the cliff. But now everything is different. What drives Chris now is not helplessness, but strength and confidence that he can protect everyone. He can no longer stand still. He must become even stronger. Chris opens his eyes once again. Now he is in a brightly lit space. Karsago didn't think that by allowing Chris to gain a little power, he would hear his mindless giggling and chattering. Chris is glad to see Karsago. He says he thinks they made a mistake in deciding to give him power. Chris thinks that Karsago also saw his dream. He had become too conceited and overconfident because he, who had never been able to do anything, finally had the power to change something. But now he had seen the light. Great power comes at a high price. Now, because of the power Chris has received, his family is in danger, and he can no longer sit back and watch his loved ones suffer. Now that he has the strength and confidence to protect everyone, he wants to become even stronger than those who threaten him. It looks like Chris is really desperate now. Karsago tells him to raise his weapon. He will teach him the martial art of defensive counterattack. Chris asks what this art is. Karsago says it will be different from hitting a shield, because from Karsago's point of view, this is the most powerful counterattack skill. If Chris experiences this technique for himself, it will be much better than any explanation. Let him give free rein to his best attacking technique. Chris attacks. For some reason, Karsago didn't make the slightest movement. So Chris's skills are still only at this level. Let him watch carefully from now on. It looks like Karsago is absorbing the blow now. But this cannot be called a simple takeover. Karsago asks if Chris noticed everything. Absorbing a blow dealt by an opponent allows the release of powerful energy in double quantity. There is only one way to obtain this supreme skill. It is to fully withstand this energy without experiencing any lack of it. Most likely the vessel is not yet ready to receive such power. But they, his past lives, have no time to hesitate. Here Karsago sees Chris in the distance. He withstood his martial arts. In that case, Karsago congratulates him. It seems his eyes did not deceive him. Now this best counterattack technique belongs to Chris. The day of the guild war is coming. Kim suggests that they lighten the mood a bit. They have nothing to worry about. The guild leader will sort everything out. It seems like what Chris said only made the atmosphere worse. If you look at the situation from these people's point of view, it's a natural reaction. In fact, they think that the guy who appeared out of nowhere is acting like a guild leader. He's even a little ashamed. A representative of the Echo Guild enters. It's like they're in mourning. All their fighting spirit has gone somewhere. He doesn't dare to speak like that. Chris asks the Echo Guild representative to leave, entering the enemy's waiting room before a guild battle goes against all common sense. And guild member Echo asks why he has to leave. He is a member of the Echo Guild, but he is also assigned the duties of an assistant in organizational matters in this guild war. He just came to check their readiness. Chris only speaks nicely once. If the Echo Guild member continues to talk such nonsense, he won't sit idly by either. It was unlikely that a C-rank hunter with a captain's armband could show him anything special. He is a B-rank hunter. Those present feel a deadly energy. It comes from Chris. You have to know when to stop. I can't believe this bastard is actually C-rank. The bloodthirsty essence of Reaper has awakened. Some of the thirst for murder has been released. Guild member Echo feels like something is suppressing him. This is a killer energy. He bends over in front of Chris. He tells him to get lost. he runs away. Even if it was just for a split second, Chris actually thought about whether he should actually kill him. The higher the level of sympathy for past lives, the less sensitive he becomes to murder. Kim is delighted, but the others seem scared. Chris says it's okay. They need to stop worrying. They believe only in him. In 30 minutes, the guild war will begin. Participants are invited to go to field number 4. Chris is confident that they will succeed. They go out onto the field. Even though it's not a large-scale guild battle, there are a lot more spectators than Chris thought. Here they are, it seems, the leader of the C-rank hunter guild. There are really a lot of people. Chris must have already sensed it. This situation only proves that the hunting society has turned its attention to him. By the way, his family came to support him. Lisa wishes him luck. Chris must win, at least for the sake of his family. The guild war is about to begin. The first participants are asked to step onto the field. Kim promises that he will definitely win. As Chris said earlier, he only needs to defeat 2 opponents. He is still too passionate. The first participant from the Lays Guild, B-rank combat hunter Kim Lane. The first member from the Echo Guild is a B-rank magic-using hunter, Stephen Neal. He says Kim is the human shield of that worthless C-rank hunter. As you can see, the tension is felt even before the start from now on. Guild wars will be held under the control of the Dispute Resolution Committee of the General Guild Bureau. The battle begins. Kim can't resist Stephen's magic with that little dagger. Kim attacks. The power of his attack was stronger than Stephen expected, and his dagger was double. Stephen activates the shield. That's better. Kim suddenly finds herself behind. Then Stephen uses the fire sword. However, he was already late. Kim strikes. Stephen gives up. The referee stops Kim, who is approaching his opponent again. He can consider himself lucky, as long as Kim gets caught outside. Perhaps he spent too much effort from the very beginning. The second battle is about to begin, and participants from both sides are asked to take their starting positions. Kim wins the second battle as well. He is asked if he can continue to fight further. He clearly intends to continue. However, his wounds look very serious. Chris shakes his head. There's no point in fighting anymore. Due to injuries sustained, Kim Lane will be replaced in the third fight by the second participant, Chris Newman. No need to be discouraged. Kim did everything according to their plan. He can leave the rest to Chris and let him make a good video for Tube. Participants are asked to come up to the field. There's no way to fix the list of participants anyway, so Chris will have to show everything he can. A C-rank hunter uses aura. It seems the rumors are true. Looks like it's going to be fun. The third battle begins. Compared to what Chris has done in his past lives, this fight is a piece of cake. Participant Chris Newman has amazing abilities. The fourth battle will begin immediately. He must win so that no one can threaten them again. And again, the long-awaited duel. If Chris wins this time, then the Lace Guild will achieve final victory. The fifth member from the Echo Guild, Hank Stone, is asked to rise to the field. He never imagined that there would be anyone who could use aura. However, no one can defeat Hank's sword. Now Chris will die. Here, Hank discovers that he has disappeared. Chris appears from above again. He hits Hank with his shield. Chris surprised him a little, so he thinks he can win with this kind of power. Guardian Carsago leads a fair counterattack, the unwavering shield becoming a sharp spear that aims at Chris's enemies. He says he doesn't know how to fight at all. Hank is about to be hit by multiple guns. The impact splits the earth. Hank gives in and asks to stop. The Echo Guild's hunter has surrendered, making the Lace Guild the winner. Guildmaster Echo is furious. He broke the table. The Echo Guild was defeated in the guild war, so there shouldn't be any problems with the merger and acquisition. We need to hurry. Chris exits the arena. Someone tells him that he has worked hard. This is Kim. It's such a relief that he's already received proper treatment, Kim says. Chris is eagerly awaited. They are already meeting him, but Kim told them to sit in the waiting room. The last hit was really cool. They still have goosebumps. It was amazing. It's like he has a beam coming out of his mouth. Maybe he can teach them this crazy technique too, although it's unlikely they'll be able to repeat it. He's the best guild leader. Kim tries to calm down Chris's adoring fans. He asks to give him a little time. First, Kim must get rid of the fans. Chris asks if he did a good job filming the video for Tube. Kim says he has already uploaded the footage. Tube is a video hosting site that is often used by hunters. Various types of videos are uploaded, from recommended weapons for raids to types of demonic creatures in dungeons. It is impossible to film properly inside the dungeon, so hunters post a lot of videos to promote their guilds. Since this is Kim's video, Chris is sure that the reaction will be great. If this continues, then strengthening their guild is only a matter of time. Now that they don't know who is behind Echo, this could become their most effective shield. Then Kevin appears and calls out to Chris. Kim asks what business he came here for. Looks like he's an A rank. He even laughs. Kevin says they have nothing to fear. They didn't come to fight. Kim asks what else we are. Kevin says his mistress doesn't like to be modest. She said she really wanted to see Chris. She has an S rank. If a fight suddenly starts now, it will be hard. Julia says Chris looks even more interesting in person. She is Julia Weiss, an S-rank hunter. So, she is the same daughter of the head of the jail corporation that Chris read about in the news. He says he thinks he's heard of her. Perhaps Julia had some business with him. She thought he had already figured out why she had come to see them. The jail corporation does not appear to have a guild under their direct control. Julia hadn't seen much need for it before, but if a guild was needed, it was easy to create. She offers Chris a leadership position in the guild, which will be directly subordinate to the jail corporation. Absolute Emperor Romanov urges the offer to be rejected. If Chris goes against the will of the Supreme Emperor, he will not receive his protection. This is another past life. Chris refuses. Although it is quite a tempting offer, he cannot lose the protection of one of the lives in this war. Kevin asks if he can find out the reason for the refusal. Chris doesn't like it when someone bosses him around. As Kim thought, choosing him as the guild leader was the right decision. Kevin asks if he's really refusing just because of that. If they offered him the position of guild leader, then perhaps he would accept their offer. He values himself too highly. Even though Julia is an S-rank hunter, she's going overboard. Chris may not be worth that much now, but it's unclear how long this will continue. And he is very self-confident. It seems he is absolutely confident in his abilities. This is true. Today's him and tomorrow's him will definitely be different from each other. Julia starts laughing. It was very interesting. Since Chris is confident in his abilities, Julia will watch him. She's going to return home. Their goal today was to lure Chris over to their side. But because of his unreasonable demands, Julia had no choice but to abandon this idea. Although a reawakened one can reach S rank. In other words, you can only stop at this rank. And Julia will definitely make Chris regret his decision. It is littered with papers. Kim brings another pile. Today there was a message from 3 silver guilds. If Chris was going to move to the silver layer, he would have accepted Julia's offer. There is still no communication from the jail corporation. Chris has no intention of becoming a guild leader himself, but is willing to accept any unofficial sponsorship. He is absolutely right. If they conduct S-rank raids with the support of the jail corporation, the rewards will be huge. Chris asks how long it will take. It won't take long if the dungeon administration changes the rank. Even Julia will change her mind. Chris isn't sure if anything will change if the rank changes. Gold or platinum guilds do not take any action. Because the official guild leader rank is C, there are very few cases where a lower-ranked hunter is hired as a leader. Chris knew that the walls of each layer were very high, but he didn't know how high as he thought he was not strong enough yet. If his rank is changed, then the guilds above the gold layer will also begin to act. The video received a lot of good feedback. The administration will most likely contact Chris during the day. All eyes are on him. If they respond quickly, they can get in touch within the next hour. Kim will answer the phone and come back. Soon he reports that Chris has a visitor. He says that he is not planning to meet with guild representatives for now. But this case can be called exceptional. He is from the Diamond Layer Guild, of which there are only 15 in all of Korea. Chris agrees to meet him. He comes out to him. His name is Liam Green. He is the HR manager at Innovations. Chris never thought that the Diamond Layer Guild's personnel manager would take action because of him. Liam meets Kim and invites them to sit down and talk. He never imagined that he would meet super rookie Chris Newman in person. It is a great honor for him. High-ranking guilds exchange news regularly. And when Liam was at the last all-hands meeting, everyone was calling Chris a super newbie. Also, if anyone represents a guild that is very interested in discovering new talent, then they have definitely seen Chris's video. Once the absorption and merger with Echo occurs, the number of guild members will increase dramatically. Liam doesn't like to exaggerate, so Chris can trust him. Now he would like to get down to business. All the conditions that their company offers are listed here. Being a member of a guild will reduce taxes related to magic crystals. If Chris signs, he will be able to take on a leadership position immediately. It's a tempting offer. But in the end, he will simply become a servant of the guild, and then will not be able to receive Romanov's patronage. Chris doesn't think he can give Liam a definitive answer right now. Kim wants him to agree for the sake of their guild. It's very difficult to get such a chance. Chris knows this, but his decision still won't change. He finally finished the job. Suddenly he hears a voice calling him. Everything is flooded with blinding light. Chris finds himself in another dimension. In front of him there are either gates or huge doors. Chris opens them. It's hard to imagine how much all these countless treasures cost. Romanov calls Chris. He encourages him not to be afraid and to come closer. Suddenly something happens. Romanov says he was a little mistaken. He watched Chris carefully. When Karsago first appeared, most of them were against it. But soon Seiden Miller and Hasashin accepted Chris. The past life room is a special space. Romanov could not even imagine that Chris would be able to absorb the training so quickly. Although he went a little off track in the middle, He was eventually able to achieve what he wanted thanks to the fact that he has some abilities. That's why Romanov is now interested in him too. Chris realizes that's why he told him not to become a servant of any guild. Chris represents Romanov's will. Since he practiced without hesitation, this may mean that he is ready to accept it. For the sake of his patronage, he refused all offers from other guilds. Someone under Romanov's protection cannot serve anyone else. Chris must swear that this will never happen. In that case, Romanov will become his patron as he promised. Even if it hurts, you have to endure it. It hurt so much, as if his whole body had been pierced through. Romanov thought Chris was already used to the pain. It was a little different from the pain he had experienced before. Now he must clear his mind to use magical power. You need to focus. Something like a piece of glass hangs in the air in front of Chris. He touches it. Rays of light shine from the glass. Chris sees the battlefield. Romanov tells the knights to run away from here. He himself will defend the Imperial Palace. But first of all, he must take cover. They will defend this place at the cost of their own lives. It will be quite enough if Romanov dies alone along with this country. He orders them to leave the palace immediately. This is the last order of their master. The palace wall explodes. At least Romanov will be able to take a couple of companions with him. He rushes into attack. It's all over. Romanov's head was cut off. Chris returns to the room of his past life. Romanov asks if he understands how to use his patronage. Chris answers negatively. It seems that his mind took him to a completely different place. Then Romanov will explain everything himself. As soon as the magic in the eyes is focused on a certain person, everything will be over. Chris asks what will happen then. He will be able to see the true name of this person. In other words, another name that reflects the true nature of this person. With this support, Chris will be able to identify those people who are worth keeping close to him. Romanov is confident that this will bring him great benefit. Chris thanks him. He hasn't been called Romanov for a long time. Chris can go. As long as he serves the Emperor, he will remain on his side. But he must remember that the opportunity to learn one's true name can also be a curse. The next morning, Lisa is sitting in the living room. Chris comes in and asks if she's okay. Lisa says, "Everything's great." Here is a chance to test Romanov's defense and find out her true name. Romanov looks at Chris, his gaze seeing all creatures with absolute insight. Lisa is Chris's devoted assistant. He seemed to be beginning to understand a little of the meaning of the true name. Chris asks what his schedule is for today. Lisa arranged for a visit from a man from the Hunters Department in the Dungeon Administration to come at 3 o'clock, since Lisa had a lot to do and would have to go to work early. Chris is really grateful to her for taking on the duties of his secretary and for being there for him. Lisa is glad that she was able to help him in some way. She says that there is nothing wrong with it. She is doing it because she wants to, and she will only help Chris for a while, and then she will immediately leave. Since they won the guild war, then the absorption and merger with the Echo Guild must be a done deal, meaning their guild will become even bigger. Kim sees Chris. He will accompany him. It might be worth checking the real name of the Special Forces commander. He is a blindly believing knight. Chris doesn't understand what this means. A car is waiting for him. At the office, Kim reports that the visitor is already on the first floor. Chris says to tell him to come up here. A visitor enters. He is Paul Smith, the second team representative of the Dungeon Administration's Hunter Division. He probably came to Chris to discuss the issue of rank promotion. Although this is the main question, he came to his office personally because he has a proposal for him. Finally officially promoted to A rank, Chris has been waiting for this day for so long. He is still a C rank, so the idiots from Gold and Platinum rank guilds don't mess with him. Chris asks to see his ID first. Paul gets it. As Chris expected, he's an A rank. Now that he's an A rank hunter, since the information has been updated, he can safely use this ID. Chris suggests moving on to the next question. Paul seemed to say that he had some kind of proposition for him. He says they want Chris to become a national hunter. If he agreed, then naturally he would be able to work not only in the Dungeon Administration, but also in other national organizations. So Paul came to ask him the question directly. If he makes Chris such an offer, it means he must have good conditions. Damn department head. Paul won't be able to convince him with those conditions in hand. He hands Chris a document with the terms prepared by their side. Even with how little Chris knows about this, it's immediately obvious that these are very low hiring standards. Kim is also invited to look at the terms. This is an absurd contract when viewed from the perspective of the guild leader's rating and potential. It's unheard of for a B-rank hunter to be offered working conditions that would be acceptable to a B-rank hunter. Yesterday, the HR manager of the innovations company came to see them. If Paul is not mistaken, this is a diamond rank guild. He asks for forgiveness. He is not sure that he will be able to provide Chris with more favorable conditions. He does not have such power. In fact, from the moment he watched Chris's video on Tube, he had already thought that he wouldn't be able to hire him to work for them. When he saw Chris defeat a B-rank hunter while being a C-rank hunter, he really wanted to recruit him as a national hunter. But Paul wasn't going to force Chris to do that. And it was also true that the current dungeon administration wasn't good enough to accept him. Paul doesn't seem like a bad person. Before becoming a permanent employee of the dungeon administration, Paul will always sincerely support Chris as a citizen of the Republic of Korea. He needs to get out of here quickly because he's incredibly ashamed. Paul apologizes for wasting their time. There is not much time left before the takeover and merger. The end is already very close. It seems that everything will be settled in just a week. Chris suggests having a glass of coffee. Lisa immediately goes after him. Here she almost crashes into Kim. He has an urgent message for Chris. In the process of accepting and organizing the documents of the executive department of the Echo Guild, the existence of the secret funds of the guild leader was confirmed. Kim brought a set of organized documents. I wonder how much money is stored in secret funds. For that kind of money, you can found one small guild and still have some left over. Chris watched it just once and immediately got the gist of it, as expected from a leader. If it were a matter of that kind of money, even someone like Chris would be stunned. Kim asks what he plans to do. Then Chris sees that the paper in his hands is burning. Kim could report this to the guild headquarters. But in the current situation, he would try his best to settle the matter quietly. Perhaps he means to quietly absorb the secret funds. There are few internal documents left, but it would not be difficult for Kim to ensure that no information leaks. Then there is no need to report this to the guild headquarters. Kim will clean everything up in a safe way. Barris, the selfish negotiator, welcomes Chris's progress. Kim stands in the passage between buildings. He meets John So, a B-rank combat hunter. Kim asks what about what he ordered him to do. John says he did an investigation. They still haven't figured out who's behind it, but the target's current security status leaves much to be desired, and it appears the secret customer has abandoned it entirely. In his place, Kim would do the same. He asks if they can clean everything up. John answers in the affirmative. The Echo Guild's leadership has been completely disbanded, and the target now has only a handful of bodyguards. Needs to be cleaned up. John asks if there were any instructions from the guild leader. He gave no such instructions, but everything is done for his sake. It will be enough if they just get their hands dirty. John understood everything. He disappears. Kim doesn't want the guild leader to deal with such matters. Sometime later, also in the passage between buildings, Norman Black asks for mercy. But there is no use begging for mercy. If Kim wants money and he needs secret funds, then Norman will give him everything. Just don't kill him. Kim retrieves the dagger from the spatial storage. Norman begs him for mercy because Kim doesn't know who his patron is. If he keeps Norman alive, he'll definitely be of some use. If Kim leaves him alive, he can say with 100% certainty that Norman will stab him in the back. It seems Norman misjudged the situation. They have already taken possession of his secret funds. Kim will kill him quickly and quietly. Norman tries to stop him. Kim strikes. This is probably the end of the Echo Guild. John will get rid of all the evidence. Kim can return to her normal duties. He did everything he planned. Let John clean everything up thoroughly. Kim received notification from the guild headquarters about the completion of the merger and acquisition process. This means that the Echo Guild has now officially ceased to exist, and all necessary materials have also been handed over. While this is good news, guild members have started to quit en masse. The guild headquarters reported that the number of members leaving was constantly growing. Chris asks what Kim's predictions are, and he says at least more than half of them are likely to leave. Their guild is really not that big. The core dungeon crawler team will likely be leaving as well, and they are quite useful personnel. Even to attack a dungeon, you need to prevent such personnel from leaving. If this requires slightly updating contracts, it is worth doing so. Kim seemed to mention that the only remaining A-rank hunter from the Echo Guild was Alan Gray. He was a combat hunter and the leader of the invader team. There weren't many A-rank hunters in the Echo Guild. The number of attacking teams and regular guild members is small, and the size of the executive apparatus is several times larger. Perhaps the Echo Guild was raised to carry out the dark deeds of a behind-the-scenes customer. Chris asks if he can meet Alan Gray once. Kim was told that he just walked into the guild office. He will call him now. Soon they meet Alan. He says he has heard a lot about Kim. Chris uses true name recognition magic. Alan is the vanguard commander of desperate great deeds, and seems to be a character who stands out from the crowd. Kim decides that Alan doesn't think much of Chris as the guild leader. Chris suggests getting straight to the point. Alan agrees. There is no point in wasting time. Chris wants him to stay in the guild. Alan asks what benefit he will get from this, since he signed a contract with the Echo Guild, not with Lace. The deep knowledge of the absolute Emperor Romanov helps analytics. If Alan deigned to come here, it means that he definitely wants something. Chris offers to raise the terms of the contract. Alan says it's a good offer, but it seems like it's not enough either. If his request is justified, they will try to include it in the contract as fully as possible. Alan wants to go to an S-rank dungeon. Although a normal attacking team could challenge a dungeon one level higher, in the Echo Guild, Alan never had any experience attacking an S-rank dungeon. He had never even been there. The hunter is the one chosen by force, and the hunting party roams the unknown world of dungeons and destroys demonic creatures. There is nothing left in Alan's life except dungeons, so he drags out this fate, destined for him from above. The former guild leader preferred not to take risks. He believed that there was no need for magic stones from S-rank dungeons, because if Alan died, there would be a shortage of manpower. Such vile cowardice infuriates him. With such a temperament, he's going to destroy everything here. Alan can't settle for who he is now. This means that the Echo Guild was taking care of its rear with Lace's current capabilities. Attacking an S-rank dungeon is now impossible. To challenge such a dungeon, you need to be at least A rank. Chris is not going to deny this fact. Alan says he saw everything that day at the Colosseum. The blow Chris delivered to Hank Stone that day was so powerful that even Alan couldn't follow it. It was a flawless attack, and then Alan was finally convinced that Chris really was an awakened hunter. He doesn't know much about the Second Awakening, but he realizes that Chris has a fairly fast growth rate. Alan is confident that the guild leader will be promoted to S-rank very soon, and when that day comes, let him join Alan in raiding an S-rank dungeon. He should develop further. Chris gives him his word. If Alan remains in the guild, he will retain his position as the current leader of the invasion team, and will be on the roster for Lay's first attack on an S-rank dungeon. All the mentioned conditions are written here. Alan likes everything so much that he agrees to sign it. From now on, he relies on Chris. After a few months, about half of the people from the Echo Guild signed contracts and remained in the Lace Guild. It seems that fewer people left than they expected. Chris thought that more than half would leave. Kim thinks that it's all because Chris became an A-rank hunter. Starting from this rank, people see hunters as the main force of the nation. In a short time, he was promoted to A rank, so everyone is looking forward to the new guild. Chris asks how the recruitment of additional members is going. Norman Black's secret fund is bigger than they expected, so they can start advertising. A while ago, Kim requested the executive department for data that would be used to promote the guild, and the previous figures could not be used due to the merger and acquisition, so it looks like the invader team will have to be reorganized soon. Guild performance is primarily measured by the raid team's dungeon clearing or raid defense, and now an effective way to increase productivity right now is to raid a dungeon with 1 guild level. Then we need to start reorganizing as soon as possible. Although Alan is currently going through a tough time due to the interview with the new team of invaders, most likely the reorganization will take no more than a day. This needs to be addressed immediately. Soon, Kim announces that the reorganized raiding team is to attack the B-rank dungeon. Then Alan comes in and asks if Chris is really planning to go to the B-rank dungeon. The second team has a lot of newbies, so it doesn't reach the elite level. As a test, it would be better to start with B rank. Alan agreed with this tactic, and he also thought that if the first team attacked an A-rank dungeon, it would have a good effect on the guild's productivity. It would be better to activate the second command first, and then combine it with the first, because the first command can start acting right now. Of course, if he does this, it will be more effective. As for attacking B-rank dungeons, 1 A-rank hunter is enough. Chris asks Alan to stay in the office and start the plan to organize the third team. The guild size has grown, so it would be nice to have at least 3 attacking teams. Now we need to move forward slowly. The second team is already waiting for Chris in front of the entrance to the dungeon. They approach the car waiting for them. Chris tells the driver to stop smoking. It's bad for your health and not worth the money. He was joking. Then Lisa calls out to Chris. He thinks something happened. Lisa wants Chris to take her with him. To be more useful to him in the future, she needs to go into the dungeon and grow even bigger. Chris asks if they can take another hunter-healer with them. All power belongs to the guild leader. If they add 1 more person, it won't cause any problems. The group soon arrives at the entrance to a B-rank dungeon. Kim will be waiting for them nearby. You won't have to wait long. Chris meets Nick Rice, the leader of the second team of invaders. Chris says he's counting on him. A diligent guard, he seems to be quite ordinary. They will have another addition. Lisa is a C-rank hunter-healer, but she doesn't have much experience in capturing dungeons. They were joined by a healer hunter, and the guild leader was accompanying them, so there were unlikely to be any problems. In that case, they will proceed to capture. The group enters the dungeon. Nick orders the drones to be launched. Now we can move on. Suddenly Chris hears a strange sound. Someone is approaching from that direction. Monsters are approaching. They are here. In front of the hunters there are 5 berserkers and the same number of orcs. They are ready to attack. One of the monsters attacks Nick. He activates the fire shield. The monster moves towards Chris. He attacks from above. We need to deal with them as quickly as possible. Protracted battles are dangerous. Chris delivers the finishing blow. All monsters are defeated. It seemed as if something had slipped past the hunters, and they didn't even have time to engage in battle. Chris is on a whole other level. The hunters move on. They continue the cleanup. If they continue like this, they will be able to take over the dungeon without any difficulty. Chris suggests taking a break. There's something going on with the door here. She closed herself off. Chris had been through a similar situation before. It seems to be a hidden dungeon. Chris doesn't even know how much experience these hunters have in capturing dungeons. They must understand the current situation in order to be able to attack. The admin trackers said it was a B-rank dungeon, but it was at least an A rank. While it may sound a little scary, they should try to take over this dungeon. With rank A, the difficulty of attack increases dramatically. If they are unlucky, they might run into an S-rank dungeon. First, we need to start reorganizing. Nick agrees that in order to clear this dungeon, they need to fight the boss in better condition. Hunters stop to rest before entering the boss room. They will be breaking in there in about 30 minutes. It looks like they are in a hidden dungeon, so Lisa should try to stay close to Nick if possible. It will be much safer with him than with Chris, who should be standing in front. Lisa tries to object, but she is a healer. She knows that a healer must stay alive until the very end. Lisa is confident that she will be useful this time. 30 minutes later, the takeover continues. Chris urges everyone to be extremely careful. He opens the doors to the boss's room. Hasashin's wicked laugh warns of an ambush, a hidden blade aimed at Chris's heart. The monster reaches out to him. Chris dodges. Nick activates the magic circle. Another hunter uses the opening wind. Nick raises a wall of flame. The dungeon is shrouded in clouds of smoke. However, the monsters are not finished. A military leader came with them. Chris believes that this is the boss of the hidden dungeon. It is unlikely that it would appear in a B-rank dungeon. The shield of justice Karsago protects him. The patron of the sword, Sidon Miller, is with him. The sword cannot be broken until righteous anger is crushed. Chris charges at the boss. Here, he disappears. The orc appears again right above Chris. He reflects his blow. For such a stupid monster, this orc is quite fast. However, he is still much slower than Chris. Karsago counterattacks, the unshakable shield transforming into a sharp spear that will crush enemies. Chris prepares to deliver the finishing blow. Suddenly, the orc lets out a loud roar, causing stones to rise into the air. This is the first time Chris has encountered such an attack. The orc is approaching. It turns out he can talk. He is sure that Chris is going to die now. He flies into the air, preparing to deliver the finishing blow. Now it's all over. The voice of his past life tells him to defend himself. Chris manages to avoid the fatal blow. We need to deal with this freak quickly. If the battle continues like this, everyone will suffer. The orc is open to attack. Then Chris attacks. Now it's all really over. They will take care of the rest themselves. Chris suspected that there were many different types of monsters, but it was still amazing that this orc could talk. The door is opened. A blade flies out from there. He stabs one of the hunters. Lisa will heal her right now. The wound is fatal. Lisa's healing abilities can only sustain life for a short time. Hasashin warns of danger. Someone is lurking in the shadows, ready to strike Chris in the heart. He doesn't feel anyone's presence. Maybe it's a trap. You have to look around. It's not clear where the attack will come from. Here someone is attacking another hunter. This is an orc swordmaster. He continues the attack. This is an S-rank monster. They must run. The orc licks the blood from the blade. Now he set his sights on the mortally wounded huntress and those around her. This orc can also talk. He says hello. Then Nick appears and pushes Lisa away. The orc lets out the same roar as the one Chris fought. One of the hunters will try to detain him, and the rest will leave. The wounded huntress rises, although her wound seemed fatal. She is wounded after all. Now is not the time to think about it. The orc strikes from behind. He approaches Lisa. Chris steps between her and the orc and deflects his attack. He seems to be deliberately not hitting vital points, leaving the hunters wounded to distract Chris. Chris asks Lisa to heal the wounded. They should hold out a little longer. Chris must quickly get rid of the orc and take care of Lisa. First, you need to drive him away from her. Chris moves like a dirty rat. The orc grabs him by the head. It absorbs his powers. Chris must escape his clutches, and he succeeds. The orc attacks again. Things are bad. The orc sees that Chris has mastered special sword techniques that are unknown even to high-level masters. Perhaps he is a disciple of a swordmaster. Chris hesitates whether to answer. The orc says he doesn't have to. Chris's shield shatters from the impact. Lisa heals his wound. Healing is not happening as quickly as usual. It's possible that Lisa's mana is depleted. She's at her limit, but she wants to help Chris. The orc continues to attack. Chris must stand firm. Blood spurts from his mouth. Lisa rushes towards him. She tries to use healing, but he has lost too much blood. Lisa's mana can't run out at such an important moment. Chris is in so much pain and there is absolutely nothing she can do. The orc grabs him. Then Lisa takes the blade out of the spatial storage. Now she stands right in front of the orc. She never got to say anything to Chris that day. Lisa understood that he needed support more than anyone else, but she could not give him words of comfort. However, Chris did not think about that day and continued to move forward. But this does not mean that Lisa will stand idly by. Family members do not do that. As long as she can protect Chris, she is willing to die so that he can see tomorrow. She sacrificed herself for the sake of a person dear to her. The absolute Emperor Romanov forcibly skips the test of the paladin with the highest imperial power. Lisa has received the essence of a noble paladin. She can use a sword. Mana is replenished. If she got this power, she must protect Chris at any cost. It's like a secondary awakening. Lisa points the light weapons at the orc. The holy spears strike him. Chris tries to get up. He calls Reaper. The bloodthirsty entity has awakened. Chris attacks the orc. He asks Lisa if she is okay. Lisa doesn't know. Suddenly, the mana began to replenish and overflow. It seems like an awakening. Lisa heals Chris. The orc believes that all their efforts are useless. It's time for him to finally die. The explosion splits the earth. However, the orc is still alive. Lisa points the holy spears at him again. Chris is okay. We need Lisa to heal the others. Now she can be useful too. The huntress, wounded twice, rises. It turns out that everyone is alive. I can't believe they defeated an S-rank monster. But now is not the time to be idle. Nick is glad that Chris is safe. Thanks to him, they were able to return from the other world. So this is what is called a miracle. Nick must be mentally exhausted. The gates have opened. Now you can go home. Hunters emerge from the dungeon. Kim runs out to meet Chris, looking like he's a monster too. The damn bureaucrats dared to misjudge the dungeon. He would destroy those bastards. The other hunters were taken to the hospital. It wouldn't hurt for the two of them to get checked out, just in case. Chris would rather rest in his bed than go to the hospital. Then Kim walks him to the car. He will give Chris a full report tomorrow. It was pure chaos. So now there's only one place left for Chris to go. This is the Romanov Palace. Chris thought that the Emperor was controlling him. He felt his mana during the fight. There were already forces inside that dungeon. Romanov just intervened a little to help Chris's subject reach his potential. Lisa is not his subject. This is how Romanov's forces and defense perceived it. Chris asks on what basis this decision was made. He will find out about this when the time comes. Perhaps he is interested in something else. Chris asks if there are other subjects besides Lisa. There are, but Romanov cannot name them to him. Chris didn't expect anything else from him. However, Romanov can say that besides the paladin, there is only one. But over time, there will be more of them, and then Chris will be able to establish a monarchy. He has already received a subject with special loyalty. Romanov probably means the blindly believing knight, Kim. Chris seemed to understand. The head of the 4th team of the Dungeon Management Investigation Bureau asks if the dungeon data has been processed and who cleared it. It was the Lays Guild. Only one A-rank hunter for the entire team, but they were still able to clear an S-rank dungeon. Although it is hard to believe, the data is accurate. The head must double-check everything. At the office, he is met by the head of the 3rd Brigade of the Dungeon Management Investigation Bureau. He heard that an investigation had just been completed, and he needed to provide all the related materials. The head of the 4th Brigade asks why this is happening, since his team is doing this. The information is confidential. The only thing he needs to do is provide the materials. He, of course, will not interfere with the fulfillment of the Bureau's requirements, and is ready to cooperate. Kim asks how Lisa is. After a little rest, she will be fine. It will not be easy for her to understand where the strength came from, and to put her thoughts in order. Chris asks if there is any news. Looks like something happened. Chris is a quick learner. Here are the results of the investigation that came in this morning. During the preliminary investigation, the presence of a hidden dungeon was discovered. This means that the Bureau knew about the existence of this dungeon. Someone deliberately falsified the results of the preliminary investigation. It's obvious that this is the work of the Echo Guild sponsors. Kim would never have thought of it if he hadn't contacted the Bureau. With the help of secret funds, they will strengthen the power of the executive and intelligence agencies. They must be ready when their enemies decide to attack. Chris asks how much Kim knows about the hidden dungeons. These seem to be dungeons where you can get hidden rewards. Maybe if Chris talks about it, he got it. Lisa had a second awakening. Kim believes that security around Chris's house needs to be beefed up, as he could become a target once word spreads that he received a special reward from a hidden dungeon. And this may prompt other guilds with their eyes on the reward to attack them. Kim will hire trusted guards and station the guild's executive branch's core hunters around Chris's home. He is also thinking about assigning him a bodyguard. Enter John South. Chris acquired Romanov's eyes, a gaze of absolute insight that reveals the essence of all living things. John's true name is Sliding Shadow. Now he will be responsible for the security of Chris's house. He is a B-rank hunter with a lot of experience. John promises that he will not disappoint Chris. Since the news of the hidden dungeon being cleared has come out, they won't be able to avoid battles. They are still considered the weak link. But as long as Chris is determined, he won't be easy to defeat. When they start to attack, they will show them what they are worth, and at the same time they will show the whole country how strong they are. Soon Kim will see that in the future, no one will be able to resist them. So, the Lays Guild cleared the S-rank dungeon. They have an informant in the administration. However, even high-ranking hunters find it difficult to clear S-rank dungeons. Judging by the rank of their group, they should have been destroyed, but no one died. Either Chris Newman was stronger than expected, or one of the group members had a secondary awakening in the dungeon. In any case, it poses a threat. We must destroy them before they become stronger. But if you start to act on your own initiative, the Osung group will not remain on the sidelines. But you don't have to do it yourself. All they need to do is spread the rumor that the Lays Guild found something in the dungeon. Chris arrives home. Kim opens the car door for him. Chris asks if he felt his presence while he was training. He approached him closely using Hasashin's power. Kim only noticed him when he heard his voice. By the way, in the last battle, Chris lost his shield. This equipment is not of such a high class. However, Kim chose it with all his heart. Chris doesn't know how to carry such a package. These guards must be new recruits. About 10 were recruited from closed military units. 9 of them are hunters from rank E to C. They are all armed with firearms. For hunters of rank D and below, it is advisable to have one on them. And that's true. It's unlikely that the one who decides to attack will have magical skin like the beast. They don't know where and when the hunters will attack, so they have to be on guard. After falling asleep, Chris finds himself back in the room of his past life. It says something about a shadow here. So this is Hasashin. It would be a joy if Chris were suddenly attacked. Hasashin was waiting for him. It looks like a hidden enemy is targeting him. The Hasashin blessing that Chris had discovered now might not be enough to detect the potential danger. That's why he needed Hasashin to get a new blessing from him. He likes Chris's attitude. It seems like he's been practicing a lot. And as a result, their compatibility has increased a lot. I wonder what blessing he will receive this time. Here it is. If Chris accepts it, he will be able to send shadows to spy on enemies from afar. Now this power is very useful for him. Hasashin asks if he is ready to accept his blessing. Chris answers in the affirmative. It will hurt a little, but it is clearly more painful than Hasashin expressed. He sees his memory. The knight tries to strike him down, but the sword is powerless against the shadow. He was sure he had hit it. Then Hasashin attacked him from above. This scene captivates him every time. Chris is back. Now he has defensive skills in his head. Every time he encounters a past life, he goes through this. Chris says he didn't even feel it. Probably Hasashin was having fun playing with him. Of course, it's awesome how funny. Once Chris receives the blessing, memories from his past life come to him and a trickle-down effect occurs, giving the person the skills of his ancestors. Perhaps everything will become clearer if he studies magic. Chris thinks that in one of his lives, he was a magician. He has 990,000 past lives, and it is logical that among them were the greatest archmages of the dimension. They all studied different areas of magic. I wonder if it is possible to reach their level. If he continues to train, anything is possible. It's worth trying to use the blessing without thinking about it too much. Chris calls him. Great, I need to try creating another shadow. Chris is trying. As expected, 2 shadows is too much for a beginner. This spell is the most difficult of all high-level magic because it consumes a lot of mana. But to create at least 1 shadow on the first try is an excellent result. Now let Chris go and create the shadow of his worst enemy. Gold rank guilds and above have excellent informants, so they probably already know the rumors, which will force silver rank guilds to do something. I wonder which guild will make the first move. Kim, who suddenly appeared from behind, believes that this is the Anderson Guild. Chris asks where he came from. Kim says he swore allegiance to him. He is ready to appear at any time, if it is for Chris. Now the Anderson Guild is leading everyone. Even among silvers, their reputation is not the best. They used forbidden methods to reach their current level, so it is said that there are always some disputes within the top of the guild. If they are known as villains, then they are most suitable for this role. Their guildmaster is greedy as hell, and rumor has it that they tried to steal an A-rank weapon but failed. Then Chris will send a personal informant to them. I can't tell you everything, but he is someone you can trust. If Chris trusts him, then Kim does too. Chris creates a shadow. It shows a photo of the person to be watched. This Lays Guild they were heading to now had gotten something special after clearing out the hidden dungeon, and since this rumor was only spreading through the lower ranks, Tom immediately reported it to his superiors as soon as he found out. Although he doesn't know what kind of treasure it is, it could be a fast track to gold rank for their guild. Their opponents are the leaders of a small bronze guild and a couple of guards, so they will win easily. They will take this treasure by any means necessary. Their task is to catch and escort everyone, so said the boss. One of the hunters asks what to do if they fail to capture them. Then they will kill them in the most brutal way. They must inspire fear. The hunter heard that they had small children. The leader of the group hits him. The Anderson Guild assassins shouldn't be concerned with such trifles. They're almost there. Time to go. The security guard at Chris's house hears something. He is preparing to attack, but he didn't expect the killer to pounce on him from above. They took care of the security around the house. Now you can go inside. They climb over the wall. The guards on the premises are under attack. We need to call the second squad. They are going inside. They must kill everyone except their target. One of the killers is about to open the door. Suddenly someone cuts off his hand. The leader of the group orders to calculate the location of the enemy. But it seems like there's no one here at all. The darkness of Hasashin attacks again. There's not a single living soul here, but if they don't leave here, they'll all be dead. The chief orders us to quickly leave through the window, but they cannot escape the striking shadow. This is impossible. There is no one here. Here Chris appears. The valiant sword of Sidon Miller is with him. The righteous shield of Karsago will protect him. Danzing will live. Chris will never fall as long as he has someone to protect him. The moment the Anderson Guild decided to attack Lace, they signed their own death warrant. Kim and the other hunters are waiting in ambush. There's someone else standing on the roof. This is Lisa. The killers find themselves surrounded. It seems they were trapped from the start. Chris sent all the senior members here. We must make sure that none of the killers escape from here. Kim gives the command to begin the attack. The hunters open fire. The killers try to counterattack. But no matter how they attack the hunters, they don't die. It seems that the enemy side has an A-rank healer or even higher. Since things turned out this way, we should at least get rid of Chris. He appears from behind and asks if they were looking for him. The leader of the assassins rushes into attack. However, his blade is useless. Don't worry, Chris won't kill them right away. He tells Kim to send a message to the Anderson Guild and inform them that the Laces have taken hostages. Chris will see who takes the bait. Kate asks if Steven really feels stronger after reawakening. He says not really. Let Kate eat faster and not worry about him. She doesn't want to eat. She has no appetite. She could skip at least one breakfast. Kate is as skinny as a skeleton. Let her force herself to eat. Even if she doesn't want to, she needs to eat, so she'll get better faster. And you don't have to worry about money. Steven always looks like he has the weight of the world on his shoulders. And yet Kate envies him. After his second awakening, he can become a hunter like he always dreamed of. Now he can help people and become known as a cool hunter. He will strive to become a great hunter, and Kate will be proud of him. Steven, the executive manager of the Anderson Guild, was now recalling the conversation with his sister and did not hear his name being called. He's been getting distracted a lot lately. He will have to provide a report immediately. His subordinates have suffered a lot. Steven enters the guild leader's office. He says that the director can go. Steven is early today and doesn't even knock. The boss offers him a drink. Steven reports that the team sent to the Lace Guild was almost completely destroyed. Only 4 survived, but even those were taken hostage. They received a message from the Ace Guild, who somehow found out that they were behind the attack. Chester may be upset to hear this, but Steven will repeat the message word for word. Their guild should hold a press conference and make an official statement that they attacked Lays. Then they will return the hostages safe and sound. Otherwise, you can prepare coffins for them. A bronze-rank guild does not dare to threaten a silver-rank guild. Chester needs to make a smart decision. They killed a lot of their subordinates. They might have an ace up their sleeve, so they need to be careful. Chester orders all leaders to be summoned and prepare for a second attack. But if they attack, the hostages will definitely be killed. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made. The reputation of their guild is at stake. Steven will call those who are free. Chester splashes whiskey on him. Apparently, he doesn't understand what situation they are in. They need to mobilize all forces and cancel all missions. But if they do, many important tasks will be put on hold. It doesn't matter. Their #1 priority is to get rid of those bastards from the Lace Guild. Steven probably forgot who's in charge here. This could be a trap. The income from A rank amounted to $1.5 billion and was sent to Chris's account. They only received this compensation for the cleanup. Kim reports that a special investigator has arrived. He appeared yawning loudly. The investigation came to the conclusion that it would not be difficult to prove the fact of self-defense. But as for the culprit, further investigation is needed. If there are any surviving witnesses, they will be sent to the appropriate department. There are no survivors. Then the investigator leaves. Judging by how quickly he went through the case, someone is pressuring them, and it's unlikely to be Anderson. They gathered the management instead of holding a press conference. The hostages are still silent. They have been kind to them all this time, but now it is time to deal with them seriously. They have been extremely polite. It is time to become a little rougher to get information out of them. It seems like Chris can't even have one day off. He hopes that soon the hostages will start talking. No matter what they do to them, they remain silent. Suddenly, Chris finds himself in an empty and dark space. He fell asleep, but he still had so much to think about. Today he has two options, the Lord of Pain and the Selfish Negotiator. The Lord of Pain probably looks something like this. If Chris can't talk some sense into the Anderson Guild members, the only thing left to do is beat them up. He hears some sound. Welcome. This is a past life. No matter how you look at it, he's definitely crazy. His name is Pierre, and this is Ilias. He is his best friend. Chris wants to ask something. He can ask whatever he wants, except for Pierre's hand in marriage. He is called the Lord of Pain. Perhaps it is the pain of torture. When he was alive, he worked as a torture master for the Empire. Chris asks if he can teach him how to torture people. Pierre says he can't teach what he doesn't know himself, but he said that he worked as a torture master. There is much more absurdity in life than it seems. One day God gave Pierre this exceptional ability. Chris is thrown into a chair. Pierre can control the suffering of others if he wants. He can cause hellish pain using any objects, but he has to transfer his magical power to the enemy. Usually he uses a needle for this. Chris, of course, thought it was a little weird. He will be able to manage pain. All he has to do is prick himself with a needle 3 times, and if he can endure it, he will receive a blessing. If he can't, then he'll have to wait for the next opportunity. But it's better not to miss the chance. Chris will try. Pierre offers to tie him hand and foot. Chris refuses. Pierre doesn't pierce him with a needle at all. Nietzsche said that what does not kill us makes us stronger. This quote suits Pierre perfectly. Nietzsche has nothing to do with this. It's unclear why Chris was like that in his past life. He enjoyed incredible pain. Now Pierre's blessing will be with him. Chris wakes up. If he hadn't recovered, he would have gone crazy from all his past lives. He calls Kim. The hostages are locked in a secret house outside of Anyang. But Chris doesn't have to be involved in such things. He says he wants to try something. Let his family be properly protected in his absence. Chris arrives at the building where the hostages are being held. He enters the room. This man then gave the order to retreat. He's probably one of the leaders. Chris wants to make sure he doesn't tell them anything. He's really not going to talk. Then it will hurt a little. Torture won't work on him, but it's not as impressive as torture. Then maybe it's worth trying it on his friend first. A dangerous collaboration with Piero is begun. While he is with Chris, the pain is under his control. It is capable of touching internal organs. He squeezes the heart of the group leader. He falls. He'll tell you everything. Just let Chris stay away. Chris tells him to record his testimony and give it to him. Kim put together all the information received from the hostages. It will be easier to gather more information using what they already have. There is very little information about the Anderson Guild, and they continue to deny any wrongdoing. Chris must meet them in person. Kim thinks it's too dangerous, but Chris is just going to talk to them. Kim won't let him in. No one knows what the hot-tempered guild leader Anderson is capable of. If things go badly, Chris can leave, even if their entire management attacks him. He will set an example for others by using the Anderson Guild. They will leave tomorrow night. Kim will increase security at Chris's house just in case. At night, he arrives at the Anderson Guild headquarters. He has confirmation that Chester is in the office now. He has a reliable observer. He said that Steven is not in the building now. Steven is one of those people Chester keeps around for his own benefit. He takes care of his little sister. It's touching. But Chris can't afford to show affection. He approaches the office. A guard stops him and asks if he is a member of the Anderson Guild. Chris says to tell Chester that Guildmaster Lace is here. He can come in. He will be shown into the office. This elevator will take him to the 5th floor, where those who will take Chris further are waiting. He gets out of the elevator. He is met with weapons at the ready. He knew that everything would take too long. So this is the kind of hospitality they show to members of other guilds. This is the Anderson Guild. Chris must follow their rules if he wants to live. He says it's stupid. Chris should know his place. He started out as an F-rank hunter. This chatter about ranks again. He's heard enough of it. Chris awakens the power of the Lord of Pain. It envelops the members of the Anderson Guild. It looks like one of them is having a heart attack. Chris can't enter until he says what he's doing here. Here, Chester's voice invites him to come into the office. Chris enters. Chester is standing at the window, and Chris is very impudent, probably because he is still a young man. Chester could do with giving his subordinates a lesson in etiquette. He offers Chris a drink. But he's not here to make empty talk. The boss would probably settle down on his comfortable sofa if he doesn't mind. Chris's house was recently attacked. It's terrible, but an attack on a bronze guild is not that rare. Chris asks if Chester got his message. Apparently, he claims that he had nothing to do with the attack. If Chris deals with him now, he will come under suspicion. He asks if he can do with the prisoners as he sees fit. Chester doesn't know these people, and Chris is perhaps too reckless. If he wants to survive, he shouldn't jump above his head. He is a cute puppy with milk still on his lips. He seems to be laughing. He just wanted to capture that expression on Chester's face. He wants to check it in a week. I wonder if Chester will have as much fun. Chris returns to the Lace Guild office. Everything went as expected. Chris has sounded the warning. All that remains is to start the war. Several guilds are watching them. After all, there was a rumor that they had obtained a treasure from a hidden dungeon. If they want to go against the Anderson Guild, we need to deal with them first. They were unable to identify the bodies found in Chris's house. Perhaps whoever was behind the attack deliberately made it difficult to identify the bodies. John So didn't like the attitude of the special investigator they sent here. If they control the Special Forces Department, the organizer must be a high-ranking politician or the president of a large corporation. If this is true, then they are out of luck with the enforcement force. Although their funds were protected by a secret fund, they barely expanded the executive branch. Calling the police for help is too risky. Kim believes the only option is to conduct an unofficial battle. John's phone rings. A problem has arisen. 4 members of their guild were brutally murdered last night. The Special Police Department believes that this is the work of hunters. They may be trying to sow fear in the members of the Lace Guild. They look down on Chris. Kim said they would lose if they relied on executive power. We need to tell everyone to focus on protecting their people. Kim is ashamed that he gave in then. It is his duty to do everything to help Chris. He tells John to get him a photo of the Anderson Guild's leadership and their names. This will take 3 hours. Chris also needs information about the Murray University Hospital. This could be the key to one of Anderson's guild leaders' weakness. 2 people are standing under the bridge. Yesterday, their team received a list of targets from the Lace Guild. Now they have a real war with them. They will finally relax after the stagnation. But it's a small guild. They won't even have fun. Today, Pascal had already killed 1 member of the Lace Guild, a D-rank hunter in his 20s, who seemed to have just awakened. But the order was sent only yesterday. Pascal probably held back for too long. He worked on his corpse. They probably wet their pants there. Well done. Maybe there's a chance to have some fun. Suddenly, someone attacks the one who called the other Pascal. He falls into the river. The darkness of Hasashin is near. Pascal doesn't feel anyone's presence. They seem to be having a cheerful conversation. Chris attacks Pascal from above. He realizes that it is Chris. It was Pascal who killed the newcomer to the guild, Leish. He asks to spare him. That hunter also asked, but he killed him mercilessly, so Chris will do the same. It seems he eliminated all the Anderson Guild leaders who were monitoring their people. They're probably panicking right now. That bastard Chester is going to be furious. The Lace Guild lost 4 core members and 6 newcomers. Anderson, meanwhile, lost 20 senior members of its staff, including 5 managers and 2 executives. There were no clues left, and this was the first time the department had seen such a masterful covering up of tracks. They killed 20 people in 2 days, including 7 managers. Chester heard that they were attacked yesterday, but for some reason they couldn't be defeated. If Steven has any excuses, let him lay them out. All forces were mobilized for the attack, but the enemy's stealth skills were incredible. They couldn't even detect them, let alone attack. Manager Kevin Stone even set a trap to attack at dawn, but nothing worked. According to the survivor, they were ambushed, and when he came to, everyone, including the leader, was killed. Kevin Stone is an A rank and his group is a B rank, and they were somehow wiped out in an instant. Chester isn't going to believe this nonsense. The bastards from the Ace Guild are bronze rank at best, and they can't handle them. However, their guildmaster awakened twice. The most important thing now is that they are under attack. An A-rank hunter and 2 B-rank hunters were defeated in the blink of an eye because he felt stupid for being used. This means that at best, someone of A rank or higher intervened. At worst, someone of S rank. They never lost like that because everyone they faced was weaker. But in this hunt, they are not the predators. More than 9 leaders have died in the last 24 hours. The situation is getting too escalating. They have to do something. Amanda probably thinks the same way as Steven. They cannot allow themselves to be trampled any further. They must do everything possible. Their strength had weakened. If they fought the leaders of the Lace Guild in this state, they would definitely lose. Amanda didn't say they had to fight their leaders. They would target the regular guild members. And from the footage, Amanda realized they hadn't mobilized their entire top ranks to fight terrorism. This means they can handle them. But if they continue to carry out terrorist attacks, the department will definitely intervene. It was Steven's job to keep them quiet. Amanda thought he was competent, but it seemed he wasn't. He will do what he can. It turns out that they are going to go after the members of the Lace Guild, regardless of whether they pose a threat. If Lace uses the situation correctly, it could lead them to victory. Even if the special police squad doesn't take care of it, they still have a chance. There is no guarantee that they will get any conclusive evidence implicating Anderson's guild in this matter. If they make even one mistake, admitting everything can break them. Chris didn't expect that their next decision would be a terrorist attack. They must feel cornered. Chris calls Kim. He had just received word from his informant that the Anderson Guild would be expanding their offensive, targeting the guild's regular members. In that case, it will be difficult for them to repel their attack with just the executive department. There is no need to resist them. Just show them that the Lays Guild is trying its best. It would be enough to simply escalate the case to involve the special police department. However, they must protect their comrades at all costs. Kim will contact the special department. 5 permanent and 6 temporary guild members are dead. The losses are greater than Chris thought. No one came from the special police department. If they had retreated, they would not have suffered such losses. John has to help the CEO. Chris will take care of the special forces problem. The CEO definitely contacted them, which means they are ignoring them. Chris calls Sam. He's been up to his ears in work ever since he was assigned to the 3rd Investigation Department. Chris apologizes for asking him for something when he hasn't called him in a long time. Sam says he can ask him for anything. They are friends after all. Chris asks if he knows any journalists working for well-known newspapers or radio stations. He says he knows a few, which means he will soon get a scoop. Soon articles come out about indiscriminate terrorism against certain guilds and the deaths of dozens of people. The Special Police Department is silent. Their corruption cannot be tolerated. The Special Police Department has set up a search party. It must be difficult for them to sit idly by after everyone has taken notice of what is happening. They sent 2 squads and a platoon, a total of 120 men. The platoon was located in the guild building, and 2 squads were sent to the highways and underground tunnels that Lace most often uses for travel. Since Anderson's guild now has to watch its reputation, they will stop attacking for a while. But they still don't have any solid evidence. Then Chris will have to look for it on his own. The only one who can attack Anderson's guild knowing that their hands are tied is him, who has received Hasashin's blessing. Chris will stay at home for a while. Kim, of course, knows what he means. He will prepare everything necessary for his alibi. This is the morning agenda for the Anderson Guild executive meeting. Although Kim got this information from an informant Chris introduced him to, he hopes he impressed him. Hasashin's merciless darkness envelops him, and as long as the darkness is with him, he remains a shadow. Chris is truly amazing. There's no way Chester actually wanted to use this, and Steven found out about it very quickly. He's the CEO, his people run it. It would be strange if he didn't know. Chester had promised not to use it, and what's more, even a special police department intervened in the situation. But a lot has changed since then. Although they were not mentioned in the news, it looked like they were the instigators of this indiscriminate terrorism. Just like last time, Steven says things that the CEO shouldn't say. All witnesses should be killed. Chester won't explain anything anymore. Steven can leave. Even the Anderson Guild's managers couldn't get away with killing so many people. Chester asks how Steven's sister is doing. Chester does a lot for him, so let him do his job properly. He has nothing more to say. There will certainly be evidence left. Eventually, Steven is escorted out by security. Chris attacks the Anderson Guild members. They're not even high rank. He was told he had 20 people to deal with. But they all turned out to be weaklings. It was because of weaklings like him that Harry was called here in the middle of the night. They will say they saw nothing. On the contrary, he saw too much. Harry is trying to get rid of even witnesses, like a psycho. He injects himself with something and turns into a monster. Maybe he should break their skulls. He can't kill them quickly after finally getting out of the basement after a long time. It would be too boring. There is no doubt that these strange mutations are a side effect of the drug Berserk. So, the Anderson Guild is using an illegal drug. That's the crucial evidence Chris was looking for. He attacks Harry. It looks like the rat has arrived uninvited. Chris had some kind of disagreement with the Anderson Guild. Karsago's shield of justice protects him. However, it did not save him from the damage caused by Harry's blow. It seems that Karsago's blessing has no effect on him. Sidon Miller's sword of courage is nearby. But even his sword has no effect on Harry. He grabs Chris. He was wrong to decide to stick his nose in here and run into trouble without even bringing reinforcements with him. It would be a shame to kill him right away. Maybe we should cut off his hands first. Blessings don't work due to Harry's physical changes. Chris still has to protect the witnesses and the members of the Lace Guild. And not only them. A blinding light flashes. The Defender of Justice, Durandal, pays tribute to Chris's just judgment, and Durandal's spirit and will are within him. As long as Chris remains on the side of justice, Durandal will not leave him. Such a wound could not heal instantly. Harry asked why Chris was asking for trouble without backup. But he has reinforcements, an army of 990,000 warriors. A light flashes in the sky. The flash hits the ground. After some time, a crowd gathers at the scene. Luckily, the witnesses survived, and Anderson's guild will soon be closed. Kim has already contacted the department. He even brought coffee, and Chris is already leaving. But if he stays here, The alibi they worked so hard on will be useless. Kim hopes he returns safely. And let him check the internet tomorrow. There was some funny news there. These bastards couldn't deal with the only witness. Chester gives Steven one last chance. He wants him to bring him Chris's head. Well done. Chris didn't think the news would hit like it did. Even though Kim is a B rank, his work is good enough for an SSS rank. For some reason today, he is much more excited than usual. They contacted the special police department. They said that they would start acting if they were given evidence unofficially, and added that even without it, they would start in 3 days. Then it's better not to transfer anything, especially since there is a chance of negotiations with the Anderson Guild. They asked to give everything to them unofficially in order to take credit, even though they ignore all requests to copy them. And one more thing, Guild Executive Manager Anderson has requested an official meeting. He is already waiting in the hall. He said that he will wait as long as it takes. He can pass. Steven thanks Chris for accepting his request. Romanov's gaze sees right through everyone. Steven's true name is Honorary Assassin. He is different from the greedy slave trader Chester, and they are clearly on bad terms. Steven believes that Chris has information about the Anderson Guild. The guild master said that if the Laces agree to the deal, they are willing to give them 3 A-rank weapons and establish a relationship. Chris wants to know what Chester really wants. He doesn't believe that Steven came to negotiate. Apparently Chester, who previously helped with Kate's medical bills, is now holding her hostage, and he told Steven to bring him Chris's head. He sees his blade, he better put it away and not be stupid anymore. Even if they had no evidence, the department would have come forward within 3 days. If they intervene, the unofficial war will have to be stopped. Steven probably counted how many of their hunters had died in 3 days. It will be difficult for them to do anything because of public opinion. Steven must bring as many high-ranking hunters as he can to the Lace Guild and join the guild. Chris doesn't believe that the idiot Chester could build such a guild. So let Steven take Chris's hand. Guildmaster will definitely kill Kate. He's crazy. If Steven just stands there, nothing will change. Chris has an informant following Chester. That's why he knows his plans with such precision. Steven will work with him for a maximum of 3 more days. He must make a choice, either stay there and die, or join the Lays Guild and protect the people dear to him. Steven wants Chris to protect his sister. He doesn't know what his intentions are, but he was the one who sent the soldiers, and he will be able to climb onto the guillotine himself. But if Chris is still willing to take his hand, he agrees. He will be back soon. Steven said his relationship with Chester had deteriorated, but it's not clear if he can be trusted. He informs the Anderson Guild members that Lace wants to join them. They want Steven to bring as many hunters to them as possible. That's why he tells the 2 of them about this proposal. It might be a trap, since they attacked the Lays Guild. Chester lost all common sense. He even ordered the witnesses to be killed. And the worst thing is, he used it. But Berserk is strictly prohibited. And Chester broke it. But in the end, this monster didn't kill anyone because someone disabled it. The Lace Guild has evidence that Anderson is behind the past attacks. In 3 days, the Special Police Department will begin the invasion. Anderson is nothing more than a tower built on blood. But now it is nothing more than an uninhabited building. There is an explosion here. Steven orders that as many executives as possible be taken away from here. He will gain some time to escape. They only need to save those who will be useful to them. Steven was slowly soaking through with blood and didn't even realize he was drowning. His death will be the atonement for his sins. Chester calls Steven. They're in trouble. The guild was suddenly attacked. The person who reported this is immediately attacked. They haven't seen each other for a long time. Chester doesn't recognize him, but he clearly remembers his face when he looks in the mirror. It turns out that many people were just as eager to see Chester as he was. Chester begs for mercy. He will beg them as much as they want, but they are not going to spare him. Steven managed to bring back 36 hunters, which was all that remained of the Anderson Guild's main management force. They were attacked by other guilds who held a grudge against Chester. Chris did say he had an informant. Without a leader, the Anderson Guild will be disbanded. So Steven is no longer in any danger. He may no longer feel guilty about joining the Lace Guild. Chris yelled at him just to set the mood. He's been a bit busy lately. He stayed up all night trying to lure someone away without further problems. They will talk about transferring the rest of the staff tomorrow. Now Steven is scared of Kim. He tells him to wipe that smirk off his face. Chris has done a lot for Steven, but the most outstanding member of the guild remains Kim. So this is the so-called dominant hierarchy. Kim suggests going up to the roof for a minute. Maybe this place is the same as Anderson's guild. Chris is a good man. He didn't break under the pressure of obstacles. He cannot help but lend a hand to those suffering for the safety of his loved ones. Steven is no fool. He understands what the favor they did him means. If anyone sees them, they will think that Kim is making fun of them. Obviously, such methods were used in the Anderson Guild. But one should not think that everything is the same in Lays. Suddenly, Kim grabs Steven. Personally, he is not happy with the situation. Chris tried to recruit someone who was against their guild by sacrificing so much money and people. And yet Steven might betray them. If Kim had his way, he would have let go. Things will end badly for Steven if he disappoints Chris. Kim will be keeping a close eye on him. And he better not be doing any rooftop bullying. Chris hates that. Kim is scary but different from Chester. Steven thought everything would be resolved once he left the Anderson Guild. In any case, it looks like his connection with this guild is over. The butcher is pleased with the blood he so desired. When Chris met the Anderson Guild, and ever since he encountered Berserker, this dagger was constantly vibrating. The appraiser said the butcher gets stronger as he grows. Since he said he was satisfied, it was time to reveal his new power. Chris brings the dagger to the appraiser. Judging by the amount of mana, this is an A rank item. But when it was first evaluated, it was B rank. This item gets stronger as it grows. Here's the evaluation report. It looks like a new ability has been discovered. This is blade control. This is more than enough. Even his appearance has changed. Chris gets a call from Kim. He heard the news that the Lays Guild had been awarded the silver rank. Chris did it. He starts running. Kim is still trying to talk to him on the phone when he bursts into the office. The Lace Guild became silver, but only for 2 weeks. The place occupied by the Anderson Guild became vacant after their disbandment. To secure a spot for them, they must clear 3 A-rank dungeons within 2 weeks. Chris needs to talk to the captain of the cleanup team. He has a new ability he would like to try out. If they take over the dungeon with Chris and Kim in the first group, there won't be any problems. It won't take long to get to the dungeon, and since it's close, Chris will be able to easily ask for backup if needed. Alan asks when Chris plans to start. In 2 days, Chris is dating Lisa. He apologized for keeping her waiting. It's getting chilly. They should meet in the guild building, but Lisa loves the cool and refreshing autumn. She learned that she was also participating in the capture of the A-rank dungeon. Chris can tell she's worried. They were always outsiders in the shelter, beaten, humiliated, and threatened. Maybe that's why Lisa keeps thinking about bad things. But at the same time, she has other thoughts about what kind of happiness will await her if she overcomes all this. And since they are now doing things they never dreamed of before, she thinks she can overcome it. Chris has come a long way. We must clear this dungeon at all costs. Lisa stroked Chris's head. This was so unlike her. We need to calm down and think about reaching silver rank and becoming stronger. 990,000 past lives support his continuous development. Romanov believes that Chris has already grown up enough. It seems they can't treat him like a child anymore. But it would be pointless to tell him the real goal if he himself did not intervene. Since they are just outside support, Pierre would like to ignore this desire. Durandal fell asleep again. When this man appears, it will be the beginning of their flourishing road. Sidon Miller thinks it's too late. This guy just showed up. One of those who defy fate, Deus. He showed up earlier than expected, but he should come on that day anyway. Now it's all in Chris's hands. Hasashin shouldn't use improvised means more than necessary. He says he's preparing for that day, but Sidon isn't thrilled with his methods. Neither he nor Durandal will be able to stop Chris as long as he is strong enough. When that day comes, they will have to become more brutal to win the war. Chris's past lives again. His name is Deus. He is the absolute will, representing 990,000 lives. He is here to check one thing before interfering with Chris's fate. This is what can give him hope before the coming despair. They're coming. Deus can't tell who it is now, but Chris won't have the slightest chance of surviving this disaster without a blessing. If he gets Deus's blessing, he will have a chance. But on the other hand, they will know about his existence. They will send at least S-rank fighters who will be difficult to deal with. If Chris doesn't get the blessing, the fighters won't come. But the day of reckoning will definitely come. They don't know when it will happen, but if he escapes, he will buy some time. With Deus's blessing, his strength will not be comparable to his current one. Chris asks for your blessing, he will not run away. From now on, Deus's absolute will intervene in his destiny. Just think. Someone already meets the requirements. Problems arise while clearing the dungeon. Chris has important work for Kim. He must protect Lisa with all his might. Chris appears to be losing consciousness. Perhaps now he understands that he shouldn't go too far. He needed to stay in the Bronze Guild. He was too naive, or rather too arrogant. A week earlier, the news reported that low-ranking hunters had been disappearing lately. All news about one thing. They must strengthen the guild's defense. Then Kim burst in. Their guild was officially promoted to silver level. Kim thought he wouldn't live to see this day. Due to the promotion, Paldalgu and Suyan was designated as their raid zone. This means that it is in their interest to clean out Paldalgu, as the competition there is the toughest. And there a gate appeared. Perhaps this is the very chance Deus was talking about. The leader of the Suyan team will be brief. The supposed location is located in Paldalgu and Inye-do. The approximate difficulty of the raid is A rank. The people here are other guild masters and representatives from Paldalgu. Monsters will appear from suddenly appearing gates. Jane Lee, Vice Guild Master of the Great Demon Guild, asks if Lace will exercise her priority rights. Of course, because they received these rights fairly. In that case, the Great Demon Guild will not use its priorities. Jane wants to see how good Lace is. The other guilds decide that they won't use priorities either. It seems like Jane is going to play with lives. But she didn't say they wouldn't block the raid. Chris is sure there is evil intent behind this. When the kids, just out of bronze, want to face the raid, they can't stop them. Instead, Lace will use exclusive rights. Jane's true name is Greedy Ally. If Chris continues to be so tactless, she might get angry. There is no need to talk down to him. Jane doesn't understand what scared her so much. Since the other guilds have abandoned the use of priorities, Lace will be in an exclusive position. Jane will show Chris what happens when you disrespect a gold-ranked guild. Exclusive rights will simply give them control over the front position. The fact that other guilds will be slightly behind will not turn the raid into a disaster. Awakened hunters have always achieved what others thought was impossible. And he is quite friendly, allowing the Lays Guild, whom he meets for the first time, to use exclusive rights without objection. Of all the guilds that are in the special raid zone in Paldalgu, the Great Demons Guild is the only one that has a gold level. It is unknown who is behind them, but they constantly hold their position, and other gold guilds do not interfere. These people are quite suspicious. Perhaps it's time to overthrow them. Chris knows that this dialogue must remain secret. By the way, due to the attention of the Great Demons Guild, they have no way to support Lays in this area. This is an A-rank raid. Not many people are able to participate in it. Chris has an ace up his sleeve. The revelation of Deus descended upon him. By accepting the consequences, he takes upon himself the fate of disobeying the decrees of fate. Chris Newman himself contacted the leader of the raid team, Jim Steele, first, which was unexpected. This is their first meeting since the last raid, so he finally decided to join their guild. Chris's connections are impressive. Jim would like to get to the point. Chris probably wants to request support from raid teams. They asked for exclusive rights. Chris is incredible as always. All he can say is that the gates must be closed. And as a reward, Jim and his guild will be able to get a lot of interesting things. Following Deus's revelations, Chris creates a bond that can change his destiny, a bond that will connect him with the one who will overcome his despair. He is willing to give Jim 20%. B-rank hunters will arrive when the gate opens. Jim could have reported it on the radio. Chris is too valuable to let go so easily. He can give up the hard work of being a guild master and raids with Jim. There is no word for surrender in his vocabulary, so he will come later. He has a heavy hand. Kim can feel it in her bones. Jim's true name is a believer in justice. You must try to keep the earphone during the fight. The first team will go forward. If there is no connection, they must retreat. The gates are open. The fog is too thick. Hasashin's insidious laughter warns of danger. This is living armor. It will be difficult to resist it without magic. Chris will create a path to the center of the gate, so we need to protect Lisa. She activated the Holy Shield. It seems to be here. This is the center of the gate. We need to get out before they disappear. Lisa suddenly felt a surge of mana. Chris blocked the monster's attack. They are resurrected. Then someone else showed up. This is Jane. She was dying to see Chris again. She's not here for this trivial raid. A piece of shit who just entered the silver level behaved disrespectfully in front of her. She was not happy. She would only be happy if she gave back what she received. Jane came for revenge. She is an awakened who specializes in support. Her combat capabilities shouldn't be too high. She's trying to kill them just because they use the exclusive right. The rest of the raid must retreat. The situation in the heart of the gate is not too good. Chris fights the resurrected monsters. Jane activates revival and power-up. Chris continues to defeat monsters. He launches a column of light. Chris then tries to attack Jane. She dodges the blows. Something flashes above Chris's head. It's a buffing magic. They won't be able to fight off monsters while they're dealing with it. Living Armor's mana has been significantly increased. The will of Danzig is near. As long as the one who needs to be protected is here, Chris will not lose. It activates blade control. It's too dangerous to continue like this. We need to hit Jane with one blow. The monster hits Kim. Sometimes people awaken special abilities when they reach a certain level. In Jane's case, it's control over monsters. She will end things with Chris peacefully. He will be presumed dead during the raid. In the end, they are just amateurs who don't know their place. Someone activates the wall of flame. Jane is even more hopeless than she seemed. Chris and Lisa look pretty battered, but okay, it would be a bit sad if they died. Julia heard that Lace had taken advantage of the exclusive rights, so she came to take a look. And then she discovered a familiar flow of mana. It would be sad if the person she planned to observe died. Let Lisa protect Chris and Tom so that they don't accidentally burn. Jane calls for reinforcements. Julia raises a wall of fire. All of Jane's dolls have burned. Now it's Julia's turn to show off. I wonder if Jane has ever seen an S-rank hunter's magic. At this rate, they will be consumed by flames. Lisa's shield can't withstand that much. A whirlwind of fire rises. Chris sees an unfamiliar ceiling. He remembers encountering Jane in the center of the gate and losing consciousness after Anna arrived. What a relief. Lisa is alive and well. Chris was unconscious for almost a week. Kim's injuries are quite severe, so he is only halfway through his treatment, and it looks like his recovery will be delayed. Alan Gray is currently serving as the director. Chris comes into Kim's room. He shouldn't get up. Let him lie back down before Chris gets angry. Kim fell first. There is no excuse for him. Chris is still touched. He told Kim to protect Lisa, but he didn't expect him to literally put his life on it. It turns out that they are in the jail hospital. Since Chris failed and is now in debt to jail's group, I wonder what Julia's next move will be. It is indecent to discuss people behind their backs. This is Kevin, and Julia needs no introduction. Chris thanks her for her help. If she hadn't helped them, they would have died. She only came because she was interested in seeing Lace's first exclusive squad, and she helped because the situation demanded it. Although it would be nice if Chris moved to jail's group. It's better to use this meeting as an opportunity to discuss some things. Chris has a lot of enemies, Julia knows that. He believes that an alliance with Jill is truly beneficial for them. Chris wants Jill to become a shield for the Lace Guild. He knows what he's talking about. Then he must understand that this puts Jail in a risky position. There must be a good reason or advantage to such a risk. This is building a relationship with a future SSS rank hunter. Going from F rank to C rank and then A rank in just half a year is a great achievement. But it's nothing special for reawakened ones. They are rare, but they don't have the same unreasonable demands as Chris. He is more than confident that he will be promoted to S rank. Just don't tell me that Julia was pestering the idiot all this time. As far as she knows, Chris was promoted to A rank not too long ago. The requirements can be circumvented if one has monstrous strength. If he has it, Julia will help him. She will have no other choice. Julia thinks highly of Chris, but he's going to be a real problem if he keeps acting this stupid. Let him show what he can do first. Then she will think about investing. When he is ready, let him write to this number. Chris is curious about what happened to Jane. He, of course, knows that Julia is famous for having the best fire magic in Korea. She really didn't want to trample the growing shoot. But she had been under so much stress from work lately. After all, she was only human and could make mistakes. They closed the gate in front of Jane while she was alive. If luck was on her side, she survived. If not, she died, due to a rift in the spatial rift. But it will remain between them. If Chris tells anyone, it won't end well. There were no raids planned for Jane, meaning she acted of her own free will. The Great Demon Guild would probably think that she just suddenly disappeared. Maybe Chris is asking the wrong person for help. He may also suddenly disappear or find himself on a lonely boat at sea if he does not live up to Julia's expectations. When she said she wanted to show Chris what he could do, she probably meant a fight. His opponent will most likely be Julia herself, since Jail's group does not have an official guild and there are not many S-rank hunters in it. Then Chris has two options. Either he shows what he is capable of, or he loses and disappears from the face of the earth. Julia seems very ambitious. If she knows about Chris's merits, she will definitely make her contribution. He writes to her that he will show her what he is made of. We need to invite Chris to the training ground and choose Julia's day off this week as the date. The amount of compensation for the guild that used the exclusive right is tens of billions. They were robbed right in front of their noses. If it weren't for Chris, they could have gotten their share. And Jane disappeared somewhere. But it was she who played too much, and that's why Lace received exclusive rights. She's probably just ashamed to be put in her place. Jane's brother is standing behind. She should be found soon, and she will hang the heads of the members of the Lace Guild in the main square. Someone comes to Chris's office. This is his most trusted assistant, Jim Steele. Chris gives him a receipt for helping them on the raid. This is a bill for $570 million. Jim can't look. His eyes are blinded by the brilliance and grandeur. He will always treat Chris like an older brother. It looks like he believes in money rather than justice. They should celebrate it. This guy is crazy. He makes such a fuss when he drinks alcohol. Jim's guild are just idiots who have nothing but passion, which is why they were poor until recently. It's such a relief that everything went as planned. Perhaps now wise Chris will become a member of Jim's guild. He's joking. If there's an opportunity for a raid, have Chris call him. Hasashin's insidious laughter warns of danger. Behind him, Jim takes out a weapon, but not to attack Chris. A monster has appeared. The High Priest must give him another chance. Chris thinks it's a human, but this creature can't be called a human. He must make a sacrifice to the Guardian of Order for the ceremony. Jim seems to have had too much to drink. He is seeing strange things. Something is going on here, And it's not an ordinary case, since Hasashin warned Chris. The smell was so terrible that it sobered Jim up. He suggests contacting the special police department, but this isn't a dungeon with monsters roaming around. He hardly wants to get involved. It would be better if they left quietly. Jim's mood suddenly dropped. There's something here. It looks like a mana stone, but the color is unusual. Gilles de Rais, a madman who has discovered the truth, shows great interest in the unusual substance. Deus spins the wheel of fate. Hasashin sighs. Sidon Miller wishes Chris luck with his predestined despair. Carsago promises himself as a shield. Hope bestows a melody of victory. Chris suggests going back to the office. It began, the despair Deus spoke of. He needs to get stronger as quickly as possible. A car pulls up to Chris's house. It would be bad if he ran out of strength already. It's strange that the guildmaster doesn't have a driver's license. Chris says it's because he doesn't have free time. Then Julia will check if he has S-rank hunter skills. They come to her personal training ground. This is one of the privileges of the planning director and S-rank hunter. Chris will have to wait a long time to retake the S-class exam. But if he fights Julia for 30 minutes, she can arrange it in a moment. If he doesn't hold out, she will consider all their agreements as null and void. She underestimates Chris too much. The chairman told her that the world was a battlefield, and only those who could survive until the end would be considered worthy people. And what is really good is that those who are priceless die. To prove her worth and for Jail's sake, Julia honed her strength. If Chris wants Jail's power, let him prove his worth. Jane attacks. Chris activates the sword manifestation. He seems to be constantly learning new skills from somewhere. Now is not the time to ask questions. However, something is wrong. Chris got hit, and this blow is very powerful. Chris almost died. It's incredible how fast Julia is. She activates Fire Breath. Chris thought she was weak in close combat since she was a mage. Not only is she talented, but she also knows how to use power to her advantage. The blood awakened the Reaper instinct. Chris received the blessing of Hasashin. Jane no longer felt his presence. She had to admit that she admired Chris's skills. But strength is not for showing off, but for using. There is no elegance in this approach. Chris uses a trick to distract Julia. He admits that she is truly incredible. A person does everything in his power to survive, no matter what methods. So there is no need to say that only her method is correct. Her father told her that there was no place for useless people in jail. Chris took all these blows to use the power of Carsago. This will ensure that Gilles is on his side and Lace will prosper. Julia activates the dust explosion. Time's up. Julia will keep Chris's advice in her heart, even though they will no longer have a reason to meet. After all these attacks, he can still stand. Not long ago, he was what Julia would have called useless. But this same man is now standing on the battlefield. The ability to persevere in any situation is a value he has proven today. Chris falls. Just now he was with Julia, and now he's wearing armor. Finally, even he came. Hasashin speaks to the captor. The invasion command classified him as a risk factor. No matter how many of them Hasashin destroyed, he still manages to crawl out. This is why Hasashin must die. Chris wakes up. It seems that these were Hasashin's memories. To upgrade to S rank, Chris must have the recommended dungeon clearance level. His level is lower, so Julia goes with him to tell them to reconsider the terms. The judges are very strict, especially when they come for S rank. And if Chris gets confused or flustered in front of them, Julia's reputation will suffer. It seems she forgot that Chris is also the guild leader. She says this so that he is prepared. There is no telling what they might do. Julia was once reprimanded by an examiner for having curly hair. They are met by the same examiner. He asks to keep quiet in the corridor. First, Chris's magical power will be measured. Gilles de Rais, a maniac seeking the truth, became interested in him. He offers a bet we need to destroy the measuring sphere, and then this magician will notice Chris. It might break if he uses it. The sphere actually breaks. It was designed to withstand SSS rank magical power. It is unlikely that there is even a single hunter of this rank in Korea. They have been using this sphere for a long time, but it is a very expensive thing. Julia makes it up to them. There are 150 million here. Julia carries that kind of money with her. The examiner should take care of the level requirements if he does not want the fact of irresponsible attitude towards the equipment to come to light. Julia is stern, even though it was Chris who broke the sphere. The exam turned out to be very quick and easy. This is because they are all busy people. But it's still an S-rank assessment, and it takes less than half an hour. Chris's phone suddenly starts vibrating very loudly, even though he didn't seem to have vibration turned on. It turns out that this is not a phone, but a mana stone. Julia asks where he got it. They come to the special police department. This is a black mana stone. There was an order to urgently report the discovery of such stones. Sean Smith and Julia's true names are the righteous agent and the addicted to perverted affection. Sean investigated this issue back when he was an A-rank hunter, of course. This is classified information. Now they are in the same boat, and there is no way to get out of it. Chris asks if it's related to Jail's group, but Julia asks him not to ask personal questions. The stone is exactly the same as the one recently discovered by a secret investigation team. Something always happened to those who kept this stone. They either died or became incapacitated. Jim should have called right away. He is Chris's right-hand man. They entered the alley and saw how the strange creature turned into dust. And in its place, there remained a stone of black mana. Sounds similar to previous reports. Suddenly an alarm sounds and all personnel are asked to be prepared for an attack. They will arrive in no time. This was never mentioned in the media. Maybe Chris heard about the information blockade. The current situation in Korea is not as good as he thinks. Julia activates the absolute shield. Something is coming. This creature looks like an ordinary human. They are the ones who have abandoned humanity. They think they are special. Chris activates blade control. The creature turns into a monster. He breaks the shield. Some liquid splashes on Chris. The damage from this liquid is dangerous. It would be better if they could avoid close combat. But even blade control doesn't work against this monster. Julia's shield is already at its limit. It has never been possible to capture such a creature before. Chris will definitely prove his worth to Julia right here. The monster and Julia collide in a blow. Reaper's intent to kill was awakened. The monster attacks. Jim uses a wind cutter. Chris wields Seidenmiller's sword. It's incredible that just a couple of months ago he was an F rank. Chris has grown noticeably, but there is no need to become arrogant. The High Priest must give another chance. This is an S-rank magic reaction. It looks like an attack that manipulates the mind. The will of Deus interferes with fate. Chris opens his eyes. This is the room of his past lives. He fought someone who ate the Black Mana Stone. It feels like Julia is hiding something. Chris finds himself in front of the door. He is like a madman on the threshold of truth. A pillar of light appears in front of him. It looks like an alchemist's or a sorcerer's room. His name is Gilles de Reis. Chris became addicted to magic through the Black Mana Stone. Gilles suffered from it many times. All past lives immediately reacted upon meeting this stone, and for some reason people turn into monsters. Everyone should take care of this. Gilles cannot go into details yet. They are bound by the ban, but now the probationary period has begun. And since Deus asked politely, Gilles will lend Chris his power. Since he is under the influence of Black Mana, he will soon die. And not only he, but also everyone who is somehow related to him. But if he passes the test, Gilles will reward him with a nullifying blessing. His knowledge needs to be deepened. These books are needed to pass the school assessment test. Gilles was a renowned professor at an elite academy. He won't even sit at the table with someone who is more stupid than him. Chris must learn everything in these books and get at least an A+. Then Gilles will tell you how to get rid of the influence of Black Mana. Torture would be better. Chris decided everything. However, his report card takes into account not only test results, but also attendance and approach. Nevertheless, Chris earned an A+. All knowledge related to magic circles will be transferred to him when he wakes up. Gilles de Reis' dark knowledge will help him. He managed to wake up, but it looks like he's still poisoned. We urgently need to use the magic of Gilles de Reis. Using the name of the Dark Truth, she forcibly extracts mana. Black mana took root in Chris's heart. This must be done. Julia doesn't understand where she is. There is no one here. It's the same as when she was younger. Julia's sister has already become a member of the group, and she has not yet proven her worth. She knows the ideology of the jail group. Useless people are better off dead. In that case, she'd be better off dead. Chris tries to heal Julia. She opens her eyes. Chris asks why there is sweat coming out of her eyes. Now is not the time for jokes, but thanks for saving me. They all did a good job. Enter Kevin. Julia needs to eat, and now is baking season. Sean offers Chris to make a deal with the Special Department, or more precisely, with the Republic of Korea. The purpose of the Special Department is to track down Black Mana Stones and punish their owners. Sean will fill Chris in on the details once he agrees to work with them. And since it's a secret mission, he'll be given an S-rank weapon and a tax exemption for his guild. Chris must definitely agree. This is that very weapon, the hellish Jean Madao. This is a sword whose owner has not yet been found, and few can withstand its power. Deus will destroy the sword's resistance. Julia feels a huge amount of mana. This sword has a voice. It asks if Chris woke it up. There's something strange about this mana. Chris is 25 years old, and for the first time in his life he meets a talking sword, who can't believe that its owner is just a child. Chris will ignore this for now. The days are getting colder. Julia will work with Chris to uncover the secret of the Black Mana Stone. She is sincerely grateful to him for saving her. He just repaid her. Julia saved him from Jane. Then they're even. Kim heard there was an attack. He hopes Chris is okay. Sean will contact him once they have gathered the information. Strange things are happening one after another. It would be better to spend the night in the Lay's Guild building. The sword emerges from the spatial storage. Chris dared to send him to such a dark and empty place. He hates noisy things the most, so let the sword go back. He is very useful. He can restore his mana by absorbing the blood of enemies, and even nullify high-level magic. Chris must execute the wicked. Maybe we should return this sword. Chris congratulates Kim on his promotion to A rank. He also congratulates all the other hunters who have been promoted. Chris heard that Lisa had been working hard while she and Kim were away. She was just doing what she had to do since she was the only one who wasn't hurt during the raid. Since she is always one step behind, relying on them is the least she can do. Everything is quite the opposite. Now Chris will be held accountable for the burden he allowed Lisa to bear all this time. Suddenly she faints. This chronic fatigue from dungeons. Since Lisa had nothing to do except work, she took on the affairs of others. From this day on, their guild is on a week's vacation. They are gathered in one place by order of the boss. It can hardly be called a vacation. Chris will be cursed. Even jail doesn't do things like that. You could call it the laze culture. The last time they saw each other, Julia acted like they weren't supposed to see each other for a while. But somehow she was here. After all, it was Chris who invited her. But he didn't think that she would actually come. They seemed to be on good terms. He summoned 5 A-rank elite hunters. Jane's brother Dan is about to perform the ceremony and gain the power he needs to avenge his sister. Dan must follow his instructions as befits a CEO. The hunters enter. Not quite the same, but they should be enough. Dan tells everyone to stand in line with the magic circle. The hunters don't understand what's happening. With this, Dan will be able to take revenge. Sean has found some important clues, and he suggests looking at these images first. This is the Great Demons Guild. Guilds of gold level and above hold regular meetings, and given the vast amount of authority they have, it is important to ensure that everyone is fulfilling their responsibilities. But the Great Demon Guild had not participated in these meetings for a long time. This is the Vice Guildmaster, Jane's older brother. There has been unrest in their guild ever since she went missing. One of the investigators from the special department went there. The guild was empty, as if no one had ever been there. Sean shows Julia a photograph. She's going to throw up. It looks like they held some kind of ceremony, like something out of a horror movie. Shortly after the investigator took these photos, he was attacked. Luckily, the camera was in a safe place, so they were able to retrieve its contents. It seems like someone used the Black Mana Stone, which leads them to believe that the Great Demons Guild was involved in the attack. This symbol also seems familiar. It was used by Jane during the exclusive raid. Her brother is looking for her. Chris will throw the bait. It will be up to Dan whether he bites or not. He receives a message from the Lace Guild asking if he wants to know where Jane is. Dan will tear Chris to pieces. They only laid the bait this morning, so they are prepared. There won't be a big scandal. Dan's reaction is more violent than they expected. Chris didn't dare do that. Dan would kill him. This can be considered an unofficial battle. Only the combat personnel remained inside. They had already occupied the first floor. The target has left its position and is on the roof. Alan will take charge of it. It activates a snow vortex. However, the demon intercepted his attack. He was going to have fun just killing Chris, but he changed his mind. It's unlikely to be easy, given Dan's mana. We need to get this over with quickly. Chris feels that everything is okay now. He's finally going to use the talking sword. Only now did Chris see the despair that Deus had spoken of. He runs into Dan. Chris and Alan should go down and help the others. He'll take over for Dan. Then let him not even mention asking for help. Chris is quite self-confident, which will make it even easier for Dan. If he kills him, he won't be able to find out what he needs. He wants to know where Jane is. He knows she was on the exclusive raid of the Lace Guild, but she still didn't return. Chris killed her. She is a member of the Golden Guild, who was pursuing them for personal gain and interfered with their raid. The spirit of the Deadly Reaper has awakened. Chris attacks. They fly from the roof. Dan made a blood pact and still lost. There is no excuse for him. They must look at this bloody pact. This may be related to the disappearances of low-level hunters, and the matter is taking on a much wider scope than it seemed. Chris didn't expect it to be so difficult. About a year ago, the Blood Oath Guild initiated contact. Soon it became golden. Borrowing the power of the Black Mana Stone, it turns the hunter into a monster. Reawakening can be caused intentionally. And the ritual of the Blood Oath is led by a person called the Executioner. There's more work than they thought. The special department should begin by pursuing the man known as the Blood Oath Executioner. Fortunately, there was no serious damage, and the guild building will not require much repair. Hasashin warns of an unknown presence behind Chris. He takes out his sword and attacks. This is S-rank hunter Mary Rice. Chris cut through his super rare invisible robe, which he risked his life for in the S-rank dungeon. Chris misunderstood her. She was just taking a photo. Mary asks if he knows who she is. Chris can't help but know her. She's a famous blogger with millions of subscribers on YouTube. She's geeky enough to carry a big camera around to get views, and yet she's a star YouTuber who's always in the spotlight. Since the guild building is only allowed for members, Chris must check her cell. Mary knows how strong he is. He could just turn a blind eye to it. Lace is a rising newcomer now, so she wanted to interview them. And now she has been caught and has lost all her secret virtues. If you use this situation correctly, you can take advantage of it. Mary's true name is attention-seeking. If she promises to do Chris a favor, he will help her get the footage she needs. Mary thinks he is going to involve her in some shady dealings. But she can get so many subscribers that 1 million will seem like a small thing. Then she will try. The Punisher is disappointed. It's been a long time since they were ordered to eliminate Chris, and he's still roaming around freely. They shouldn't do things that require forgiveness. After a recent series of failures, the bishop decided to keep a close eye on them, so they decided to correct their mistakes. The executioner cuts off heads. Throwing goals won't make all the non-existent mistakes disappear. The invader is about to show up, and they still haven't gotten rid of the problem element. They were the first to know about the appearance of the Chosen One, so Heron takes the initiative. This is solely for the sake of their blood covenant. They cannot disappoint them. But the executioner had not yet used all the creatures. The invader is coming. Trivial creatures like them can't do anything good. Heron appears. The Chosen One has already been identified. Heron orders all troops that can be mobilized to be gathered and destroyed immediately. From now on, they will wreak havoc. Chris's energy is completely drained. He took part in the filming of the interview with Mary, and only one greeting had to be reshot several times. Chris never wants to have an experience like that again. He does this to find who is behind the Black Mana Stones, but he still doesn't know anything about them. Something was preventing his past lives from solving this problem, even though each of them was more impressive than he was. Suddenly, Chris finds himself in Hasashin's room. He says they have appeared. This is an invasion team. They call themselves Invaders. Thanks to Chris, the ban was lifted. Hasashin can finally tell him about the purpose of his past lives, and what horrors he will face, and all the responsibilities that will fall on his shoulders. Chris remembers the memory of Hasashin that he saw. They are the ones that past lives could not overcome for many years. This is a group of invaders from another world. They tried to stop them and were defeated. Some fought side by side with their comrades and met their end. Others were killed by their own allies, who had been brainwashed by the invaders. And some died trying to establish peace. All 990,000 of Chris's past lives were defeated. The forces of the invaders are far beyond his imagination. But Chris just took care of some of them. Hasashin can tell by looking at Dan. Those Chris dealt with were not invaders. There is an invader, and behind him is a bishop, and black stone puppets that follow their orders. Chris encountered simple creatures. He always relies on past lives. He can't achieve what none of them could. Among all the chosen ones that Hasashin has met, Chris is the only one with unlimited potential. Although at first they had no faith, so they only watched him. Only he can fulfill their wish. Chris feels tension welling up inside him. They must have felt exactly the same. But they never gave up and continued to fight for the sake of their comrades and loved ones. If they've already lost 990,000 times, it's time to win. From this moment on, Chris accepts his destiny. They bless him with unlimited powers since the ban has been lifted, but only the one who can hinder him can also help. The only one who can give Chris strength is Hasashin. He inherited the will of Hasashin. The shadows will lead him into eternal darkness. Even in the brightest light, he will become a shadow. Sword senses that Chris has received the powers of darkness again. The energy emanating from him is completely different. The enemy he barely managed to defeat was just a low-level creature. Chris thought Alan was here. Kate runs to Chris. Alan tells her not to run. The Lays Guild promised her recovery. They also managed to get an excellent hunter. Breaking news, an unidentified crack has appeared in the sky over Gangnam-gu. Monsters are emerging from the crack. Hundreds of victims have already been confirmed. This might be a dungeon rift. However, these monsters are similar to Dan in the form of a creature, and they also use human language. We need Chris here right now. Julia is sure that those behind the Black Mana Stone emerged from the crack. The front line of defense has collapsed. They are already busy forming a second line. A-rank hunter Norman Lane is still missing. Even in this situation, he does whatever he wants. The second line is destroyed. And this is precisely when the opportunity arose to expose those behind this. You have to get to the middle of the crack, no matter what. An attack of this level has no chance. Here the monsters are engulfed in a whirlwind of flame. This is Chris and Julia. Information received from the observatory. The leader of the Blood Alliance, who is suspected to be behind the Black Mana Stone, is deep in the crack. We must think only about survival. They are advancing. Chris will go straight for the breakthrough. Julia must follow him without losing sight of him. The Shadow Master leads him into eternal darkness. He slew many monsters with one blow. This is the technique that Chris demonstrated in his fight with Julia. His sword senses the energy of a powerful being. This is natural, since Chris is covered in death energy. Julia feels the mana reaction. This is the Guildmaster of the Silver Guild, or rather, the creature that used to be the Guildmaster. It might be a side effect of gaining mana. It emits S-rank mana. If it weren't for Chris, they wouldn't be like this. More monsters begin to climb the building. Julia says to leave them to her and let Chris go into the crevasse. But she herself said that she felt S-rank mana. They shouldn't waste time when they can expose those behind this. Julia tried her best to become a worthwhile person because she had learned that useless people were better off dead. But Chris said he was able to endure any adversity without stopping at anything. So Julia gives him the opportunity to find out who is behind the Black Mana Stone. Let him go and come back alive. Chris comes out on the other side of the portal. He hopes that Julia will be okay. And not only with her, but also with Sean and Kim. There are also Steven and John. And also Alan and Jim, and not only them. There are also Chris's younger brothers and sisters, and the director of the shelter. And Lisa. Getting lost in your thoughts is great, but there's still some work to be done. The sword does not sense any presence. It seems there is no one nearby. Looks like the destination is over there. A powerful magical seal has been placed on the door. Gilles de Race's mana destroys it. Chris opens the doors. At last they met. He is an invader. His name is Heron. He will crush Chris like a worm. It is his destiny's fault that he was born chosen. His death will benefit the Blood Alliance and the Invaders' command center. So let him rejoice in his death. I wonder how long he can last. Sword suggests retreating for now, but Chris must face Heron face to face. He becomes a shadow and attacks from above. However, Heron has tremendous speed. For an insect like Chris, he's pretty impressive. Heron is also impressive because he goes through all this just to catch Chris. Suddenly Heron disappears. He appears again surrounded by his clones. These are not illusions, but real clones. The ban has been lifted. The powers of past lives are available. Reaper's cruel intentions were awakened. They will be crushed alive. They will not be able to bear the pain. Heron was left alone. He applies force, causing Chris to crash into the wall. Heron has faced many opponents who were crushed by him like insects. But he knows for sure that Chris's strength is on another level. However, this is Heron's kingdom, and he is no match for him. Chris charges in. His mind seems to be in complete confusion. His bloodlust is the same, but he is still not in his right mind. Chris falls. Heron is ready to strike. It looks like a rib is broken. Chris hasn't been in so much pain for a long time. Danzig protects him. He will withstand any difficulty. He is the one their command was looking for, so let him try until the very end. Chris was supposed to get the information and come back. He did something unnecessary. No, he chose to face his destiny, and he will not regret his decision even if he dies. Durandal pays tribute to his justice. Heron gave him too much time. Chris caught him off guard, but he was only human after all. He is unable to defeat him. He couldn't do it alone, but he's not alone. Chris strikes. Now he lies among the rubble. He can't move. Even breathing is difficult. Heron couldn't lose to a human. The order was to capture him alive, but he changed his mind. He will tear him apart until nothing remains of his body. Something is happening here. The crack is collapsing. Chris dared to destroy the Black Mana Stone. Heron will not forgive him. Chris finds himself in the air. Julia grabs him. Heron will definitely make him pay for this. The crack disappears. There is hardly any reason to feel relieved. Chris lost consciousness and appears to be seriously injured. Thanks to him and Julia, the rift was closed. Chris is here again. He can't wait to find out what kind of person he is this time. He is Begimos, the priest who consumes voids. If Chris can satisfy the void, she will bless him. Through the blessing of emptiness, he will be able to obtain anything he wants. To satisfy the void means to sacrifice the soul of the chosen one. Let Chris imagine a soul that has suppressed the will of 990,000 people. He must kill the enemy, and separating his soul from the body, throw it into the void. However, if the soul is not in a very good condition, he must sacrifice much more. If the soul is in bad condition, it will be worth nothing. As expected from Begimos' reincarnation, Chris quickly gets the hang of it. But since it's empty, it's unlikely that everything is good. In preparation for the battle, a previous life system was created, and a wealth of experience was accumulated. The void was initially considered a curse due to its side effects. But now Chris can have confidence in it because it has submitted to the will of 990,000 lives. They will meet again when Chris is ready to receive the blessing. He came to his senses again. Lisa enters. The examiner came and said that Lace was being promoted to platinum level. They just got upgraded to silver and are now being upgraded to platinum. So Mary came here to cover the story. Chris has no idea how much effort it took her to get here. Julia guarded this room. But everyone already knows that she and Chris are behind closing the rift. Julia allowed Mary in when she showed her the video. So she's going to take down the wounded man. There is a video of Chris and Julia fighting. It has garnered 130 million views. So Mary wants them to continue their deal. It was broadcast live around the world. Mary will take the position of Public Relations Manager for the Lace Guild. The government has expressed its support for Chris Newman, who played an important role in the reconstruction of Seoul. He was very cool. Now he is respected by everyone, and it seems the government is considering raising his rank. The juniors and the principal saw everything on TV before he could tell them, so he's not sure what excuse to give them. They said they were proud of him, and the principal said he was destined to be so cool because she raised him. Julia will come later. Now is not a good time for a visit. Much has been clarified by what has been discovered during the investigation, most notably the source of the Black Mana Stone. At the gates, they obtained magic stones and found out that the gates open all over the world. Maybe someone planned this. They analyzed the components of the Black Mana Stone that Chris had obtained. This magic crystal that they use is the source of energy. The Black Mana Stone has a large amount of power that can distort space. It seems to generate cracks using this energy. In the rift, Chris met a creature called an invader, who is part of the capture team. Perhaps they are the ones creating the rifts. There is a blood pact that delivers information to the invaders. Chris saw an invader named Heron, who used the life of a clan member to heal himself. It seemed like he absorbed his life force. Jim asks why they are capturing them. In Hasashin's memories, Chris saw someone other than Heron, which means he's not the only one. Mary noticed something while she was filming the video. Heron is alive. When Chris broke the Black Mana Stone, the crack began to collapse. Mary couldn't get a good picture of her, but she did get this. If Heron survived, then this won't be the end of it. Chris had only recently come into contact with his abilities, and yet Heron had lost him. He had to request reinforcements. The crack was unstable. He couldn't open the spatial gate. Chris broke the Black Mana Stone. Apparently, he still didn't understand what situation they were in. The commander entrusted Roskell with power over all troops. His fate is at stake. If they fail to defeat the Chosen One, their destinies will be in jeopardy. He must be eliminated at any cost. They are finished if he joins the Dimensional Alliance. This is their last chance. If they do anything given the state of the Black Mana Stone, their forces will suffer heavy losses. But all they need to do is deal with the Chosen One. If Heron refuses to follow orders, let him say so. Roskell has no use for a dog that can't bark. Elena heard that Heron was given a second chance. All they have to do is kill the Chosen One, and it's only natural to use others to do it. Nobody told him to fight directly. They can use their animals from Earth and order them to open a new rift. Just because they didn't kill the Chosen One doesn't mean they failed. Finding out his identity is already an achievement. They may have been used as cannon fodder, but one must still remain loyal. To stand firm on the battlefield, one must pay a high price, even if it means losing an arm or breaking all one's limbs. Agent Smith saw that the investigation into the Blood Pact was progressing smoothly. He was informed that an association of talented people wanted to appoint a representative, and that he was recommended as a candidate. But it looks like Sean wants someone else to take over the position. This is the man who prevented the raid on Gangnam and found out that they were being targeted by creatures calling themselves invaders. Chris Newman is the only one Sean would recommend for this position. Agent Smith also thinks Chris is a better fit than a naive goody-goody like Sean. He can take it as he wants. I wonder why Stanley Kane, who is an S-rank hunter, wasn't recommended for this position. Sean himself knows that he was involved in a blood pact. There may be more than 4 predicted locations, so the Raid Bureau has sent a request for support. By the way, it's a bit empty here. The Lace and Ace guilds were assigned to the same raid. However, it is rated S-rank. They were informed of the forecast only an hour ago, and already it's a mess here. The A-rank hunters have secured a line of defense. There is no serious damage except for the center of the gate. The enemy lines consist of orc swordmasters and priests. But since this is an S-rank mission, we can't let our guard down. Chris hadn't met an orc swordmaster in a long time. Lisa didn't think she would see him here. Maybe she wants to stay in the building and wait it out. Chris isn't the only one who's leveled up. Lisa will get even for last time. The attack begins. Lisa activates the Sacred Spear. It cuts through monsters. These weaklings play hard for no reason. It looks like Lisa has a lot of stuff accumulated. An S-rank orc priest appears. It imposes restraining shackles. Orc swordsmen come back to life. There are too many of them. It takes a little time for Lisa to be able to remove the bonds. The blessing of Gilles de Race is near. The bonds are broken. The orc priest must be defeated. As you might expect, Chris is incorrigible. The center of the gate was somewhere here. He is really close. However, it is suspiciously quiet here. There is a telephone on the floor. Perhaps some detachment was here before them. If they had been defeated, there would have been corpses here, or at least traces of the battle. Hasashin warns of danger. A monster appears. This is a dark spirit, an SS rank magical beast. Its destruction will close the raid. Of course, Chris has no strategy. However, absolute strength is always a guarantee of victory. The monster seemed to have dodged the blow. He's about to attack from behind. Lisa activates the impulse. Chris manages to dodge the blow. First, the monster must kill Lisa. Jim rushes to her defense. The dark spirit thought Chris's arm would break right away, but he was holding up pretty well. Lisa must create as many barriers as she can. Chris has to protect everyone. He's not that bad. In this form, the dark spirit is truly a magical beast. It feels stuffy. It's strange why the invaders are forced to look like this. He is the fallen savior, S-rank hunter Stanley Kane. Chris heard that he didn't care about human lives and only sought power. And this despite the fact that he is the strongest in Korea. He can't allow his identity to be revealed, so he grants Chris an easy death. Besides hiding, Stanley is very fast. But Chris has blessings. He uses the manifested sword. This is a children's toy. Stanley is definitely a tough opponent, but if Chris plays his cards right, he can win. The only blow he tried to land was useless. But this was not the last blow. However, Stanley is still alive. He used accelerated regeneration, an ability that awakened when he reached S-rank. No matter what, Chris will not lose. He has much more ability than Stanley thought. However, he doesn't think Chris is strong. Stanley knew he could tie the Blood Pack together and the invasion team together. The invaders probably even liked it because they love to fight. Danzig Durandal and the Absolute Will of Deus are nearby. Stanley feels a sudden surge of mana. It's impossible because he is the best in Korea. He just can't lose. Stanley asks the captor to give him another chance, but in vain. It turns out Chris had an ace up his sleeve, but he can't use it all the time and didn't even expect it to work. As expected, he is incredible. We need to get out of here. It looks like the gates are about to close. It is confirmed that the spatial rift has widened, giving them the ability to send in more skilled troops. But the rift is still not large enough to cross the dimension. This time, Harren must bring Rascal the head of the Chosen One. Sean heard that Chris beat Stanley Kane. Moreover, he revealed his identity. Attaching a camera to Lisa was a good move. Mary must go and make the cut immediately. Someone wants to meet Chris. The Talent Association couldn't even imagine that Stanley was working for the Blood Pact, so they created a Defense Alliance Committee. It's top secret, so only a few people know about it. Chris has been nominated for a position that will carry broad powers. The most important advantages are worldwide immunity, privileges, and the ability to mobilize troops on behalf of the association. In addition, access to confidential data is possible. The rest of the benefits are documented in this guide. Chris can independently subjugate the Blood Pact and receive rewards in the form of magic stones or money. He must answer now. Chris agrees. There is someone Sean wants to introduce to him. According to Deus's will, he will meet someone who will help him overcome despair. This is Smith. The gates that opened in Seoul were taken care of by none other than Chris. Lays has a much better news source than the press. Smith forgot to introduce himself formally. He is a special agent of the Association of Talented People. This item serves as proof of membership in the association. All informants were mobilized, but there were no reports of blood pacts. The mystery of Stanley Kane is revealed, but they were unable to obtain any evidence. There are a huge number of small raids taking place all over the world. Black mana stones can be used to create a creature, but they can also be the key to opening rifts. It's weird, but it looks like the invaders are targeting Chris. He can't shake the feeling that war is coming. The more he is connected to past lives, the stronger his hostility towards the invaders. He just wants to protect those he cares about. Chris is back in the space of past lives. He certainly feels the enemies approaching. He has become stronger, but still not strong enough. They were so strong that all 990,000 lives could not cope. The invasion team is already preparing to destroy Chris. They just can't come now because the dimensions are not connected. Seiden Miller gives Chris a sword. He believes in him. Chris inherited Seiden's will. His sword will become a radiance that pierces despair. There shouldn't be any problems with opening a spatial rift. This time they must call them all. They will sacrifice everything for the invaders. Blood is pouring onto the black mana stone. The gates are opening. Everything went without problems. The Chosen One is growing faster than expected. He must stop breathing before the worms of this dimension notice their presence. First of all, they must destroy the enemy troops in order to have the opportunity to have fun with the Chosen One. Don't underestimate him. At first, Harren thought he had gotten past him, but suddenly he had an abnormal mana reaction. Roskal asked for something to give the dogs one last chance, whether they kill their prey or become pieces of meat, to send them to war first. They need to gather information anyway, so Harren must return. All this time he was just a consumable. Chris can't fail. He must kill the invaders and fulfill the will of past lives. Harren shows up, but he's not here to fight. He looks forward to watching Chris kill the invaders, even though he didn't notice Harren's appearance. All who strive for power want one thing: to stand above others and look at them as if they were bugs. They use the members of the Blood Alliance as expendables, Chris doesn't want to hear anything from someone like that. He would have preferred Heron to fight him. He saw other chosen ones and thought that they were stupid, because these little people did not die, but continued to fight. No matter how many of the chosen ones Heron killed, they continued to appear, like a vaccine that would rid the universe of its erroneous existence. If the invaders are truly the mistakes of this world, they must be destroyed. Everything will move in the direction indicated by the receiver. They got the exact location. The receiver is located on an artificial island in the Eastern Sea. However, life signals are not enough. Their losses will increase if they attack on a large scale. Alan is still recovering from his injury, and Jim's wounds are still not healed either. Mary is going to fight. It's unusually quiet here. Perhaps they are so confident that they don't think it's necessary to carry out a raid. The plane is landing. There is a strong wind here and the weather may get worse. Mary does not feel any magical reactions. However, Chris's sword points to a place where strong magic is emanating. It seems there is nowhere else to go here. They come in. Chris is finally here. He is the chosen one. They can also call him the man who will destroy the invasion team. He asks if the main goal of the Alliance is to capture the dimension, and he is answered in the affirmative. Dungeons and raids probably help open rifts. If the Blood Alliance members widen the crack, the elite troops will be able to land. Thus they have captured many dimensions. The Alliance members are, of course, dead. Chris asks what's wrong with the inhabitants of the captured dimensions. Those who were useful were accepted as soldiers. Only 10% of captured people become soldiers. The remaining 90 are killed. Chris asks where magical beasts come from. They belong to the magical beast corps. There are many of them. So even if hundreds of thousands die, it doesn't matter. At the very top is the invasion commander. They must be wondering why they are answering their questions. They will be buried here. Lisa activates the sacred barrier. However, there is already a crack in it. Mary turns on the nanomechanical shield. Chris brought a rather interesting person with him. After killing the chosen one, this dimension will soon come under their control. Now that they had come this far, it was best to abandon any thoughts of a safe return. They find themselves in a magic circle. Chris tells Lisa to use the shield. There is an explosion. I wonder how Chris will handle this. His name is Ezekiel. Chris must know the name of the one who will kill him. Durandal is on his side. An explosion pierces the ground. Mary uses her last weapon. Chris may not be a master, but he's still plenty of work. They are firm in their intentions, but the situation is not hopeless. They need to change tactics. Ezekiel is a priority. He doesn't have any special abilities. If they focus on speed, they can attack him without any problems. Chris won't attack without thinking. Mary doesn't like fighting, but there's nothing she can do. They will stick together. Ezekiel will deal with Chris. Mary attacks. It seems like she's out of place here. Chris deflects the blow. The healer should be killed first. She doesn't seem to know what it means to threaten an invader. Crossing the threshold of hell in good health is not so easy. Lisa knows that even in pitch darkness, Chris will protect her. Besides, from now on she doesn't just want to receive help, she can fight too. It's time to put an end to all this. Ezekiel will retreat for a while. Gilles de Reyes' protection destroys any spells. Lisa activates the sacred circuits. They entangle Alsace. Time for the final blow. Heron was right. Speed allows for better attack. There was only one left. Alsace breaks the chains. They all died without showing their powers. Either way, it's hard for Alsace to be alone against 4. He admits his defeat. The only way to leave this place is to die. There is an explosion here. The Chosen One became stronger, much faster than expected. He cornered the 11th and 13th level invaders. In human terms, this is roughly SS class. Elena came to pick up Alsace. Chris's goal is to destroy the invaders. He won't let them go just like that. I wonder what he's going to do if he doesn't let Alsace go. Elena uses magic on Jim and Mary. She is a level 9 invader. Don't force your comrades to kill each other. The spatial gates are opening. 4 arrived, but only 2 returned. Elena must have been away at other operations. Alsace was on the battlefield when the other 2 died. The Chosen One must be a level lower than Heron. He used the skills of the fallen Chosen Ones. He is more dangerous than he seems. They need a plan. Elena just retreated. They will have to fight these monsters again. Mary sold her soul for the number of views. Thanks to her, they defeated the invaders. For the sake of humanity, you'll do anything. Chris's sword senses the aura of the invaders. The soul was consumed by emptiness. Chris was given a blessing. Mana is restored. It's time to go back and rest. Chris is glad the others are safe. Without them, he would be lost. Mary must be tired. This video is much more important. A battle with a creature from another dimension. The views will skyrocket. Finally, they arrived. Kim did tell Mary to rest. There is no point in treating such fatigue. You need to leave her in an empty room. Maybe she will get some sleep there. Nothing happened in the guild during Chris's absence. Finally, he will have some rest. Then Sean calls him. He asks to come right now. It has to do with the invasion team. They haven't seen each other for so long. Most of the blood vows were broken. They were also able to undermine control over the media. Deputy A was found dead in his home. It was discovered that he had been helping the Blood Pact, and a number of other politicians who had made a blood pact were also found. Of course, they all disappeared. So, all that remains are the invaders from the invasion command. There were about 3 invaders in Mary's veterinary clinic: Heron, Ezekiel, and Alsace. And one more, Elena. Chris saw that she had the exact same mark as Jane Lee and her brother, as well as Stanley Kane. If it weren't for Chris, everything would have been different. It is impossible to even imagine the approximate number or strength of those who passed through the cracks. The invaders would have found Chris anyway. He can't even sleep normally. Chris is the one who will inherit the will of light. This is the Spearman of Light. His name is Raikiri. He's here to bless Chris to defeat the invasion team. So, you need to take the test again. Fortunately, he has the right to inherit the will of light. Raikiri doesn't know if Deus has intervened, but Chris is already ready to accept the blessing. This looks like Karsago. Raikiri the horse can talk. Chris won't have to travel through the cracks. He will be blessed. Lisa fell asleep at the table. She laughs in her sleep. She looked at information about summer cottages for rent. Chris announced his company vacation a week before it started, and now he's going on a trip. That's Lace's style. Mary is a certified chef. She's not going to fry it all alone. Suddenly you feel some unusual energy. It's okay, he doesn't mean to harm them. He missed magic so much, he is an interdimensional wanderer. This is what they call those who are attacked while traveling between dimensions and have lost their way. The invaders also say that they travel between dimensions, so they met them too. His name is Levian. The conversation may be long, but he will try to keep it short. He is a mage of the Mado Alliance. One day, a spatial crack appeared and grew into a huge hole. And then they appeared. Invasion team. The Master gathered allied forces to confront them. At first they were winning. Chris can guess what happened next. The Mado Alliance has been defeated. The small number of survivors were brainwashed and turned into soldiers. Thanks to the Master's sacrifice, Levian was able to escape, but due to unstable magic, he drifted between dimensions. The name of his master is Gilles de Rais, and in Chris, Levian felt his magic, which he missed so much. The will of Gilles de Rais lives in Chris. He is one of his 990,000 past lives. Chris doesn't dare joke about the Master like that. The magic of Gilles de Rais destroys magical formulas. Chris didn't know that he would meet someone who knew his past life. In the end, Mary had to do everything herself and didn't even get a piece of meat. But Lisa had prepared everything in advance, since Chris seemed to be gone for a long time. When Levian called the name Gilles de Rais, it echoed in Chris. He is back in the room of his past life. At least Levian should survive. Gilles de Rais asks him to escape through a spatial crack. Chris wakes up in his room. Gilles de Rais created the illusion of the past. He expected Chris to meet Levian, but he still felt awkward. Levian was a member of the Mado Alliance and his assistant at the academy. He was special, very inquisitive. Everyone had already gathered outside, but Gilles de Rais did not like noisy places. And besides, there were no people there who liked him. Outside was the result of creation magic created by Levian. It was a living statue. Terrible blasphemy. At first, Gilles de Rais couldn't stand Levian. When the interdimensional rift and the beings that came out of it were discussed, Gilles volunteered to go there. Levian wanted to go with him. Gilles said that no one would take his side. Levian gave him glasses. He knew it was his birthday. Even with his own strength, Gilles couldn't win. In just 6 months, his dimension had turned into a desert. They were about to close the crack. Gilles told Levian to go there alone. He had to go to another dimension and make sure he could survive. Chris will inherit Gilles' will, becoming the third after Hassashin and Sid and Miller. He has no right to forget the emotions he experienced in the illusion of the past. Last night, Levian dreamed of a teacher. It's still hard to believe that he became someone's past life. If Chris is going to fulfill his teacher's long-standing wish, Levian will help him. He can stay here. It's hardly normal to give such a person a place in the guild. Today we received a call from the Underground Management Bureau. Strange magical phenomena are being observed throughout Korea. The Bureau initially thought it was an error in the surveillance system, but the situation is clearly true. Sword thought it was Levian's mana at first, but it felt completely different. These are clearly invaders. Alsace would never have thought that the Corps commander would personally call him. It's probably because he didn't kill the Chosen One. If Roskal stops him alone, all the credit will go to him. The commander received a report on the Chosen One. He asks why information about how quickly he gains power was hidden. Such mistakes are unacceptable. We must get rid of the Chosen One, regardless of the damage. He knows that a dog that can't bark is useless. We'll also need to deal with the Dimensional Alliance before they start acting in earnest. A general mobilization of troops is declared. Chris finds himself back in the room of his past life. This is Deus. Chris clearly wants to ask something. To begin with, He is interested in how he can gain more approval. Typically, an increase in approval level is possible by repeating a certain action or using protection. In Chris's case, it is the definition of his destiny. The more he resists it, the higher his level. He must continue to believe he has strength. Through 990,000 destructions, the system of past lives was built. Chris's strength is that he can get all of their skills. Besides, the invasion team leaders are already heading here. The interdimensional gates have opened. Since these cracks are unstable, there is a high probability that a large-scale invasion will not occur. Maybe they want to get rid of Chris. This battle will be decisive. If they fail, their world will end. Chris has more friends than last time, but they didn't come alone either. In this world, he is called an SSS rank hunter. His name is Vladimir. He is the icy blade of Russia. He has mastered cold magic at the highest level. Of course, he was brainwashed. Elena will deal with Julia. The main weapon of the Chosen One is magic and vampirism. Vladimir will deal with him. They probably know about Chris's abilities. Looking ahead can put you at a disadvantage. They will perform the operation again. Levian's goal is very clear to him. It was Alsace who took his teacher's life. Chris will fight against Vladimir. The operation has begun. Vladimir creates an ice zone. Lisa sets up a barrier. If Chris lets Vladimir attack, everything around will freeze. It will be difficult to deal with him in close combat, but there is a possibility to absorb the attack with the help of lifesteal. Vladimir had better get rid of the thought of survival. It activates an ice wall. He then launches a fire of ice crystals. Chris's skills and techniques are clear, hide and seek and fencing. So now Vladimir will fight him the way he knows best. The light of Raikiri will take Chris into the distance. He will become a flash of light and destroy his enemies. Cold erosion can be fatal. Chris breaks through the ice wall. The more he allows himself to be attacked, the greater his resistance to cold. Everything around begins to be covered with ice. Lisa destroys it. Chris mounts Raikiri's horse. He attacks. It might be worth helping, but they were told not to interfere, and Vladimir will not be defeated. Julia fights Elena. Jim and Sean are going to help. It is a type of magic air control. If you get into the flow, you can fly. Jim can create spells like these, for example. He created a gravity inversion. He became so good at magic in a short period of time, maybe Sean can achieve that too. It activates a lightning discharge. Alpha Group is dead. Only 2 people took down almost everyone. Raikiri is much more useful than Chris thought. He uses a hail of swords. The more attacks Vladimir takes, the deeper they go. He must stand up. Chris won't let him do that. Vladimir includes cold erosion. By the will of the Chosen One's persistence, any spell becomes useless. Even though Vladimir is a high-ranking hunter, he is still a man, and he cannot avoid this pain. But he is not so easily broken. Despite this, Chris defeats him. That girl is not susceptible to brainwashing, and Levian's magic is very unusual. We need to prepare that very thing, so we can gain time. This is all that remains. Elena begins. This is mental magic. Elena puts the seal. Julia and Levian find themselves inside a cube. Julia destroys it. Alsace uses reverse gravity. Suddenly something appears around him. Levian casts a spell. A living tree grows from the ground beneath Alsace. Now Levian will finish all this. He sets the tree on fire. It burned almost completely along with Alsace. The magic field is still active. His power envelops the hunters. Vladimir launches ice spears again. There is no mana left at all. Chris calls out to Deus. In response to desperate pleas, he intervenes in fate. This is the coming of a past life. The forerunner of madness, Ares, is ready to fight at Chris's side. Health and mana levels are restored. The will deifies him. Elena and Vladimir feel an all-consuming fear. The magic that had been felt before was only a grain in the abyss of greatness. Elena tries to use black magic. Cheap tricks like that won't work on Chris. Vladimir attacks again. When the Sword of Light brings down its majesty, let the scarlet flowers bloom. Once they enter the battle, they must be prepared to die. Chris hits Elena. It's incredible that the Chosen One is capable of such a thing. When they first met, Elena thought she could finish him off with one hand. Patron protection removed. Chris feels like he's about to fall apart. The sword telling him to pull himself together before he loses all his strength. Begemos absorbs the soul of the invader. The mighty soul satisfied the emptiness. Finally, it's all over. Chris falls. Julia remembers nothing after her mind was subjected to magic. Elena cast a spell of oblivion. Everyone was supposed to forget who they were and what they were doing there. When they met the Chosen One on the artificial island, Elena and Alsace were more than enough. If Chris's magic is what Roskal read about in the records, then it is Ares, the precursor to madness. With a light swing of his sword, the Chosen One cut down dozens of soldiers. Due to the forced opening of unstable cracks, the losses of troops are great if they encounter the Chosen One, who carries such great power. That nightmare will repeat itself again. Chris meets Ares. If he came here, it can only mean one thing. He wants to become stronger. The place of his presence is rolling into the abyss of destruction. Chris wants to avoid this. The end of despair is approaching, and Ares has decided to grant him the power of a god. Everything is at stake now. From now on, Chris is a god, which means he can control the invasion team's magic stone. Ares would be happy to tell more, but there is no time. He did everything in an interesting way. Being the most distant from everything worldly, he felt interested, because he knows what the punishment will be. He will rest in peace forever. Interfering with fate, as in the case of Miller, is forbidden. Many of them have already disappeared. Hasashin, Sidon Miller, Carsago, and Gil de Reis. This is already the 990,000th life. Too many people have died. Ares despaired because he had hoped for too long. After the completion of the reincarnation system, they will have only one goal left, to destroy their enemies and bring back hope for a bright future. It's time to end this whole nightmare. It's time for Ares. They will meet at the end of this destiny. The commander did not think that Roskal would suffer such a terrible defeat. The crack was unstable, and the gate was open. Even taking all that into account, they probably screwed up too much. The main forces of the 13th invasion team are Elena and Alsace. Their forces are enough to conquer the Earth. They both became victims of the Chosen One. He used the will of God. Elena holds the rift open, but it's not enough for the troops to get through. The main part of the command is waging a war with the Alliance. There are very few troops, and besides, the soldiers are not in the best condition. There is nothing to do but open the crack wider and begin the landing operation. The Chosen One is becoming stronger too quickly. They must direct all their forces to destroy the Earth. This is the controller of the spatial gate. If you direct magic here, the spell will work, but it is extremely dangerous. There was no one left at the head of the command except the two of them. All forces of the 13th command are to begin spatial landing. Julia doesn't know how many invaders are left, but Elena was much stronger than Vladimir. They were able to survive because they now have SSS rank too. While Chris was fighting the invaders, they had something to do. Countries around the world have said they will provide any support they can to the Defense Alliance Committee. Julia and Jim, who had suffered enough in battle, received awards. Sean tried to contact Chris, but all was in vain. However, all the rewards were successfully transferred. Now we can go home. However, the rift opens again. Monsters emerge from it. There is a strange magical surge felt. It does not come from the invasion team. These are elves. Chris is greeted by Asura, the consul of the Interdimensional Alliance. They intend to confront all hostile forces, and they will help destroy the invasion team. So, the Interdimensional Alliance has finally found the Chosen One. If Roskal kills him now, there will definitely be no problems. They don't seem to understand. They are being given a chance to get out. They are not able to defeat both the Chosen One and the Consul of the Alliance at the same time. They will see each other next time. Then Roskal will definitely tear everyone apart and burn this place down. He left. Assyria suggests that Chris move to a place more suitable for conversation. Everything here looks exactly like it did in the holograms from the past. I need to take a trip back in time sometime. They sensed the mana of the Chosen Ones they had met earlier in Chris's mana. This is the mana of 990,000 lives. For centuries they have fought side by side with the Chosen Ones. They helped many of them secretly, but very few made direct contact. It was impossible to destroy the invasion command alone, so the Interdimensional Alliance traveled across dimensions in search of the Chosen One. The war is drawing to an end. Both the Alliance and Command have already lost a significant amount of forces, so Chris is the key to ending this war. This means that the invaders wanted to kill him because they found him before the elves. If he survives, they are doomed to fail. The elves know how to properly help Chris so that he becomes even stronger. This is the blood of Reaper, mired in blood. Butcher's daggers thirst for the blood of the masters who once wielded them. And the blood of the killer who has accumulated the most lives empowers the dagger. Relics left behind by Chris's past lives are scattered across the world, some in their home cities, but many turned to rubble when the dimensions were destroyed. So Chris needs to go and look for them. If he becomes even stronger than he is now, he will definitely be able to protect everyone. The elves, of course, know where some of the relics are. Until a new Chosen One was found, they could not mobilize their fighting force to search for them. Chris realizes that searching for relics is dangerous. There lurks a creature mutated by spatial magic. There are problems with moving between spaces. Assyria needs to restore its previous level of strength. It takes her about 4 days. Chris thanks them for saving him. They can rest here before leaving to search for relics. Chris calls Levian. He asks when he thinks the next attack will be. Levian says it's too early to guess. Chris then asks if they can survive the attack if he's not there. He is going to find relics of past lives. He doesn't know how long it will take to find them, but this is the surest way to defeat the enemy. They can't survive long without Chris. He'll have to come back as soon as possible. Asura had a very good rest. Chris wants to go right now. This can be arranged very quickly. They will go to the homeland of Sidon Miller, where they will obtain the emblems that he left behind. Everything is ready. We must follow the light. This is the Revel's dimension. Judging by the landscape, they are in the central desert. This is the place where Sidon passed on his title to Chris. They are not far from their destination. Fortunately, the mutants have left this place. The burden that Sidon left Chris with was not an easy one. They came. Chris will find the relic that Sidon left here. They sense the magic of the relic, but only the Chosen One can find it. They will wait for him here. Chris enters the tower. He seems to know where he needs to go. He finds a relic. The magic of Sidon Miller has manifested itself. Chris comes out. The relic immediately began to shine before his eyes. The feeling of being chosen helps him very well. The next target is the darkness of Hasashin. It seems they have been noticed. Most likely this is the same mutant. They need to hide somewhere. If they enter into battle, they won't have enough mana to move. They need to win 10 seconds. This place turned into a desert because all the spatial anomalies were moved and erased into sand. Almost done. They move before the monster gets close. They're a little off track, but the relic is here. The relics of Danzing are located here. We need to sort this place out quickly. Chris took the relic. We can go to the next dimension. This is the place of the Lord of Pain. It seems these creatures have escaped from his control. We need to get them back. Chris receives another relic. At last they reach the darkness of Hasashin. They had collected enough relics that Chris now understood how hard the fates of his past lives had been. It's time to go get the last relic. This is the diary of Gilles de Rais. It is located in one of the Forgotten Dimensions. The Alliance has finally found the Chosen One. He will achieve unprecedented strength with their support. They must go after them. The fact that the Alliance has found the Chosen One is a great opportunity. Now they travel through dimensions together with the Chosen One. This is their best chance to destroy the Earth. They must send all their forces. All relics have been found. This is the diary of Gilles de Rais. Only the Chosen Ones are able to fully utilize the power of the relics. Chris must hold the relic in his hand and feel the magic. The level of information exchange with past lives increases. The power that Sidon Miller left behind will now be with Chris until the end. Hasashin's darkness is with him. The complete concealment cannot be undone. Chris is freed from fear and pain by Pierre's dark knowledge. No pain threatens him from now on. He takes on all the hardships in the Danzing helmet. His fighting spirit will not fade. So here it is, the potential of the Chosen One. Asura had heard that he was monstrously strong, but she couldn't imagine how much stronger he had become since their first meeting. It feels like they're about to rob an empty house. They probably think they don't have to be afraid of them since Chris is gone. The second squad has already arrived, but they are not in full force. Levian can tell how many there are just by looking because his dimension was destroyed by them. They were going to bring a lot more monsters. Sean just received a message from the Talent Association. They have sent the maximum number of soldiers. Among them is Eric Shadow, Duke, the Dimension Traveler. They even sent Drake Storm. All of them are SSS rank. Even though Chris isn't with them, they still have to focus on what they have to do. They will meet them. A huge seal appears. Here he is, their enemy, Commander-in-Chief Inzul. As expected, there is no Chosen One. Only a motley bunch of trash remains. Inzul came as if it were his home and was going to kill innocent people. There seem to be a couple of useful ones here. Julia and Jim are chained. The same thing happens with Lisa and Sean. They may well become soldiers of the invaders. Julia breaks the chains. They will all die. The invaders have an incredible number of monsters. Their abilities are not fully known to Levian. Julia had asked herself many times how much she had changed since that day when all her strength had come from. Perhaps this battle will give her an answer. That's why she will go against Azul. But she can't go into battle without reinforcements. It's okay. She can protect herself. She dares to attack the Commander-in-Chief without permission. Izul will see what she is capable of. He is very interested in who defeated Alsace. This is the first time Julia has seen such a spear. She grabs onto him. Roskell had hoped for a more merciful death for them all. However, he will act differently. These tentacles are clearly not simple. If Chris arrives on time, they will have a chance. We just have to hold out until he arrives. First, the invaders will get rid of the healer. Levian uses creation magic. Something is clearly wrong. It can't end that easily. Here it is, a huge magical splash. A little more, and Azul would have made a hole in Julia's head. Although her buff did cause damage, it was minor. Julia attacks again. Izul uses penetrating power. Spears are flying at Julia. They are engulfed in flames. Izul is not as strong as he seemed. You just have to keep him from getting too far away. Izul puts the chains into action again, and Julia destroys them again. Then Azul uses another skill. Julia is thrown back. Chains with hooks appear. Julia is chained again. Through them, Izul strikes. And this is not the end. These chains are stronger than Julia thought. Izul uses the power of destruction. This is a piercing blow. They still won't be able to. Only Lisa and Levian remained. The woman who challenged the commander-in-chief is still breathing, but not for long. Levian thought he could last a day, but in just half a day, he had used up almost all of his strength. It seems he won't be able to keep his promise. Here comes Chris. They all did a good job, he couldn't miss it. Levian asks to fulfill the teacher's wish. He can rely on Chris. It would be difficult, so he didn't come alone. Then for him, living his last life, they will fight on a more familiar battlefield. The light of Raikiri carries Chris away. He will become a flash of light and pierce through enemies. Reaper's thirst for blood awakens, and no living creature can resist the animal fear. The righteous shine is reflected in the sharp blade. Izul tries to immobilize the sword. The blade breaks chains. The talking sword warns of a hidden magical attack. Chris is entangled in tentacles, but he breaks free. He tries to use Gilles de Ray's defense, but it can't be used. The invaders' magic is different from the usual one. They pretended to be a terrible weapon, but in reality, one had already died. The absorbed souls filled the void. Izul attacks again. Chris uses the power of Raikiri. We can't give him a break. Reaper's bloodlust awakens. The righteous shine is reflected in the sharp blade. A flash hits Izul. The force consumes him. Then he takes on his true form. His armor looks pretty strong. Even after hundreds of thousands of reincarnations, Chris cannot stop them. He must surrender and accept his fate. This is a real disaster. Izul didn't expect Chris to go this far. There was not even a reaction to mana. Reaper's bloodlust is awakened once again. He must break through. Chris closes himself with a magical barrier, but from Izul's weapon, cracks appear in it. He broke the barrier. Swords are pointed at Chris. They pierce him. Izul announces the end of his world. There was no way he could resist it. It turns out it was all in vain. This is the strength of the invaders' commander. None of them can cope with him. But Chris hasn't done much yet. There is only one way left. Dios hasn't given Chris his will yet, but if he does, the chain of reincarnations will end. Chris feels unbearable pain, which he has never had to face before. His personality could be destroyed. He's ready. Then Deus entrusts his will to him. He gives the blessing to change destiny. In response to a desperate request, Deus's will intervenes in the fate of the world. The Jester of Fate offers to bet everything. Chris agrees. Now the Jester will take a card. This is the card of the Eternal Regressor. He calls out to Chris. The Eternal Regressor asks if he is ready to endure eternal suffering. Chris will definitely cope. In Amos Dimension, the commander of the 8th Invasion Corps killed Raikiri. He was fast, but it wasn't enough. Chris's body doesn't move the way he wants it to. He is just a man, and that's the end. The blessing of the Eternal Regressor has been activated. In exchange, Chris loses one random blessing. This is the blessing of Raikiri. Enough thinking. We need to concentrate on the battle. Izul expected Chris to fall from one blow, but he stood firm, probably due to Danzig's blessing. He loses to them in defense. Even though records of him have been preserved, he still cannot protect anyone. Chris takes cover behind the barrier. This is Karsago's aura. He was the first to succumb to the invaders. He can't save Chris either. Attacks rain down from all sides, but there is no mana reaction to them. He doesn't even feel any movements. The sword warns of the blow, and Chris manages to deflect it. But the blow from behind hits the target. Looks like Chris is already giving up. If he doesn't surrender, Izul will end his world. Chris is pierced again and again. Izul grabs him. This is not the end. Not yet, now it's the end. The fight begins with a piercing blow, followed by a comprehensive thrust. To hell with the hand, the only goal is to kill Izul. Bloodless Berserker dulls the sense of pain. The power of madness activates the body. The magnificent Swordmaster gives Chris a brilliant dance. He's good, but he's unlikely to be able to dodge this. Chris attacks Izul. This is a chance. A flash pierces Izul. He can't lose. Chris delivers the finishing blow. Today he is again staring into space. But Lisa believes that he hears her. He doesn't even look at her, let alone answer. He's been looking out the window for a month now. Chris will definitely come back. He doesn't remember who he is and what he's supposed to do. He feels like something is missing. Finally they met. Something's wrong. Chris knows Karsago from somewhere. He is his past life. If he lost all his memories, then the first thing Karsago taught him, he would learn again. Chris is completely at a loss, but he has a vague sense of longing. Karsago will beat him until his memory returns. If there is no trial and suffering, there will be no result. If Chris needs strength to meet his destiny, let him raise his shield and fight. Chris doesn't remember anything yet. Karsago attacks again and again. Chris's body remembers the old days. He must remember. He has always won, so he can do it this time too. Sidon Miller gives him his blessing. Then it is granted by Hasashin, then Reaper. Chris attacks Karsago. He regained his memories and won. This is where Karsago's role ended. No more regrets from past lives. Chris is blessed by Deus, Anderos, Fair, Gilles de Reyes, Danzing, Raikiri, and others. 990,000 past lives pay tribute to him for fulfilling a long-held wish. Chris woke up. According to the doctor, his body was not seriously damaged, so he can be discharged. There was no need to go into formalities, they were waiting for him. Mary wanted to take a video, but missed the moment of awakening. They were afraid that Chris would go down the same path as the teacher. A month has passed since the battle with the invaders. After the death of their commander, Chris has the highest magical response. The cracks that appeared all over the world began to heal, but new threats may appear. But no matter what happens, 990,000 past lives will help Chris. And now he is not afraid. After all, there are those who will share this burden with him. So he will move on. In the established world, everything quickly returned to normal. And yet, when the invasion team was defeated, Chris thought that the cracks would not appear again. After the death of the commander-in-chief, the invaders disbanded most of their forces. But there were those who did not. There are quite a lot of them, but it's nonsense. The victory over their last enemy has lifted the spirits of hunters all over the world. There are, of course, fewer cracks, but they continue to appear. Here they finished. Chris had one relic of his past life left. He thinks that it would suit someone else better. Judging by Levian's reaction, there is no need to explain. Let Chris give him Gilles de Reyes' diary, but Levian is different from the teacher. So now he admits that they will not find any trace of him anymore. This diary contains many useful spells, most of which Chris will no longer be able to use. But Levian will definitely cope. Because he is Gilles' only successor, Chris leaves him to his will. In the city, Chris is met by Lisa. She invites him to open the box. Today is a birthday. But not his, but Lisa's. He really did forget. The director of the shelter gave her the cake. Since Chris hasn't prepared a gift, let him fulfill Lisa's wish. She wants him to spend time with her just today. So they return to their normal routine.